The story begins with our boy digging someone out of the ground with his bare hands, and instead of being horrified like a normal functioning human being, he is genuinely relieved about it. A new person means a new day is coming, and at this point in his life, a new day is the only luxury he cannot afford to lose. To understand this properly, let's go back to our boy Makoto is a good-for-nothing high schooler and delivery guy pushing through another brutal day. His boss steps out, checks on him, and tells him to grab breakfast once he's done. Makoto casually mentions he just picked up another shift loading shelves at the supermarket right after this. She looks shocked that a high schooler is stacking that many part-time jobs, but Makoto gently brushes it off, saying she doesn't need to worry. Deep down, she thinks this kid is something else, carrying his whole family without ever complaining. As Makoto prepares to leave on his bike, a group of thugs rolls up and starts calling him every name. One of them kicks him in the leg while Vakita steps forward, demanding where the hell his money is. It's the summer of their second year, and Vakita's got some genius plan involving girls. He admits he and his boys blew all their cash on weed and only have 30,000 yen left, so Makoto needs to invest, and they'll let him bang a girl too. Makoto politely turns it down, saying he doesn't want any of that. Vakita gets pissed, demands the cash, but someone from the shop comes out and the cowards scatter. Vakita spits a warning that he won't forget this. Makoto keeps delivering while thinking he doesn't need a girlfriend anyway. All he wants is for Shiori to wake up. After finishing, a hottie suddenly calls out to him. Yane teases him for working so early and gets right up in his space until he steps back. She notices he's built some muscle and wonders where that soft, gentle boy from before went. Makoto tries to play it off, but she brings up the rumors that he's skipping school to work instead of his deadbeat dad. She asks if his father is drinking again and tells him he's taking on way too much. Makoto lies about saving up for something, but Yane sees straight through him like always. She reminds him they've known each other since kindergarten and he once promised never to lie to her. He stops cold when she mentions Shiori's illness. Yane says she overheard the club supervisor talking about it. Makoto tries to shut it down as a family matter, but she offers to help. He refuses again, saying when it comes to Shiori, he doesn't want to rely on anyone. That promise sits heavy as he heads to the hospital, believing God gave him this trial alone, and that staying strong will save her. In a hospital room, Shiori lies there silent while Makoto talks to her softly. The nurse comes in and tells him Shiori is stable but still hasn't woken up. Makoto asks why she hasn't been put on the operation list after a whole month. The nurse explains it's not money, but they need a matching donor first. After she leaves, Makoto stares at his sister, remembering she only has 2 months. Every second counts, and all he can do is wait. Shiori has always been his pillar, that bright smile carrying him through the worst days. He promises her he'll do whatever it takes. When Makoto finally drags himself home, his father is partying loudly with his buddies with bottles everywhere. Makoto sees sushi on the table and immediately checks the hidden stash he saved for Shiori's operation. The box is empty. Rage explodes inside him because he knows exactly who took it. His father casually says Shiori is going to disappear anyway, so why waste money when they can enjoy it now? Makoto grabs him by the collar, shaking while asking how any parent can say something so heartless. His father snaps back, telling him to shut up and go earn more if he's got so much free time. Makoto realizes the person who should care most cares the least. He can't take it anymore. The pressure snaps and Makoto runs out, heading straight to the nearby temple. He screams at the gods, asking why everything keeps turning out this way when he's trying so hard. When nothing answers, he mutters that he always knew there were no gods. Tears fall as he says if every new day only brings more despair for him and Shiori, then maybe there doesn't need to be a new day at all. It almost feels like something hears him in that silence. That night, after extra work, Makoto heads home, grateful for the extra bento someone gave him. He's thinking about more part-time jobs when the hospital calls. A donor has been found. Surgery is scheduled in 1 month. Relief hits him so hard he nearly cries, thinking his prayers finally reached someone. This morning feels lighter. Makoto washes his face, ready to earn back the lost money now that Shiori is saved. But when he steps outside, Vakita appears again, running the exact same script about investing in girls. Makoto points out he already heard this yesterday. Vakita denies everything. He glances at the newspaper and freezes. The date reads Monday, July 10th, which should not be possible. He asks his boss if these newspapers are from yesterday, and she gives him a puzzled look while asking if he is feeling all right. She says they are obviously today's papers. Makoto rushes to the hospital to check on the donor situation, but the nurse looks confused. She says she does not know what he is talking about because she never called him yesterday. Makoto tries to tell her she did, yet she gently says someone must have been messing with him. Everything around him feels wrong. The weather matches yesterday, and even the morning news is repeating the same stories. Makoto wonders if time has been rewound. His thoughts collapse when he hears the nurse calling for an emergency because Shiori's condition suddenly worsened. Makoto cannot understand why this is happening when she was fine yesterday in the version of the day he lived. The day repeats again as he moves through the motions like a ghost. After work, he carries another bento home and once more receives a call from the hospital, telling him that the donor has been found. Confusion hits him all over again. It feels like deja vu, except stronger and sharper. He tells himself he must be losing his mind because this cannot be real. Later that night, he sits on the floor of his house trying to understand what happened. But before he can make sense of any of it, the day resets again. His bento disappears, his bag moves, and his dirty shirt is back on the hanger. Twice is coincidence, thrice is undeniable. He realizes the day is repeating. It is Monday, July 10th again. Trishi sprints to the hospital early in the morning, only to find Shiori gone from her bed. The nurse apologizes and explains he cannot see her. Makoto panics and asks what happened. She says Shiori's condition worsened drastically around midnight. It is as if 2 or 3 days of disease progression happened in a single night. Makoto freezes because that means Shiori is trapped in the loop with him. He wonders why it is always him and Shiori. Then he remembers what he said at the temple. He asked for no new days. He understands too well now what kind of wish was granted. She storms back to the temple demanding answers, shouting that they finally had a donor and she can't stay stuck here forever. While he is shouting, Makoto appears behind him and asks what Makoto is doing here. Makoto stares at him, stunned to see him again. Makoto laughs and accuses Makoto of stealing donations. Makoto tries to deny it, yet Makoto pins him down and starts digging into his pockets. He demands money and refuses to return the envelope that Makoto needs for his sister. Makoto pleads with him and says the money belongs to Shiori's treatment. Makoto pleads answer is another punch. Something inside Makoto finally snaps. He grabs a nearby stone and demands the money back. When Vakita refuses, Makoto swings the stone. The impact knocks Vakita down in a sickening thud. Makoto kneels beside him and realizes that Vakita is not moving at all. Terror floods him as the truth sinks in. Vakita is gone. Mikinato runs home shaking. His hands are covered in blood and he cannot believe what he has done. He sits in his room thinking there is nothing to fear because when midnight comes, the loop will reset everything. His phone rings soon after because the hospital is calling about the donor. But fear, joy, sadness, none of these things matter anymore. He feels empty. For him and Shiori, there will be no new days. The next morning, Makoto believes the loop has repeated. He prepares to visit Shiori but overhears the weather report saying today's forecast is different from yesterday's. He feels numb because if the day is different, time might have moved forward. He hears police sirens nearby and sees people gathering. They say the newspaper courier was brutally unalived by someone. Makoto stops breathing for a moment. He looks down at his palm and finds a small piece of paper he does not remember picking up. He unfolds it and reads the message. It says great misfortune will befall him, and if he takes a monster's life, the door to a new day will open. Makoto finally understands. Yesterday, he unalived Vakita, and that is why the loop ended. He sprints to the hospital where the nurse asks why he did not answer the phone. She explains a donor has been arranged. Makoto rushes toward the ICU even as she tries to stop him. He realizes that Shiori's surgery is in 1 month. To keep her alive until then, he must open 30 doors, and for each door to open, he must unalive 1 person every day. Makoto keeps replaying the message in his head as he stares at his trembling hands. If murdering 1 human a day is the only way to break the loop and reach tomorrow, then is that really what the gods want from him? He keeps asking the sky the same question with no answer. Meanwhile, the police have already identified yesterday's victim. Vakita, 24 years old. Newspaper courier. Unalived around 10 at night. One of the investigators hands Inspector Tsukumo a file as he casually eats ice cream. She says the whole thing probably ties back to some shady meds business she spotted at the scene. Tsukumo, unfazed, asks her to calm down because her detective intuition is basically hanging by a thread. They discover the rock used as the weapon, fingerprints and all, and then an envelope full of cash that was sitting right next to Vakita. Makoto steps out of Shiori's room with heavy steps when Yane immediately spots him. Without hesitation, she grabs his arm and drags him off, telling him he cannot miss school today because final exams start now. Until they're over, she forbids him from doing any part-time work. She even hands him prep materials like she's his manager. Makoto is seconds away from telling her the truth, but he swallows it back down. He sits for the exam, though all he can think about is the question eating him alive. Should he unalive someone today? A sudden noise startles him, and the teacher shouts for silence. Makoto grips his pencil, realizing he might not be able to do this. Taking a life to force time forward, maybe he really can't. Lao's gone. After the exam, Yane asks how it went, immediately reading the disaster on his face. She reassures him softly, saying this isn't the end of the world. Tomorrow is a new day. Makoto freezes because to him, tomorrow is exactly what he might never reach. As he walks away, she calls out again, telling him not to give up and to stay as he is. Makoto feels his stomach drop. He can't stay as he is. Not anymore. He isn't the same person. Not after what he did. On his way to work, he gets stopped by Tsukumo and Mizuno, who politely ask for a moment. They sit somewhere nearby with drinks and snacks as Mizuno shows him a photo of Vakita, confirming he was unalive last night. She asks if Makoto knows anything since they apparently worked in the same area. Makoto tries to leave, saying he has exams, but she pulls out the envelope. She says this was dropped at the crime scene. Tsukumo explains those envelopes are used in city hospitals for cash. Then he calmly asks about his sister, implying he connected the dots. Makoto realizes he dropped it in his panic. Tsukumo then politely asks for Makoto's fingerprints to clear up the misunderstanding. Makoto bolts. Mizuno tries calling after him that it's not even an official investigation yet, but Tsukumo tells her to keep an eye on him. Hours later, as Makoto gets ready to leave work, he notices someone watching him. He panics. If this continues, he's going to jail. But then he remembers. At midnight, the loop resets. Anything left undone rewinds. Anyone tailing him disappears. Midnight hits. Makoto sprints out of the house and returns to where Vakita's body will be discovered again. He digs out the envelope in the rock, convincing himself that none of this is his fault. Vakita forced his hand. Vakita was already a bad guy. He destroys all evidence and tells himself that as long as time rewinds, he can erase anything that incriminates him. If this is the system, then he will use it as many times as it takes. Morning plays out the same. The police find Vakita again. They repeat the same lines about him as if reading from a script. This time, however, the murder weapon is missing. Mizuno still tries to blame the meds, but Tsukumo warns her she's about 10 guesses away from losing her badge. They eventually examine the envelope again and note a strange mark on it. Morinakoto visits Shiori, only to hear that her condition has worsened again overnight. It's progressing far faster than they expected, so they've moved her into the ICU. The nurse says the earliest possible transplantation date is now the 10th of August. Makoto sits beside her, watching her fragile breathing, and quietly decides he will continue. It does not matter how much blood ends up on his hands. If this is the price to reach tomorrow, a day where Shiori can live, then he will walk that path alone. Makoto leaves the hospital after checking on Shiori and walks towards school while the hallways buzz with students reviewing notes and nervously asking each other about the exam questions. Everything feels distant to him now because his mind stays locked on the dark idea of unaliving another human before midnight. He knows deep down that Shiori would hate the person he is becoming, so he silently apologizes to her while promising he will only go after those who truly deserve it. The operation is just a month away, and he keeps telling himself he is willing to walk this bloodied path as long as it saves her. After the exam finishes, Yane appears like always and asks how it went, giving her usual soft encouragement that it is not the end of the world because tomorrow always comes. This time, Makoto surprises her by agreeing that he will definitely greet the next day, then walks away without explaining more, leaving Yane staring at his back. Something about him feels completely wrong now, like the gentle boy she knew is slowly disappearing. As he heads toward his next job, he keeps thinking that he must unalive one more person before midnight hits. His thoughts shift when he notices a group of guys cornering a girl and ordering her to talk less and work more. One of them laughs about a quest being completed because she supposedly stole exam answers, calling her a professional thief, while treating it like some disgusting game. Makoto watches the exchange and wonders what kind of low-life trash does this to a girl. The girl begs them to leave her alone, yet one of the guys tells her she still owes them more work. They bring up the abandoned barn near Himeno River and order her to meet them there at 10 at night, promising she will receive new quests for the rest of her life. When they finally leave, Makoto realizes the girl is Katigiri from his class. She tries to run from embarrassment but trips and falls straight into him, then begs him not to tell anyone she stole the exam sheet. Makoto asks why she is mixed up with such people, and Katigiri explains everything through trembling breaths. Savannah, the gang leader, worked at the shop where she had once stolen something. He caught her and recorded a video of it. He promised not to report her if she followed his demands, which eventually turned into stealing for them regularly. She tells Makoto about her parents splitting when she was in middle school and how she lived with her mother afterward. Her mother changed completely and began bringing men home without considering her daughter, leaving Katigiri studying desperately in hopes of being noticed again. She cries as she admits she believes her mother would abandon her if this ever came out. Hearing this, Makoto feels a deep understanding because her fears mirror his own struggles with family and desperation. He assures her he will not tell anyone, and that he will keep everything to himself. She asks what he means by that's all, but he avoids explaining and leaves. When he reaches home, he prepares the tools he believes are necessary for unaliving someone, noting how different this feels compared to when Vakita died in the heat of the moment. Back then, he acted without thinking, but now it must be deliberate, careful, and free of mistakes if he wants to avoid the police. He wonders what happens if he fails to take someone out tonight, and Shiori remains stuck in the loop with no progress. He remembers Savanoi naming the time and place for Katigiri, and that thought pushes him toward the abandoned barn. When he arrives, the area is eerily quiet, which makes him briefly relieved before guilt creeps in because relief means avoiding another kill. He has already chosen these men as his targets, yet he questions if he is truly going to do this just because of what they did to her. He hesitates at the barn door before taking a slow peek inside. A cold shock hits his body when he sees Katigiri lying unconscious on the ground with nothing on top of her, while three guys prepare to take advantage of her. One mentions she feels better than he expected, while another complains she is bony. Savannah considers doing more to her while she is out. Yet another guy tells him not to be greedy because she belongs to them now and they can use her anytime they want, whether at home or at school. Makoto freezes in place, horrified by the scene. Bro really had to witness this level of scum before his eyes. One of the men steps outside to leave, and Makoto hides to the side while apologizing to Shiori in his mind because he believes he must act. Once the guy is alone, Makoto grabs him from behind and thinks this man does not deserve to exist another day. The guy fights back fiercely and beats Makoto down while asking what he thinks he is doing. He mocks Makoto by asking if he has feelings for Katigiri or if he came to save her, then brags about everything they have done to her and how long it has been going on. Makoto's stomach twists as the guy keeps talking, and something inside him cracks. He lunges forward, gouges the man's eyes, and finishes by killing him at the exact moment the clock strikes midnight. Makoto stares at the time, realizing he has secured another new day, and a twisted sense of relief washes over him because the loop will now move forward. As he stands there, he catches sight of Katigiri running out of the barn in a panic, and he wonders with dread if she saw him unaliving the man whose life he just claimed. Makoto watches Katigiri run off and wonders if he should go after her since she might have seen him do it. The thought of having to unalive her too scares him because he does not recognize where these cold ideas are suddenly coming from, so he forces himself to push them down. When morning arrives, the police discover the body of Savanoi, a 17-year-old second-grade high school student. Mizuno explains that the cause of murder looks brutal as they believe he spent time in the abandoned barn shortly before dying. Locals say the place is notorious, and even though the victim has several cuts and bruises showing he fought back, there are still no leads because whoever did this erased everything cleanly. Takumo thinks the crime was carefully planned while Mizuno insists a professional must have been involved. Yet Takumo tells her again that her detective skills are in serious trouble, which annoys her enough to tell him not to repeat it. The two agree the situation is serious because 2 bodies appearing in 2 days is unbelievable for such a small town. At school, students talk about the case and comment that everything happened because of Savanoi's own behavior, saying he was unalived brutally and calling the culprit a psycho. But Makoto focuses more on Katigiri. She attends class like normal, yet she avoids even looking at him, confirming she must have witnessed something. When class ends, the 2 remaining gang members corner her and demand to know if she had anything to do with Savanoi's death, but she denies it and says she has no idea who did it because no one was there when she woke up, so she immediately ran home. Makoto hears this and feels a wave of relief wash over him. One of the boys then explains that the police contacted them since they were believed to be with Savanoi the previous night, and he suggests their statements should match. He decides they will all say that none of them went to the barn and that Savanoi went alone, making their involvement disappear. Morishita suggests telling the truth because they were not involved in the murder, but Kadzivara reminds him that doing that would expose what they planned to do to Katigiri. Kadzivara grabs her by the neck until Morishita stops him, and Kadzivara asks if his mother really worked the night shift, which Morishita confirms, allowing Kadzivara to craft the alibi that they were at Morishita's house. He throws Katigiri aside and tells her to arrange her own alibi, insisting no one should ever know what happened in the barn. After she leaves, Kadzivara asks Morishita why they deserve all this trouble. Meanwhile, Makoto visits Shiori and tells her everything about unaliving someone, counting out loud that her surgery is in 1 month, meaning they are 1 day closer. He explains that 29 more people remain before August and asks Shiori what she thinks about him staying normal, even saying that for a moment he considered unaliving Katigiri, who is a potential threat to exposing him. He admits he is scared and wonders what he will become if whatever is buried inside him eventually bursts out. Yane suddenly knocks and asks Makoto if Shiori was moved out of the intensive care unit, and he confirms it because the doctors said she was stable. Yane then says she was shocked to hear about Savanoi and asks if Makoto knew him, which he denies. She says she only worried because Makoto is so kind, which makes Makoto ask what kind of person she thinks he is, surprising her enough for her to ask why he is acting this way before he changes the subject. Shiori insists on answering and thinks carefully before telling him that he is shy, considerate of everyone else's happiness, kind and strong. Makoto believes she is overpraising him, but she reminds him of their childhood when her cat went missing and he searched for days even after everyone gave up. She says she realized then that he was someone she could rely on. But Makoto pushes it aside and says he only did it because he heard her parents would pay a reward, insisting he is not kind. He repeats this and starts crying while Yane tries to comfort him until a nurse enters and says the police called regarding his father. Makoto rushes over and learns that his father had been drinking since noon, lost control and damaged a nearby store, which means Makoto may have to compensate if a claim is filed. Yane confronts his father, asking if he understands how hard things are for Makoto, but Makoto snaps and begins hitting his father until the police intervene and pull him away. He breaks down completely and yells that he is done and asks why everything always falls on him. Just then, Detective Tsukumo comes in asking what the fuss is all about. Makoto sees him and realizes he is the same detective from Vakita's case. He tries to stay calm, remembering the timeline has changed. He also sees Kadzivara and his mother. The mother says she worried so much when she heard her son was called by the police. Mizuno informs her not to worry as nothing bad happened and they just ask Kadzivara a few questions. Makoto is shocked to see all this. After he is done with the police, he goes to Kadzivara's house. He realizes that Kadzivara has loving parents, a healthy sister, and money on the table. He thinks about his own situation where he has no money, his sister is on the verge of disappearing, and his father is not anything like a parent. Makoto gets angry thinking he has none of these things. All he can do is watch them enjoy what he can never have. Just then, he remembers that he also did wrong things involving Katigiri. This makes him wonder what will happen if Kadziwara lives on as if nothing happened. That life is way better than his. He questions the gods if that is some kind of sick joke. Makoto walks away from Kadziwara's place wondering why that guy gets to live like everything is sunshine while he barely has scraps to hold on to. But he pushes the thought aside as he leaves. Inside, Kadziwara's mother tells his little sister Rio to wrap up her homework, since she still has things to finish, and he steps in offering to help. Rio gets hyped and sprints to grab her books while their mother asks him how the exam went, and he casually says it was alright. A moment later, the home phone rings from a public booth, and Kadziwara picks it up, hearing someone ask what he is doing. Makoto sits on the other end, telling him there is no point in pretending to study when he already knows what will be on the exam, since he makes Katigiri steal the papers. Kadziwara freezes and demands to know how Makoto found out, and Makoto tells him to meet at the abandoned platform in Shiromi Park while making sure nobody sees him. Kadziwara obeys and heads out. When he reaches the platform, Makoto stands there watching him and says this might actually be their first real conversation. Kadziwara's face darkens when he recognizes him, yet Makoto asks if this is the real him, the version his family never sees. Makoto says he pressured Katigiri and pulled crimes with that same nasty attitude, the kind of behavior that stains the family he pretends to care about. He says someone like Kadziwara does not deserve happiness, and he steps forward grabbing him by the neck. Kadziwara panics, wondering how Makoto suddenly became this strong, yet Makoto drags him to the edge, asking how many innocent people he plans to use just so he can coast through life stealing everyone else's happiness. He tightens his grip and deletes him from the world, throwing him off the top where he hits the ground and his head bursts open like a dropped watermelon. Afterward, Makoto heads to work where his boss complains that he knew it was going to rain and wants deliveries finished faster. He sees Makoto walking in and asks why he is even here since he was supposed to take a break to handle exam season. Makoto tells him his father messed up again, so the vacation is gone because he needs money. The boss notices Makoto's red eyes and asks if he even slept, but Makoto just asks if there is work available. The boss says he is short on workers today, so Makoto will be used, and then asks if Makoto heard about Vakaidi getting into trouble. Makoto says he does not know what happened, but Vakaidi deserved to be taken out. The boss stares at him wondering what kind of switch flipped inside this kid. Makoto keeps thinking about it and decides it is true. Vakaidi, Savanoi, and Kadziwara all ruined innocent lives and walked around like nothing mattered while Shiori waited on borrowed time. He tells himself he will never forgive any of them. At school, Makoto stays quiet while everyone else talks about Kadziwara disappearing, and Morishita is losing his mind thinking he might be next. They say Kadziwara was taken out by the same person who deleted Savanoi. After school, Makoto goes to visit Shiori in the hospital. The nurse greets him and says she is glad he came even with the rain pouring outside. Makoto asks how Shiori is doing, and the nurse says she has been stable ever since moving out of the intensive care unit. She says everything should remain safe until her operation on August 10th. Makoto says there are still 28 days left, and the nurse nods, saying that is a long time. She explains that the transplant coordinator and doctors are strict with scheduling because tests have to be done exactly on time and the donor cannot give earlier, then apologizes. Makoto reassures her that he is grateful for how she cares for Shiori. She asks how he is holding up, and Makoto says he is fine and she should not worry about him. This makes her think about her own kid. She says boys always act tough when they are the weakest ones in the room, and Makoto asks what she means by all boys. She says she has a son but barely sees him since she and her husband work too much, so the kid probably feels alone because of it. She says he is just like Makoto, always pretending nothing is serious while actually being a total crybaby. Our boy suddenly feels strange because this baddie nurse is dropping personal stuff while her melons are doing their best to stay professional under that uniform. Makoto gets awkward since she has never talked about anything personal before, and she says she avoids mixing work and personal life because people's lives depend on her focus. She even uses her maiden name at the hospital. But today is special because it is her son's birthday, and she made up an excuse to get someone to cover her night shift. She says sometimes people need a break to breathe, and that includes Makoto. Makoto apologizes and says he has somewhere he needs to go. He has things he needs to take care of, so the nurse asks if he is already leaving. He tells Shiori goodbye and walks out. Then he heads to pay his last visit to Morishita. He thinks he can never afford a break while Morishita begs for someone to save him. Morishita lies that he only met up with Savanoi and Kadziwara that day and never meant for any of that to happen. He asks Makoto if he will be forgiven if he apologizes to Katigiri, acting innocent harder than a kid who still has cookie crumbs on his face. Makoto asks if he was not laughing back then and having fun. He does not spare Morishita and uses a rod to take him out. The rock fixed to the end of the rod crashes into Morishita's face and deletes him for good. Makoto says it is not so Morishita can be happy, it is for Shiori. Then he leaves after cleaning up the mess. Meanwhile, the nurse keeps calling her son Daiki. She wonders why he is late every time, but she feels glad she at least brought the cake ahead of time. She thinks Daiki is probably sitting and waiting for her. She keeps calling her kid while Morishita's phone rings non-stop, and it turns out her son is actually Morishita. Morishita is lying on the ground lifelessly while his phone keeps ringing. His mother calls again and again, then gives up and assumes he must be out somewhere. She thinks Daiki is a dummy for dragging his phone around like this. After some time, the police arrive. Mizuno confirms the victim is Morishita Daiki, a 17-year-old. She tells Tsukumo that Daiki's mother is already heading to the station. This is another high schooler, and she points out he was friends with Savanoi, who was recently taken out. His classmate Kadzivara also disappeared not long ago. Mizuno says she is sure these cases are connected, then apologizes because she knows she keeps jumping to conclusions. Tsukumo asks about the witness who found the body. Mizuno says the witness is waiting in the car. They walk over and see it is Yane. Tsukumo asks her why she was near a construction warehouse so late. Yane says she needed something from a nearby store, and this shortcut leads to the main street. She heard a phone ringing when she passed by the depot, and then she noticed the body on the ground, which makes her start crying. Mizuno asks if that is when she found him and tells Tsukumo to give her a moment, but Tsukumo says he needs her statements while they are still fresh. Mizuno thinks he has no sympathy at all and calls him a demon in her head. The next day, Makoto ties his shoes when his father walks out. His father asks what is going on with the food. Makoto says there is bento in the fridge. His father gets angry and complains they have to eat that again, then tells Makoto to bring proper food instead of stored junk. He asks if Makoto skipped work the previous night. Makoto says he did because of exams. His father gets angrier and asks what the point of exams even is, since Makoto is not getting any smarter. He tells Makoto to go to work and orders him not to visit Shiori. If he has time for Shiori, he should spend it earning more cash. Makoto is done with this and tells him to shut up or he will delete him. His father freezes and asks who Makoto thinks he is talking to. Makoto stands up and grabs him by the collar, then tells him he is late for school and leaves. His father is left shaken because Makoto's eyes made it clear he almost followed through. At school, the principal announces that after Savanoi got taken out, another student has been found dead. Morishita was also taken out, and no one can believe it. The principal says 2 students have been deleted in a few days, and Kadzivara is still missing. The room fills with noise as students talk. He tells them to quiet down and warns that journalists will probably swarm them soon, so they need to think before talking. Kumo Kadzivara looks sick and seems ready to throw up from the stress. Her friend tells her to go to the nurse's office. Makoto watches her and wonders why she looks terrified when the ones who hurt her are already gone. He thinks her reaction makes no sense. He then gets a message from Yane saying she needs to talk to him urgently and asks him to call when he has time. Makoto is at the hospital when he asks about the nurse. The other nurse hesitates and tells him the previous nurse, Suzuhara, lost her son last night because he was taken out. Makoto is stunned because he had no idea Daiki was her kid. He hears nurses trying to stop Suzuhara as she walks in. They ask why she is at work today. Suzuhara says they are the first to question her. She says Daiki had to attend the autopsy and is not home. She was bored waiting for him, so she came to work. The nurses try to restrain her, but Suzuhara tells them to leave her alone. She spots Makoto and for a moment sees Daiki in his face. She rushes toward him and breaks down crying. Makoto tries to speak, but Suzuhara cuts him off and swears she will delete the one who took Daiki from her. She says she will take him out with her own hands. Makoto feels terror run through him while she says she will get revenge. The nurses pull her away. Makoto collapses to the floor and realizes he never knew Daiki was her son. He grabs his head and understands what deleting someone really does. He wonders what he is supposed to do now. He remembers telling Kadzivara that he stole happiness from others, yet Makoto has done the same thing. He realizes he is no better than the people he took out. Every deletion spreads misery and leaves damage behind. He questions how he failed to see this while telling himself it was all for Shiori. Daiki Yoni walks in and asks what is wrong with him while she looks at his face and tries to confirm if he is crying as he barely reacts. She says he did not answer her calls and keeps pressing him to know if something happened, although he wipes his face and apologizes as he tells her it is nothing serious. He claims he was only thinking about Shiori, and he admits to himself that he cannot tell Yane anything about the loop. After that, Yane explains that she found Daiki's body yesterday, and that this is exactly why she wanted to talk to him today. She asks if he saw anything yesterday, and Makoto freezes for a moment because he cannot figure out what she expects him to say here. She tells him he was there, and that maybe he did not notice her while he was riding his bike by the road that leads from the warehouse where the unaliving took place. Makoto starts panicking inside since this means Yane saw him at the wrong time, and she keeps going as she asks if he noticed anyone suspicious who could have done it. While he struggles to respond, he asks her if she told the police anything about him, and Yane casually says she did since they asked her who passed by the scene while she was calling for help. She says she told them he was there almost right before midnight, and she wonders why he is suddenly acting weird, although he tries not to break down in front of her. Makoto realizes he will get caught this time, because rewinding will not save him now that the loop has already reset after Morishita was deleted, and the cops already have his name in the report. Yane truly believes he would never unalive someone, yet she also admits the police might think otherwise since he rode away from the crime scene right after Daiki was taken out. This alone is enough for them to treat him as a suspect, and Makoto feels the walls closing in on him. Just then, Mizuno and Tsukumo walk in and ask Makoto if they can have a word with him. and he realizes instantly that the interrogation is about to begin. And just like that, the pressure keeps piling on our boy Makoto. After everything that happened with Daiki, the detectives drag him in and grill him hard about the murder. Mizuno straight up tells him that Yane saw him near the scene that night. Makoto keeps his cool and responds that she must be mistaken. He explains how he went all the way to Tokyo yesterday to revisit old memories with Shiori and ended up missing the last train home. He even adds that he stopped by a convenience store around midnight and calmly suggests they check the security camera footage there if they want. Mizuno and Tsukumo let him leave for now, though Tsukumo quietly wonders in the back of his mind if he made a mistake somewhere with this kid. Later on, Mizuno comes back with the actual image data from the convenience store's security camera. Tsukumo watches the footage carefully while thinking about how hard it was raining that night. Meanwhile, Makoto is internally panicking because he knows he is completely under suspicion now. Yanez gave her statement before the 14th, so even if the day resets, he cannot erase that testimony. He quietly wonders what Shiori would want him to do in the middle of all this chaos. Makoto goes straight to find Yane, who immediately asks if the police suspect him. She looks guilty and says she never meant for things to turn out like this and never thought they would point the finger at him of all people. Makoto does not answer and just walks away. Yane calls after him asking where he is going since his house is on the other side, but he only tells her to leave him alone. However, Yane refuses and says she is coming with him because she cannot leave him alone when he looks like this. They head toward the train station while Yane keeps asking him to at least tell her where they are going. Just then, a group of guys walks up to them. They turn out to be Vakita's friends. These clowns recognize Makoto as the guy who used to hand over money to Vakita and immediately start demanding cash. They check his wallet like it's their personal ATM and treat his pockets like an open buffet. Yane tries to stop them, but one of the guys suggests taking her with them too, which finally makes Makoto snap. He beats the guy up without hesitating, grabs Yane's hand, and they run away from the place before jumping onto the first train they see. Daiki, Yane watches Makoto closely on the train. Even with all those scary people around them earlier, his expression did not change at all. This Makoto feels completely different from the gentle boy she used to know. She wonders what really happened to him and thinks that he can talk to her if he wants to. Morishita then asks her a heavy question. He wants to know what she would do if she wanted to save someone she cares about, and the only way to do that was to take someone else out. Shocked, Yane asks what he just said, but he keeps pressing her for an answer. She says she does not know, and that if she ever took someone out, she would have to carry the weight of that crime for the rest of her life. Even so, if she were the only person in the world who could save the person she loves, she would endure any amount of suffering. Hearing this makes Makoto feel a little lighter inside for the first time in a while. After they get off the train, they arrive at a park. Yane asks Makoto where they are, and he tells her he has only been here once before. It is the place where his family once took a trip together. Back then, he had no idea what the future would hold for him, and Shiori looks so happy at that time. Yane listens quietly and then grabs his hand, telling him that they should go have some fun. Makoto hesitates, but Yane asks what is wrong with that. Finals are over and tomorrow is Saturday, so she insists they should enjoy the park. She says she will even buy him a drink, and with that, the two of them start having fun like normal kids for once. They spend time trying out different rides and wandering around until a lot of time passes. After playing around for a long while, Yane says she is exhausted and laughs that they stayed out so long. She says they have to go home now because they need to catch the last train. She turns to the side and suddenly realizes Makoto is not standing next to her anymore. She goes looking for him and finally finds him sitting outside by himself. She asks what he is doing there and says she has been searching all over for him. Makoto apologizes for disappearing on her. Yane then worries about what they should do since the last train at this hour is already gone. Makoto tells her not to worry and says it is fine because she is still going to make it home soon. Confused, Yane has no idea what he is talking about. Makoto explains that he has not taken anyone out today. There is 1 minute left, and when the clock hits midnight, time will rewind to midnight 24 hours ago. He says this entire day will be erased. She will start her day again from the crime scene and from the moment she is being questioned by the police. Yane is confused and asks what he is talking about and how a whole day could just repeat. Makoto tells her that he stands outside the loop, so when the day rewinds, he will still be here. From everyone else's point of view, he will leave Miyako City at exactly midnight as if he teleported to Tokyo in an instant. Yane says she still has no idea what he means and keeps asking what this loop is that he is talking about. And just then, midnight comes. Yane disappears right in front of him, leaving Makoto alone. He sits there by himself and says this is what he meant. He then goes to the convenience store while silently thanking Yane for the wonderful day. The truth is that when he first came here, he was wondering if he should just delete himself for real, but she helped him make up his mind. He makes sure to show himself clearly on the convenience store camera, and then gets on the train back to Miyako City. The time resets and the day repeats. He watches it all again, including Daiki's mother crying, the principal's speech, and everything at school. He cannot erase the pain. He cannot erase the crimes he has already committed. He has become evil, and he has to keep destroying countless people's lives. However, he cannot stop if he wants to save Shiori, so he decides he is going to endure all of it. The police visit him again, and Mizuno asks Makoto if he stayed in Tokyo the whole time from last night until the first train in the morning. Makoto says he did, but Mizuno brings up that Yane said she saw him. Makoto replies that she must have been mistaken. He explains that he went to Tokyo yesterday because he wanted to revisit his memories of Shiori, and he ended up missing the last train. He adds that he thinks he stopped by a convenience store around midnight and says they can check the security camera there. Bro delivers that line so calmly you would think he is speedrunning alibis for a living. After that talk, he steps out of the building and finds Yane waiting for him. He explains everything to her and she assumes she made a mistake, while Tsukumo watches them quietly from his window. Later, Mizuno and Tsukumo check the convenience store footage and see Makoto walk in exactly 1 minute after midnight. Since it takes almost 2 hours to get from Miyako City to Tokyo, Yane's claim becomes impossible. Makoto's alibi is completely confirmed, although Tsukumo feels something about it is off. The next day, Makoto digs up another bad guy because he thinks the man is evil, and he says he will put up with anything for a new day to come. Meanwhile, Katigiri wonders if she should call Makoto. Our boy is living through drama arcs so fast that even shonen protagonists would ask him to slow down. Makoto keeps telling himself that he is evil now and he has to fully accept that if he wants to keep moving toward a new day. He thinks no one in the world will ever understand his mission, and that he has no one he can actually talk to about this nightmare. It feels incredibly lonely, but he says it does not matter, because he will keep pushing forward no matter what. As he walks back to his house, he sees Katigiri waiting nearby. She apologizes because it is already late and says she kept thinking about whether she should call him or not. She asks if she can talk with him for a bit. They go into Makoto's room while Makoto asks her what this is all about. She takes a deep breath and drops the bomb. She says she saw it. She explains that she saw him unaliving Savanoi that night at the barn. She was shocked and did not expect him to do something like that at all. She asks why he did all of it and wonders if it was for her sake. Makoto listens in complete shock after realizing Katigiri already knew the truth. She says they barely ever talked in class, so it makes no sense that he would go that far just for her. She asks him again why he did it. Makoto tells her he cannot tell her and that she would not understand even if he tried to explain. He asks if she plans to report him to the police, but she says she will not and that she will not even ask about the reason that pushed him to do something like that. However, she says she needs help from him again. Makoto asks what she means by again, and Katigiri begs him for help. She says if they do nothing, her mom will vanish. Makoto is stunned to hear that her mom is deep into meth now. Katigiri explains that the man her mother brought in recently pushed her into running meds. After that, she would scream morning and night like a wild animal, and the drugs kept her awake for days. Sometimes she would end up having convulsions with her mouth foaming while he just left her there like it was nothing. If things keep going this way, Katigiri believes that man will unalive her mom sooner or later. She says they have to do something before that happens. Makoto refuses to do anything at first. He asks if she wants him to unalive the man, and she says yes because he is the only one she can rely on now. She says that when she saw his determination while unaliving Savanoi, she thought maybe he could do it and that he could unalive this man too. Makoto tells her to stop and says she is only talking about herself. Katigiri says she will stay quiet about Savanoi and reminds him that he is also the one who unalived Kadzivara and Daiki. She says she is even willing to testify with a false alibi for all of them. She begs him to unalive that man too. Makoto rejects her again and says it is too risky because deleting this guy would tie him to her even more. He says he cannot let the police grab him again and repeats that he already saved her by unaliving Savanoi and his friends. He says she will not tell anyone about what they did to her so they do not owe each other anything anymore. He tells her to leave and says he does not want to unalive anyone connected to her. He even apologizes. Katigiri says it is not worth it even if he saved her. Makoto asks what she means, and she says that even if Savanoi and his friends are gone, she still lives in hell. One thing about Makoto is that his timing is so bad it should be illegal. The next day, the man Katigiri talked about injects something under his tongue before hearing her voice. He comes out of the room and asks if it is her because he thought she was going to a festival. He wonders if he imagined it. He goes into the washroom and finds Katigiri's dirty laundry, takes a sniff, and realizes she came back. After checking her mother to make sure she is asleep, he goes to Katigiri's room with bad intentions. When he enters, Makoto is already hiding there waiting. Makoto marches toward him and the man's phone drops. Makoto looks at the phone and finds a video of Katigiri that should never exist. Makoto tells him he knows everything he did to her. The man remembers the situation clearly. He had recorded Katigiri and told her to smile and spread herself. He told her to take off what she was wearing and not hide her face. Katigiri begged Tanahashi to let her go, but he beat her and told her to call him daddy. He told her to cry harder because it was more fun. He asked what would happen if he did all that in front of her mother, and reminded her that if she screamed, her mom would wake up. Terrified, Katigiri agreed to anything and begged him not to tell her mother. She said that if her mother disliked her, she would not be able to live. Morikoto says Tanahashi also tortured her and warned her that if she told the police about the meds, he would tell her mother everything he did to her. Morikoto says that there is no other way and that dealing with Savanoi and his gang did not change anything for her. He calls Tanahashi a cruel beast and silently says this guy's ego has more NPC energy than a tutorial dummy. Makoto takes out his tools to unalive him and tells Tanahashi he should not live anymore. Makoto says he will unalive Tanahashi and moves toward him more fearlessly this time, his hands steady despite everything. Meanwhile, in a park somewhere else, someone bumps into another guy and a wallet drops. A passerby picks it up and sees that it belongs to a high schooler, so he decides to take Makoto's ID to the police. He has no idea that the person wearing Makoto's clothes is actually Katigiri disguised as him. Earlier they had discussed the plan carefully. Makoto wanted her to change into his clothes because tomorrow there will be a fireworks festival near the lake where traffic always freezes completely. Once the event starts, no one can leave until the end. That is why when she drops his wallet there, she can provide a solid alibi for him. Makoto had asked if she could do it. To reach tomorrow's day, he just unalived a classmate. He thinks there is no choice left, since unaliving or not unaliving both lead to regret. If Katigiri chooses the guilt of unaliving someone, then remorse will follow both of them. Bra's moral compass is spinning so hard it might need tech support. While Makoto struggles to unalive Tanahashi, Katigiri apologizes to her mom and her thoughts. She knows that once Tanahashi disappears, the police will notice the meds and her mom could be detained. But this life that started when he arrived will finally end. She believes she and her mom can start over again. Tanahashi suddenly regains control and throws Makoto toward the study desk. He steps forward to finish things when Makoto grabs a pair of scissors and drives them into him. Tanahashi screams in pain, but Makoto tells him to shut up and keep slicing until the job is done. Later, Katigiri leaves the festival and meets up with Makoto. She says the wallet plan worked perfectly. Makoto tells her it is over now. Katigiri starts crying and thanks him, saying he finally pulled her and her mom out of this mess. However, her mom wakes from a long sleep, rolls off the bed, and hits the floor. She looks around, unsure of the time she walks out and slips on the blood. When she sees Tanahashi lying lifelessly on the ground, she panics completely and runs away from the house. Katigiri returns home thinking it is quiet. She assumes her mom slept through everything because of the meds. She plans to find Tanahashi's body and report it. She keeps repeating to herself that everything is okay now, but when she enters the room, she finds his face covered with a shirt and the whole place in chaos. She looks around and realizes her mom is gone. Shocked, she finally accepts that her mom ran away and abandoned her once again. Luis, meanwhile, the next day begins. Tsukumo watches the convenience store footage of Makoto. Mizuno arrives with recordings from other cameras near the store. She thinks they might reveal something important. She asks Tsukumo what looks unusual. He says Makoto is not soaked at all. That night in Tokyo, it was pouring rain, and Makoto walked with no umbrella. His clothes should be drenched. Mizuno agrees and wonders how that happened. Tsukumo says it is clear Makoto was in Tokyo that night. He tells Mizuno to keep watching while he casually pours daobonjang into his pudding, like it is the most normal thing in the world. Makoto worries about his hand because it is infected. Tanahashi left a mark on him, so he needs to cover it properly. Katigiri shows up again and tells him everything that happened. Makoto is stunned that her mom ran away. He asks why she would do that. Katigiri says she does not know. Maybe the meds made her panic. Maybe she thought she unalived him herself. Makoto asks if she reported the incident, but she refuses. She explains that she covered the body with a shirt and washed the tools used in the murder. The police would assume she did it. She begs Makoto to help her one more time and asks him to go with her to look for her mom. Makoto refuses and tells her not to think about it. He says he cannot help her anymore and tells her to go home and report it to the police. Otherwise, he will also be accused. The Katigiri asks him what she should do. Makoto says he already told her and she needs to go to the police. She asks what she should do from the other perspective. He looks at her and sees she is not thinking clearly. She says she will do anything he says. He stands up confused, asking what she means. Katigiri says it is okay and she is used to this kind of thing. Makoto realizes what she means and recalls everything she went through. Before he can react, Katigiri leans in and makes love to him in the exact way the author describes it. He pulls her off and tells her to stop. She says that if it is him, she does not mind, and she comes closer again. Bra's life is spiraling so fast even Google Maps would get lost trying to recalculate this route. Katigiri holds Makoto's hand and lifts it, even while he keeps telling her to stop. She insists that it is okay if it is him, and says she does not mind at all. Makoto pulls his hand away and tells her he does not need this, asking her not to put him in the same category as the man who violated her. Katigiri quickly apologizes and says she never meant it that way. She tells him he is nothing like them and explains that she only wanted to convince him. Calling herself an idiot, she stands up and asks him to forget what happened, then thanks him for everything. Makoto sits on the bed for a moment before telling her they should go look for her mother. He makes it clear from the start that even if they find her, going with him means Katigiri is going to see hell. With that said, they head to her house. The moment he walks in and sees the state of the place, Makoto realizes her mother is completely panicked. He wonders how they are supposed to find anything useful in this mess. Katigiri then notices her mother's phone and checks it. She finds a message that looks like it came from the meds dealer. He told her mother to meet him at 9 at night. Katigiri explains that she once saw a similar message and followed her mother. Under the bridge, she saw Yamazaki. Her mother met a shady man there, and Yamazaki bought meds from him. Makoto asks if the letter Yui in the message could mean Yamazaki. Katigiri tells him the area is full of factories, and that on weekends there is almost no one around. She says it is the perfect place for a deal like that. They decide to go there before Yamazaki arrives. Katigiri mentions they still have the whole day before 9, but Makoto says he does not want to draw Yamazaki's attention. He tells her they will go before dawn, get there first, and hide somewhere nearby. Katigiri agrees, even though she keeps wondering if her mother will really show up. Meanwhile, Yane rings Makoto's doorbell. His father answers, and she asks if Makoto is home. He wants to know why she is looking for him and even asks if she came to have a fun time with him, which she denies right away. He asks who she is and tells her to hand over whatever she brought because they already have prepared bento at home. Yane ignores that and simply asks where Makoto went. His father tells her that he saw Makoto in the middle of the night with a girl, whispering to each other. He says he did not see her face but could tell it was a woman from her voice. He complains that Makoto has a part-time job, does the housework, and is still out with some woman on top of that. Yane thanks him and walks away while his father goes back inside, still talking about food. As she leaves, Yane wonders if that is how things are now. She thinks Makoto already has someone. On the other side, Makoto and Katigiri wait for Yamazaki to appear. It is hot, so she asks if they are really going to sit there until evening. She offers him water and asks if he wants a drink, but he tells her she can have it. She keeps thinking about what she tried to do to him earlier. He thanked her for coming with him, and she told him that if it was him, she would be fine with it. Around 9:30 in the evening, Yamazaki finally arrives. He complains about how long he has to wait for this old woman. Katigiri steps out and asks if he is waiting for her mother, Yuriko. Yamazaki recognizes her and asks if she is Yuriko's daughter. He cannot believe Yuriko sent her to pick up the meds. He tells her to pay and take the goods. Katigiri says she has no money. She explains that Yuriko disappeared yesterday and asks if he knows where her mother might be. Yamazaki snaps and says he wants his money. Katigiri asks again if he knows where Yuriko might have gone or if he can at least guess, but he gets angrier and asks if she cannot hear him. At that moment, Makoto grabs Yamazaki from behind and asks if he is the one with hearing problems. He demands to know if Yamazaki did not hear Katigiri's question. Yamazaki asks who he is, but Makoto calmly says he is the one asking questions. He repeats himself and asks where they can find Yuriko. Yamazaki refuses to answer and keeps demanding to know who Makoto is. Makoto says that since Yamazaki did not hear him properly, he will help clean his ears, and pushes a screwdriver into Yamazaki's ear. Yamazaki screams and begs him to stop, but Makoto asks again where Yuriko is. This time, Yamazaki finally answers and says Tanahashi bought meds from her and that is all he knows. He says he has no idea where she is now. Makoto does not stop there. He drives the screwdriver into Yamazaki's shoulder and says that maybe being close to getting deleted will help him remember. Yamazaki collapses from the pain while Makoto keeps pressing him. After a long struggle, Yamazaki admits that when Yuriko needed a dose, they sometimes met at a place called Love Hotel Refrain by the highway. He says she used it for secret meetings. Makoto lets him go after hearing that, but Yamazaki looks at Katigiri and asks what she plans to do once she finds her mother. He says that when he was having fun with Yuriko once, he told her that Katigiri would be back soon and asked if it bothered her that they were together. Yuriko told him she did not care. She said Katigiri was a burden to her and that she would not care even if her own daughter disappeared. He claims Yuriko thinks Katigiri is nothing more than waste. Makoto cannot listen anymore and deletes Yamazaki for good. He tells Katigiri they should go find Yuriko now. She can sort everything out once she sees her mom. He looks at her and asks what is wrong. He wonders if she got sick from watching what he just did. He reminds her that he warned her she would see hell with him, and this is how he handles things. If she wants out, he will keep going alone. Katigiri grabs Makoto from behind and tells him not to do this by himself. Makoto repeats they should focus on finding Yuriko. Katigiri says he has helped her non-stop and she has no way to repay him. Now she will split the weight of this crime with him. She says leaving the body here is stupid and suggests hiding it somewhere else. Makoto agrees and the two of them start handling Yamazaki's body. They cut the body into pieces and hide each piece in different places. During all of this, Katigiri thinks that she and Makoto are the same now. She feels nothing can separate them. She believes neither of them is alone anymore. She thinks about Yuriko and decides she will not care even if Yuriko disappears too. She asks Makoto to swear he will never betray her because she trusts him. As they hide the last pieces, a new day begins. But Yuriko apologizes to Kuroto for showing up without warning and says she needed somewhere to sleep, so she came here. Kuroto explains that her call surprised him since she had no money at all, and he had to pick her up from the hotel. He asks Yuriko what happened, but she says it is too complicated and ends the conversation. Kuroto tells her to rest while he heads to the store. Yuriko thanks him and says when he returns they will have fun. As he prepares to leave, Makoto and Katigiri slip into the room. A few hours earlier, after they dealt with the corpse, they went to the hotel Yamazaki mentioned. They saw Yuriko leave and followed her. After that, Yuriko got into a car and Makoto asked Katigiri who the man was. Katigiri explained that it was Kuroto, the owner of the store where Yuriko worked long ago, and that he lived with them for a while. When Makoto asked if she knew where he lived, Katigiri agreed, and they headed to Kuroto's house. Now on the way, Katigiri kept thinking about her mother. She told herself she did not care if Yuriko vanished now, but she also thought it was a lie because she still trusted her. Makoto asked if she was okay, and Katigiri said she was. He told her to persuade her mom and call the police after that. He said she could deal with it on her own now and he would leave. But Katigiri reminded him of his promise not to betray her and begged him not to go. Makoto asked what this had to do with betraying her, but Katigiri insisted they should stay together. Makoto thought it was dangerous to have his name linked to this incident and said he had to find another victim. Katigiri begged him not to leave her alone, so Makoto stayed. After that, Katigiri walked into the room where Yuriko was staying. Yuriko was shocked to see her and asked why she was here. Katigiri said she came to save her and asked her to come home. Yuriko refused because of what happened at the house, but Katigiri told her it was not her fault and said she would explain everything to the police. Yuriko got upset and told her not to involve the police. She asked Katigiri if she understood what would happen if everything came out. She asked if Katigiri wanted her jailed for the meds and questioned what she was thinking. Police and then Yuriko asked if Katigiri had any pills. Confused, Katigiri asked what she meant. Yuriko asked if she went home and insisted Katigiri had pills. Katigiri said she did not. Yuriko grew angry and demanded the pills. Makoto was standing outside listening to all of this. Katigiri begged her mother to calm down while Makoto thought he needed to hurry and unalive someone because he was running out of time. He checked his phone and saw a voice message from the hospital. The nurse apologized for calling at night and said Shiori's condition had gotten worse. She asked him to come in the morning and contact them as soon as he heard the message. Makoto froze for a moment. His sister was not doing well. Katigiri managed to calm Yuriko slightly and told her everything was fine. She said she would protect them and that she always loved her. But Yuriko suddenly told her to leave. She said Katigiri wanted to steal her man. She accused her of scheming with Tanahashi and claimed she knew everything. She repeated the words Katigiri was forced to say that night and refused to believe her daughter. Yuriko slapped her and called her worthless. She hit Katigiri again, saying she tried to steal her mother's partner, and asked if that made her happy. Yuriko said that when she found out, she decided to unalive him. She asked if that was how it was, and said Katigiri would be better off unalive. She blamed her for ruining her youth. She said she should never have given birth to her. She said she wanted to live freely but got stuck raising Katigiri. She asked why she should take care of her. She accused Katigiri of always looking down on her and acting like a smart student. She told Katigiri to vanish if she loved her that much. Makoto finally ran inside, but this time he was too late. Katigiri had injured her own mom. Katigiri told Yuriko she had tried so hard. She said she wanted her mother to look at her again, but she was a traitor. She raised her hand to strike Yuriko again when Makoto stopped her. Katigiri said she would unalive her mother and that she did not need a mother like this. Makoto thought that if Yuriko died, Katigiri would become the culprit. He wondered what he should do. He thought about leaving everything as it was and letting the time loop close so he could fix it today. But Shira was in critical condition, and if time rolled back while she needed emergency help, she could die. He wondered what he should do next. Yuriko looked at Makoto and told Katigiri that, just as she suspected, Katigiri came here with a guy. She said Katigiri was just like her, and there was nothing to deny. She said Katigiri was a copy of her mother and could not run away from fate. In the end, children follow in their parents' footsteps, and Katigiri was no exception. Yuriko said she loved men and so did Katigiri. No matter how good of a student she became, in essence they were the same type of person, willingly having fun with whoever showed up. Makoto cannot take this anymore and beats Yuriko, asking her to shut up. He questions the idea about children following in the footsteps of their parents. He says she is saying all stupid stuff. They are not her copy. Katigiri and Yuriko have nothing in common. Whilst shocked, Katigiri looks at Makoto with surprise, while Makoto looks at the time and says he is the one who unalived Yuriko and asks the gods to lead them to the next day. He apologizes to Katigiri and says he had to, but Katigiri asks Makoto not to be sorry. Deep down, she has lost hope a long time ago. Her fading image is the only thing she has. She was afraid that after losing her mother, she would be left all alone. But she has him now. Makoto looks at her with surprise. Katigiri thanks Makoto for saying that she isn't trash. She says she is very happy. She takes off the shirt and shows Makoto how she has been tortured by so many men. She says she was very sad and bitter. She says she is not a bad girl. She wanted to be hugged by a loved one. She tells Makoto that she loves him and asks him not to betray her. She embraces Makoto and makes love to him while her mother lies lifelessly nearby. The new day eventually comes and the body of Yuriko is found. The news has reached the newspaper. People from different news channels are coming to cover the news. They ask students about the students who have been unalived. Reporters are going all around to find something for the news. The students are even scared to leave the house as the summer vacations are near. They wonder where Makoto and Katigiri are. Yane goes to see Makoto, but she realizes he skipped school again. Yane wonders what happened to Makoto and thinks about what his father told her about the girl he saw him with at midnight. She feels uneasy because she now realizes she no longer recognizes Makoto. She thinks he has changed too fast and matured in a way she cannot understand. Meanwhile, the detectives investigate Yuriko's body. They confirm she was 35 and had a stab wound in the abdomen. The actual cause of being unalived was another wound to the face from a sharp object. Kuroda found the body since Yuriko stayed at his place last night. One detective says they already have one unaliving this week and not enough staff to handle everything. The scene shows extreme cruelty, yet the perpetrator left no trace behind. It looks like the entire process was planned down to the smallest detail. They also learn that the victim's daughter attends Miyako High School. As if things were not complicated enough, Mizuno reports that the man who lived with the victim has also been unalived. She lays out a chart showing each unaliving and the dates. After reviewing the list, Mizuno concludes the incidents have been happening almost every day since June 10th. The bodies were all found near each other, and the time of being unalived is almost the same each day. The crimes share several similarities, although the methods are completely different every time. She wonders what connects all of these cases. One detective suggests Vakita and Tanahashi might be linked because of the meds. Mizuno agrees it is possible, and asks Tsukumo what he thinks, but he rejects the idea. Mizuno then asks if Tsukumo still thinks Makoto is behind everything. Tsukumo explains that among the unalived victims are 3 high schoolers from Miyako and Vakita from newspaper delivery, and Makoto is the only one who talked to all 4 of them. But the others disagree and say they are dealing with a serial killer. Mizuno argues that Makoto has a solid alibi for Morishita's unaliving. Also, Makoto's wallet was found in the area during the fireworks festival, meaning he couldn't have unalived Tanahashi. And most importantly, he has no motive. He studied with one victim, worked with another, but he had no conflict with any of them. Tsukumo asks if Mizuno already told Makoto about the wallet, and she says he did not come to school today. Tsukumo says Katigiri is probably missing too. Mizuno asks if he is making baseless assumptions again. She tells him to wait since he always warns her not to jump to conclusions. But Tsukumo says he decides what counts as presumptuous. He says he stood in the convenience store intentionally so the camera would catch him. Mizuno is confused and wonders what Tsukumo means. Tsukumo tells her to search for Makoto and Katigiri and then leaves the room. A few hours earlier before dawn, Katigiri asks Makoto why he is not going home. Makoto says he is going to Tokyo. Katigiri panics and reminds him that if he leaves the city, the police will get suspicious. She asks him to calm down, saying he doesn't need to run. But Makoto says this is not running, this is war. He tells her to go home and tell the police she is looking for her mother. He warns her that staying with him is dangerous, but Katigiri refuses to leave because they already did everything together. Makoto tells her he will unalive someone again today. Shocked, Katigiri asks why. She begs him to explain himself. She says she will accept whatever the reason is. Makoto says he does everything for tomorrow to come, and finally explains the time loop. He tells her she might think it sounds impossible, but it is the truth. He says he had to relive the same day over and over. The only way to break the loop and reach the next day is to unalive someone. If the curse affected only him, he would have unalived himself already. But Shirori is trapped in the loop too. He must help Shirori survive until August 10th for her surgery. 23 people remain. If he misses even one day, Shirori is one day closer to vanishing. He has no choice, he cannot stop now. Makoto says it is okay if she does not believe him. He tells her to drop the conversation and hurry home. He is about to leave when Katigiri tells him not to treat her like a fool. She does believe him. She says he would never lie to her, and even this makes sense to her. Makoto is surprised. Katigiri suggests that they stay together and says that if the day ever comes when he cannot find a victim, he can unalive her. Makoto is shocked and asks what she is talking about, but Katigiri is serious. She says she will not regret it, and Makoto realizes she means every word. Makoto and Katigiri head to Tokyo together. At around 8:45 in the morning, Katigiri looks around and tells Makoto this is her first time being in Tokyo at this time of year. Even at night, the place is crowded. Makoto watches the busy streets and says he is sure that in a crowd this big, there has to be someone who is not a pity to unalive. There are probably plenty of people like that. Until now, he has only unalived people in Miyako, but doing the same thing non-stop will not work forever. Everything has its limits, and today he has to expand the area of his activity. He decides to go look for a suitable victim. He tells Katigiri that he is the only one who should unalive people. Katigiri begs him to let her help, but he refuses immediately. He tells her not to try convincing him, because the rest of the unalivings have nothing to do with her, and he will not drag her into this curse any more than she already is. Before leaving, he tells her she can use the prepaid phone he gave her if she needs to reach him. But Katigiri cannot stop herself anymore. Right in the middle of the crowd, she grabs Makoto and makes love to him in front of everyone. She clings to him like she is terrified he will disappear the moment she lets go. After that, she sits on a nearby bench and waits for Makoto to return. Time passes. It is already late and she wonders if Makoto is okay. She knows he is carrying an impossible burden and feels useless because all she can do is sit here and wait. She wants to help him somehow. Anything. While she is thinking, a man walks up from behind and asks if she is a high schooler. Katigiri turns and suddenly an idea hits her that's something she can do for Makoto. The man tells her that being out here alone is not good and asks if she ran away from school. He calls her a cutie and asks if she wants to get dinner with him. In that moment, she realizes exactly what he wants, and exactly how she can use this situation to help Makoto. Makoto realizes that even though it's easier to find trashy people to kill in Tokyo, it's harder for Katigiri to lure a victim without attracting too much attention. He looks at the clock and sees only 45 minutes left until midnight. If he doesn't kill anyone tonight, Shiori's condition will worsen again and the loop will restart. With growing horror, he realizes he needs to get someone right now. Speaking of Katigiri, she is in a public bathroom luring in the trashy pervert named Enko. He wonders if it's her first time doing it in a place like this. Katigiri plays along with a sweet voice and asks if he has any family while he feels her up. While getting bricked up and ready to lay the pipe, Enk says he has a daughter about her age. Katigiri takes off her underwear, asks sweetly if he's ready, and the moment he unbuckles his pants, she shoves the underwear into his mouth as a gag. She throws him against the bathroom wall and stabs him in the shoulder. Then she uses his own belt to tie him up and calls Makoto, telling him the prey is ready. Makoto arrives and looks at Enk tied up, gagged, and bleeding. He realizes there's a screw loose in Katigiri's head. Katigiri enthusiastically tells him to get on with the killing. She reassures him that this is pure trash they're looking at. The guy wanted to do it with an underage girl even though he has a daughter his own age. She calls him trash and asks if Makoto is satisfied. Makoto reminds her of the promise she made not to intervene, but she just smiles and says they found prey and that's what matters. They watch Enk squirming and resisting. Katigiri tells him to hurry or else Enk will bleed out. If he doesn't deliver the finishing blow, the loop will continue and Shiori will suffer. She grabs his arm and urges him to do it. Closing his eyes, Makoto realizes there's nothing else he can do. No hesitation, no doubt anymore. Enk screams in pain as the blade meets his throat. Makoto finishes what he started. Later, they realize they have to destroy the evidence. They retrieve their belongings from a locker and he tells her he wants to go home for a while. She wonders if it's about school, but he says he received a letter that summer vacation will start sooner than usual because of all the killings. Shiori also needs some tests and he has to be there to sign them off. So whatever she wants to do, he's going home to visit Shiori. After a bit of hesitation, Katigiri wonders if he's really leaving because of his sister. Without missing a beat, our boy agrees that's the only reason, and she should also go home. Katigiri says she won't return home. After everything that has happened, she will likely be arrested and that would lead the police straight to him. She decides to stay in Tokyo and wait for him. With a strange tone, she tells him to be sure to come back. He nervously agrees and she whispers not to betray her. At 10:51 a.m., Makoto arrives at the hospital. He wonders about Shiori and apologizes for not being able to visit for so long. Tsukumo and the other detectives show up trying to grill him with questions, but he ignores them like yesterday's trash. Tsukumo runs after him saying they have a lot of questions and maybe he should come to the police center. Without missing a beat, Makoto tells them if it's not official, then he refuses. Tsukumo offers to walk with him so they can discuss it. Yesterday he left the city and only returned. So where has he been? Makoto doesn't even bother answering. Tsukumo calls out to Mizuno and she reveals a blood-stained envelope. She says this envelope is only found in this city's hospital. Does it look familiar? Tsukumo desperately tries to gauge Makoto's reaction, saying it's the exact same shape and it's blood-stained. Mizuno keeps pressuring him, explaining these envelopes are used for cash transactions, not letters, and they even found the manufacturer supplied by this very hospital. Makoto doesn't bother answering these clowns. Tsukumo notices how cool and cold-blooded he looks. Mizuno continues yapping, asking about Katigiri and where she is after her mother's death. She's been missing. He still doesn't answer, and when she tries to block him, he just walks past. Tsukumo realizes he has something up his sleeve to make Makoto crack. He whispers and then yells that maybe because of his younger sister and her illness, his life has become one joyless existence. He yaps that she has ruined his life and there's only darkness around him, and it would be better if the tests turned out that her condition was hopeless, then he would be happy. The onlookers can't believe what they're hearing, a grown man bullying a child over his sick sister's condition. Makoto, for the first time, shows real emotion and punches the door, saying he's only happy because he has Shiori. Tsukumo squints because he finally got a reaction out of this cold-blooded youth. He tells Mizuno to find everything she can about Shiori. After all, a guy like him must have only one reason to kill, and that is because of his younger sister. Now at 10:30, he's almost back home and wonders why there's a pleasant smell coming from his room. He barges in, asking his father if he spent all his money on something weird again. Instead of his father, he finds Yane cooking for him like a wife. He grits his teeth in frustration, wondering why she's here. She says that lately he's been only eating store bento boxes, and that's not good for his health, so she decided to cook something. She thought she would finish and go home, but they ran into each other. Makoto tells her not to worry. He's already leaving. In desperation, she calls out, saying he skipped school yesterday and where was he? He just smiles and tells her not to ask the same questions as the police. She wonders if he was alone or with someone. She remembers his father telling her he came home in the middle of the night with a girl. Makoto snaps, telling her to shut up because it's none of her business. Yane is a bit hurt, but she turns away and asks if he's really fine and happy. The word happiness stings and hurts him harder than any blade could. He holds his head and cries out to the heavens, wondering what happiness he even has in his life. He wants to go to school and clubs, study, talk about stupid things and laugh at dumb things, but that's an impossible dream now. A little more, just a little more, and he wants to die every single day. He wants to end his existence and finally breathe a sigh of relief. Yane hugs him with tears pooling in her eyes. He must have gone through so much to fall apart like this. He apologizes and she says she can't help him with anything, but she's on his side. If anything happens to him, she'll never... They melt into each other's embrace. He finally falls asleep in her lap. As she strokes his head, she whispers that she wants to be with him and by his side forever. But she can't, can she? Someone witnesses their touching moment through a crack in the door. Someone with a murderous glint in her eyes. Makoto has a dream about the old days when he was getting bullied by other boys. They were beating him up while Yane stood up for him, asking what was wrong with them. She told them they should understand that he had to work for his family. She even nursed his wounds and asked if he was embarrassed. She promised that she would become his wife when the time came. That made him squirm in embarrassment because they still had to finish high school. Yane would tease him that he had to become strong since he was a man, and no matter what happened, she would protect him. In the really difficult moments of life, she would count on his help, and he needed to protect her too. Makoto wakes up from his little nap, but when he sees it's already 11:18, he rushes around, realizing he is on a serious time crunch. He tells Yane not to follow him. He quickly gets ready and packs up his things. He looks at the amulet Yane gave him all those years ago to wish him success in his new job. With tears in his eyes, he rushes out, realizing that he always makes her worry, but now he needs to pay her back somehow. He dashes around the corner telling Yane that he is about to leave, but what he finds is nothing he expected. Yane is being held at knife point by Katigiri. With pure desperation, he yells at her while Yane wonders what the hell is happening. Makoto yells at Katigiri, asking what the hell she is doing here. Katigiri claps back, asking what he is doing here instead. She caught him sleeping in another girl's lap when she specifically told him not to betray her. He told her he would be back and swore he wouldn't betray her. He tells her to stop, but she says she won't forgive him for cheating and starts stabbing Yane over and over again. Yane screams in pain as Makoto yells at her to stop and not to touch her. Katigiri doesn't care at all. She tells Yane that she followed Makoto all the way home and asks why she sticks her nose in other people's business like an annoying little witch. With a dying breath, Yane tells her to stop, but Katigiri doesn't care and stabs her again in the liver, asking if she loves him. Makoto yells at the top of his lungs, telling her to stop, but she keeps going. She asks Makoto if he loves her. Yane modestly tells Katigiri not to drag Makoto into this and that she is making him unhappy. Katigiri can't believe that Yane is still caring about him even in her own predicament. She starts teasing her that they already did it and it was amazing. Even remembering it now, she never experienced anything like that with anyone else. Makoto is furious and tells her to let her go. For the first time in his life, he shows genuine hurt and anger in his eyes. Even Katigiri mentions how scary he looks. Does he really love her? In that case, she swings her knife, cutting Yane and causing her head to roll off her neck. Makoto looks at her blank eyes and bleeding body and screams to the heavens. He can't believe that the only one who supported him unconditionally is gone and he couldn't protect her. He screams at the top of his lungs as memories flood his mind. He couldn't save her. Katigiri smiles like a witch and asks him what he is crying for. She tells him to calm down because he hasn't killed anyone today. Realization dawns on him because it's already midnight and they will go through another loop. Yane will be alive again. She walks closer to Makoto, telling him to be careful. This is a warning for him never to choose other girls over her. From now on, he shouldn't dare to come close to other girls. He needs to look at her, love her, and worship her only. Like a cracked yandere, she nudges closer and bites his ear, telling him not to dare betray her ever. Otherwise, who knows what she'll do next time she gets upset. Makoto doesn't care and feels numb all over. She tells him to stop squeezing the corpse in his arms and let go of her for her own good. He looks at her in surprise as she reminds him of the condition of the loop. Anything that he touches the moment the loop closes will also move with him 24 hours back, for example, clothes or things he has on him. If he keeps touching the corpse, then Yane's corpse will also move with him. He looks at Yane with hesitation, resentment, and anger. He lets go of her unwillingly and apologizes because he couldn't save her. This crazy witch throws herself at Makoto, wrapping her arms so tightly that he can't get her off. She says she still had her doubts, but she wants to move through the loop with him so she remembers everything that happened. The clock ticks 11:59. They need to travel back together. The whole apartment vibrates for a moment as time comes to a standstill. In the next moment, the corpse is nowhere to be seen. Only Makoto and Katigiri are sitting there embracing. They look at his father sleeping in the next room. She realizes that time really does move when he doesn't kill. They look at his sleeping dad. If he catches them like this with blood-stained clothes and horrid expressions on their faces, it won't be good. She lets go of him and says it's amazing. She can't stand it anymore. This crazy witch says that now that they are stained with Yana's blood, they should do it right here and right now. For the first time in his life, he realizes he's not been dealing with an average girl. He's been dealing with a monster much more vicious than he can ever be, and he also wonders what he should do now. Yane is getting ready for school, and her mother wonders if she is going to the club because school is supposed to be canceled. She just smiles because school has been canceled, but she and the guys from the athletic club will be training on their own. She also tells her mother not to cook dinner today because she will be out. Poor Yane doesn't know what is in store for her or what she went through in the previous loop. She looks at Makoto happily apologizing for being late, but Makoto's face is as plain as a stone. She wonders what happened, why he is stone-faced out here, and what he is doing. He suddenly disappeared and didn't even let her know, and she has been worried sick all this time. She also says she was going to cook something for him today, and she would leave the food on the table if she didn't find him at home. She smiles warmly, telling him she is glad they could meet today. While she is dreaming of a future together, he tells her to stop. That's enough. She is a bit startled and wonders why. He tells her there is no need. She nervously calls him out, but he yells at the top of his lungs, telling her to stop getting in the way all the time. Why is she going so far when they are not even related? Does she look at herself as an older sister or something? These words sting Yane. She leans closer, asking him what's wrong. Did something happen? If so, she can handle it. He slaps her hand away, causing her to fall, and tells her not to touch him. With hatred burning in his eyes, he tells her not to show her face around his apartment anytime soon. They are done. As he runs away with agony coursing through his body, she tells him to wait and not to leave. She calls after him over and over again, apologizing for something she never did, for something that was not her fault. Katigiri looks at them from a distance, and the strange sadistic smile creeps up on her face. They later meet in the basement of the hospital. She smiles, telling Makoto he has done well. How does he feel after breaking up with Yane? Visibly shaken, he wonders if she is satisfied now. She tells her so-called boyfriend that she is fully satisfied. Now she won't be coming to him anymore. She tells Makoto that she will be returning to Tokyo. As his sister has a checkup today, he should return when he is done. She also reminds him that she took his things from his home, so he doesn't have to drop by his home. As soon as the examination is done, he should go straight to Tokyo. With a murderous glint in her eyes, she confirms if he has hurt her, not to go anywhere along the way and straight to the train station. While at a hospital, the detectives are waiting for him. Tsukumo says that he has a lot of questions for him. Makoto is not in the mood to play this psychological dance with him today. He runs away without answering, saying that his sister has an examination today. They look at Makoto in confusion. Since when was an emotionless boy in such a hurry? He looks at his sister getting an MRI and then looks at the phone and sees a picture of him and Yane. Their families have been close since childhood. She is his childhood friend. They played together, laughed together, and cried together. He never gave it any importance till now. When she was dying in his arms, he realized for the first time in his life that he really loved Yane. And because of that crazy wish, he can't see her anymore. He realizes he can't drag her into his hellhole of a life. The nurse says that the doctor will explain everything. He looks at the picture for one last time and turns to leave because it doesn't matter anymore. He is just an instrument for killing at this point. It's 7:47 and he realizes he needs to get back to Tokyo because Katigiri is waiting for him. He also feels how weird it is that she didn't trail him to the hospital and instead went to Tokyo. A strange uneasiness creeps into his stomach. He feels something is wrong. His mind races and he accidentally drops by home. He looks at his table and it's full of dishes and delicious food. Horror flashes in his eyes. It looks like Katigiri is still dropped off by his apartment like the last loop. He wonders why he told her so many nasty things. He looks at the dirty dishes in the kitchen. She wouldn't have gone home without cleaning up. Something feels wrong, horribly wrong. He rushes to the end of the apartment and sees blood staining the carpets. He picks up his foot and it's full of crimson liquid. He then looks at a coat rack and it's also dripping with the same forbidden ketchup. He pulls away the coats and looks at Katigiri's handiwork. Yane is lying there in a pool of her own blood. He screams at the top of his lungs, disbelief coursing through his body, resentment burning his eyes. He remembers Katigiri telling him that he needs to head to Tokyo straight after the examination and not to go anywhere. He realizes that it was all part of her plan. She pretended to leave for Tokyo, and when Yane came to his apartment to cook, she made her into public art. Poor, he returns to Tokyo to the place they had decided. Katigiri smiles. Her shirt is unbuttoned and she's missing her pants, but she's glad that he's here. She wonders what's up with him. She never thought he was the one who would fight back. They look at their latest victim tied up and she smiles because she managed to tie him up. They have the prey ready for today. She hands him the knife, telling him to carve the turkey. He looks at the knife for a moment and then looks at Katigiri. She wonders what's wrong. He's annoyed that even though he told her not to, she's been looking for victims and luring them into the public bathroom. He whispers if they don't kill in the next 2 minutes it will be too late, and the loop will repeat itself. Today, Katigiri is desperate to get the loop going. Makoto hugs her and she teases him for being turned on by her outfit. She tells him not to hold back and to finish that bastard so that they can move on with their lives. He hugs her even closer to the point that she feels she's being strangled. She tells him to stop fooling around because time is running out. Does he want to repeat today forever? He needs to kill him. With only 1 minute remaining till midnight, the whole bathroom vibrates and the loop resets. She angrily says she will have to redo everything today. He wonders if she's going to do it again to kill her for the 3rd time. Horror flashes in her eyes as she realizes Makoto saw what she did in his apartment. As the loop resets, Katigiri collapses onto her knees, realizing exactly what just happened. He saw her handiwork and decided to rewind the day again. Makoto yells at her that if he hadn't found out, the new day would have rolled forward and she would have been dead for good. But this crazy psychopath just tilts her head and asks what if she stayed dead? Would that really be a problem? Makoto explodes, shouting that she's going to keep trying to kill Yane over and over, and if he leaves her alone, she'll just go do it again. She suddenly drops to her knees, begging for forgiveness and promising she won't touch Yane ever again. Makoto claps back, yelling how the hell is he supposed to believe her now? She can go to hell with her fake promises because breaking them cost her nothing, but it costs him 2 whole days of Shiori's life every time she screws up. She reminds him that he didn't keep his word either. Instead of going straight to Tokyo like she told him, he went looking for Yane at home. Makoto stands there crestfallen and speechless. She keeps yapping about how she was scared and threatened by Yane's perfect looks. She knows she can't compete with her, and if she doesn't fight back, sooner or later Makoto will get snatched away and she'll be left completely alone without her parents. She's terrified of that and can't help it. She begs for forgiveness again and again, promising it won't happen and she'll never do anything that hurts him. She swears she'll make him the happiest man on earth and is ready to sacrifice everything she has for him. Makoto has had enough of this insane witch guilt tripping him. He shoves her away hard and tells her he doesn't need anything from her. At least she offers her own life so the new day can arrive for him. At least she'll be useful. Makoto looks at her, closes his eyes, and realizes this has to be the last time. Her eyes widen in surprise and she thanks him over and over. He grits his teeth, promising it won't happen again. They arrive at the hospital and he tells her they will split up here. He'll contact her as soon as the examination ends. She wonders if she can also drop by the hospital, but he tells her not to be stupid because they can't be seen together. She apologizes, and with desperation in his voice, he warns her to keep her promise. If Yane loses even a single strand of hair, things will get ugly. She lowers her head and promises she'll stay quiet. When he reaches Shiori's room, this is already the 3rd examination. He apologizes to his sister because of her dumb older brother. She has to keep going through the same painful tests over and over. She can't rely on him, and no matter how much time passes, he's still the same fool. Shiori always gets the short end while he's busy dealing with his crazy love problems. Once again, Tsukumo tries to provoke him by talking about his younger sister. Today, Makoto is not in the mood for mind games. He grabs the detective by the collar and tells him he's wrong. Shiori isn't bad. She isn't guilty of anything. He shoves him away and walks off. Tsukumo wonders what the hell has gotten into this kid. The doctor informs him the test results are fine and the surgery can still be performed on August 10th. But if the disease progresses too fast, she might not make it to the operating table. Makoto remembers 3 months ago when he got called from work and saw Shiori collapse, clutching her stomach. Like a bolt from the blue, his peaceful life was shattered. He remembers his father crashing out on the doctor and yelling that they only wanted to squeeze money out of him. He remembers his father abandoning Shiori and saying he was done. He also remembers his little sister apologizing that she couldn't cook dinner that day. He told her not to talk about useless things and just get well soon. But deep down, he knew she was getting worse, even though she kept reassuring him. She lost consciousness after that. He should have noticed something was wrong. She endured everything quietly because he is her older brother. He won't let her down. He will protect her. He walks into the hospital room and freezes. That freaking witch is already inside with Shiori. He wonders if she is brain dead. Can't she understand she's not supposed to be here? Katigiri apologizes because she really wanted to meet his little sister, the one he's been protecting at the cost of his own life. She pats Shiori's head, saying she's in middle school. For the first time, she feels bad and wants to see Shiori smile. Makoto is touched for a second. He thanks her for coming, but they can't stay in the hospital, so she needs to leave. He asks if she remembers the ditch they dug for the body. They should meet there. Till he realizes he has already been killed 9 times. He looks up, wondering when this curse will finally end. How long does he have to keep doing this? She arrives and apologizes for making him wait. He needs to kill someone faster so they don't have to go back to Tokyo. She says she's afraid today they'll have to hunt in another city, but there's no way around it. All of a sudden, he gets a call from the hospital, saying Shiori's life support was turned off. The nurse noticed immediately, so nothing terrible happened. But if she had hesitated even a little, Shiori's life would have been in danger. They're investigating the cause and he needs to come by tomorrow. 4. This freaking witch asks innocently if something is wrong. He can't believe how far she's willing to go just to chain him to herself. He grabs her roughly and shoves her hard. Everyone at the hospital is staring at Shiori, while Tsukumo demands the surveillance footage right away. The police pull it up and confirm they will put a guard at the entrance from now on. Tsukumo leans in on the doctor and asks if he noticed anything suspicious or out of the ordinary today. The doctor looks at him like he has completely lost his mind. Tsukumo is sure today's incident is connected to the endless string of murders. Suddenly, a security guard calls out saying there is something strange in the footage. It clearly shows Katigiri slipping in through the back entrance, moving through the backyard like a ghost before disappearing. No other cameras caught Makoto or her properly. The guard explains she avoided most of them but walked straight in through the main entrance without hiding, then vanished on the way out. Tsukumo wonders why. Maybe someone warned her about the cameras. He bets Makoto was inside the hospital at the same time he left half an hour before Katigiri was caught on that new camera. To Kumo, Zuno asks if he seriously suspects Katigiri as the murderer now. If they are working together, then Makoto must be connected to her mother's death too. But why the hell would Katigiri try to pull the plug on Shiori? Are they enemies or secret allies? Tsukumo tells her to follow his orders and find Katigiri immediately. Midzuno nervously admits she tried, but the higher-ups shot it down. The department head told them to stop chasing Tsukumo's wild illusions. Tsukumo has heard enough and grabs her in a headlock. Midzuno quickly says she actually believes him and they should bring Makoto down. They spend hours rewatching the footage again and again, chugging Red Bull like it is going out of style. Meanwhile, Makoto is out hunting with empty eyes and a completely hollow heart. He follows a young man with a fresh low-taper buzz cut, walks up silently behind him, and slits his throat clean in one smooth motion before continuing on like nothing happened. With a dead, emotionless voice, he mutters that today is another step toward a new day. Lois, back at the station, Suzuhara is yelling at the detectives, demanding if they finally caught the bastard who killed her son Daiki. Midzuno feels genuinely bad for letting the grieving mother down. Suzuhara wonders why they are even here then. When they mention Shiori and the life support incident, something clicks in her head. Her eyes lock onto Makoto's picture as she slowly starts piecing the whole nightmare together. It's July 21st again. The nurse asks Suzuhara if she is really alright. Suzuhara says her vacation did her some good, and that is exactly what her son would have said. She imagines Daiki smiling at her with that same buzz-cut hairstyle. She gets back to work and asks about Shiori. A dark, dangerous look flashes across her eyes as she wonders what these siblings have done to her beloved son. Suzuhara smiles at every patient like nothing in the world is bothering her. She treats people every day, laughing and chatting like the perfect nurse, but inside she is burning alive with pure rage and hatred. A fellow nurse looks at her and whispers how impressive it is that she can keep going so strongly after losing her son. Meanwhile, Suzuhara keeps calling Makoto over and over, but our boy is passed out on a public bench and does not even bother picking up. The call goes straight to voicemail. She has been thinking non-stop about Makoto and Shiori. They must be connected to Daiki's murder. She cannot wrap her head around it yet, but deep down she is sure that cold-blooded kid killed her dear son. Bolted back in the inspector's office, Midzuno suggests installing new cameras on the first floor. Shizori's ward has way too many blind spots. Tsukumo asks if she threatened the head physician. Midzuno says her approach was different, as she tried flirting her way through. Tsukumo just smirks because he knows damn well that would not work with her. And if there are too many blind spots in the hospital, convincing the head physician will be almost impossible. She also wonders if they have found out where Makoto and Katigiri disappeared to. The female detective says she cannot find everything he throws at her. The rest of the team is busy with a brand new murder. Terrible. The superiors are breathing down their necks hard and Makoto still has an ironclad alibi. His involvement looks doubtful. Even so, Midzuno keeps helping the inspector while enduring his icy cold stares, but Tsukumo feels it in his gut that something is horribly wrong. This has to be the key to the entire nightmare. While the detectives are desperately trying to uncover the truth, Makoto is already busy with his next victim. The poor guy is tied up and all bloodied. The victim wonders who the hell he is and why he is trying to kill him. He asks if Makoto is one of Akita's friends. How strange that he does not remember him, because he remembers all the times they came by to mess with him. He points to a heap of dirt, saying this is where he buried his friend. The man lashes out crying and saying he did not do anything to him. Makoto looks at his stained knife and whispers, who cares, because he does not need a reason anymore to unalive someone. He grabs the person's head saying the conversation is over, and he does not have much time left. He notices a voicemail. It is from Suzuhara, wondering why he is not picking up after she has been calling him. He wonders why Suzuhara is calling. What does she want? The woman's voice turns cruel as she says she needs to ask something, but it looks like there is nothing he can do, so she will just ask Shiori instead. The mention of his sister's name sends Makoto into a complete frenzy. He realizes she is going after Shiori and rushes away immediately, leaving his victim tied up and still alive. He runs with his mind racing, asking what Suzuhara wants with his sister. Is it because she knows he is the one who killed her son? He sees the police surrounding the hospital and bursts into the main ward. He spots a police officer bleeding heavily and being rushed to the operating room. He asks where Shiori is. A nurse runs over and tells him that Shiori is in serious trouble. Suzuhara has her surrounded and is holding Shiori hostage with a scalpel. She smiles cruelly, saying she has an important conversation to have with Makoto. Looking straight at him, she says she has been thinking about waking Shiori up to help things speed along. She wonders what they did to Daiki. She knows the detectives have been following him, and they say he has nothing to do with the murder, but she does not believe a word of it. She nudges the scalpel closer and tells everyone to keep quiet. The pain might make Shiori regain consciousness, or maybe she should just cut her eye out. Midzuno tells her to stop because she is mistaken. Makoto has nothing to do with it. Makoto slowly walks to the front of the crowd. With completely emotionless eyes, he says he killed Daiki, Mori, and Shita. Everyone freezes hearing this sudden confession. He apologizes because he did not know it was her son. He was just looking for someone to kill and saw him forcing himself on Katigiri. This is too much for Suzuhara to bear. How can her darling son do something like that? Mizuno wonders if he really killed all three of them. She yells that he is lying. Daiki would never do anything like that. He needs to bring Katigiri and let her explain. With those same emotionless eyes, Makoto reveals that he killed her too. Suzuhara yells at the brat that he is a cold-blooded killer and orders everyone to arrest him. Makoto yells at everyone not to come any closer. They all freeze. He realizes he has not killed his victim today. All he needs to do is stall until the time loops. Suzuhara is too close to Shiori and it is dangerous. They both will travel together if she is holding her. He kneels down and says there is a murderer here. He does not deserve forgiveness. She raised her son with care and love, but he turned out to be scum. This infuriates and provokes the woman completely. She lashes out and charges straight at Makoto, stabbing him, but he does not even flinch. He rushes to Shiori, throwing the heavy woman off. The guards hold her down and she screams, wondering why they are holding her when he is the one they should be grabbing. Makoto tells everyone to stop. He holds the scalpel close to Shiori and warns them not to take another step. Sukuma wonders why this kid confessed to everything when he could have gotten away scot-free. Is it because the woman was threatening his sister? But there is no fear in his eyes. He wonders what the hell this boy really is. Makoto just smiles because he finally gets to have a happy ending with Shiori. The hospital vibrates as the loop begins. The guard enters the ward and wonders where Shiori is. Everyone is shocked to see her sitting peacefully in the hallway in a wheelchair. Tsukumo has finally looped and he wonders if this will be the last time he has to risk her life. He tells her not to worry because her older brother is not as pathetic as he used to be. He will definitely protect her this time. A single tear trickles down Shiori's face as if she has been listening to everything. It's July 21st again. Suzuhara gets up with the same cold revelation burning in her head. Based on Tsukumo's body language during their last talk, it is crystal clear that Makoto is the main suspect in her son's murder. She wonders if that sick little sister of his is involved too. She decides she will ask them directly and get the truth one way or another. She feels something weird as someone knocks on her door. Makoto stands there smiling coldly, hiding the same scalpel Suzuhara once used to threaten Shiori, tucked deep in his pants like a twisted souvenir. Meanwhile, at the station, both Mizuno and Tsukumo are laughing their asses off. They cannot believe the policeman is actually serious about Shiori vanishing from her bed in the middle of the night and magically appearing in the hallway sitting in a wheelchair. Everyone saw her there clear as day. They check the footage again and sure enough, right as the clock hits midnight, Shiori appears out of thin air like some low-budget horror movie ghost. Tsukumo gets a sudden stroke of inspiration. He locks himself in his study, surrounded by clocks ticking everywhere, and starts acting like a complete madman, staring at his own reflection for days on end. Till everyone peeks through the door, wondering if the inspector has finally lost his damn mind. He only comes out for food or the bathroom. When he finally emerges, he has a wild, crazy look in his eyes. He has realized the truth. It took time, but he had to take a break and break all the stereotypes. He had to think outside the box. Mizuno wonders if he has completely gone crazy, but Tsukumo says last night something happened at the hospital and something disappeared. They ask what he is talking about. He explains that someone brought Shiori to the waiting room. He comes to the conclusion that someone disconnected her from the artificial breathing device, rolled her into the waiting room, and probably tried to kill her. He realizes it must have been Suzuhara. They rush to her apartment and find her brutally unalived with her head missing from her body. The time was around 1 a.m. Just a couple of hours after their visit. Tsukumo looks at the body and wonders if it was only a couple of hours for him. Mizuno wonders what the hell he is getting at. Just like he thought, he has gone after Suzuhara. Later in the car, the female detective asks why he is keeping information. She promises not to laugh no matter how ridiculous his story gets. Tsukumo does not care because he has something else on his mind. He spots Makoto riding on a bus and gets a dangerous idea. He tells Mizuno to go back without him and heads off alone toward the outskirts of the city. Makoto is out looking for his new victim. It turns out he did not finish Vakutai yet, and the guy is still hanging around. Maybe he should finish what he started. He then looks at Tsukumo and asks what the hell he is doing here. Tsukumo smiles shamelessly like a man who knows too much. It looks like he is a pretty bad operative to get caught red-handed. He walks closer and asks if Makoto killed Suzuhara. Makoto feigns ignorance and asks what he is talking about. Tsukumo says it is true and he has some leeway. He grabs his handcuffs and locks one end on himself and the other on Makoto, smiling because now they will be together for the night. He even gulps down the key, saying he did not get enough to eat with those handcuffs. Maybe he is hungry too. They arrive at a restaurant and order 2 ramen bowls plus a pack of sugar. The Makoto wonders what kind of insane circus this is. Are cops even allowed to arrest people without warrants? Tsukumo has a completely crazy look in his eyes. He apologizes because today they are staying together whether the law permits it or not. While slurping the ramen, he says that even with sugar, it is too spicy. He grabs Makoto's face and starts breathing on him, saying his tongue burns. Makoto tells the detective to behave himself. Tsukumo asks him how many times they have reminded him of the time. This catches him off guard. The detective lays out his entire theory. He is sure that Makoto killed Suzuhara's son on that rainy Thursday. came to Tokyo the next day and rewound time. Given the mystical teleportation of Shiori and her killer's death, he has confirmed the theory that Suzuhara attacked Shiori in the waiting room. For the sake of saving his sister, Makoto rewound time that day and killed Suzuhara to stop the tragedy. And it looked instant. According to the nurse, Shiori's condition changes drastically around midnight. In other words, his sister travels through time with him. He wonders if it is that hot in here and they should go. He drags Makoto out in public. He stands in front of the camera and says he wanted to tell him, but it does not matter. He will teleport through time with him because they are together. As Shiori traveled along with the wheelchair because they were touching, he knows any object he touches will go through time as well. In just 2 minutes, they will move through time and he will reveal the truth. Riseki and Menenpoto's eyes glaze over. He realizes things are getting really tricky now, but he is not a normal man anymore. He grabs the knife from his pocket, shoves it into the detective's hand and cuts it clean off. The detective sits there like an idiot as Makoto grabs the severed hand like a trophy. The onlookers look at him in pure horror as he says he is no longer a normal person. Tsukumo freezes, losing his hand in the process of uncovering the truth. Makoto smiles coldly. He tells the detective he will do exactly what he said, that he will rewind time. But because there is only one way to break the loop, he will have to kill a person. There is only 1 minute left until midnight. He tells the detective to be a little patient and try not to die because he has to erase this day and put that hand back in place. So the detective, still in shock, tells him to keep it as a trophy. Now that he knows his plan, it won't work. But as long as he is missing his hand during the next loop, he will know exactly what happened. At exactly midnight, he will be standing in the interrogation room with his hand gone. He will finally be able to convince everyone that the time loop is real. Makoto looks at him and realizes this detective is not normal at all. Unfortunately for Tsukumo, his hopes are not going to come true. In just 10 seconds, they will put an end to this little game. Makoto throws the hand away and tells the detective to get away from him. He wonders why he is even bothering. His words are nothing more than empty threats. As Makoto turns to leave, the detective desperately grabs him, trying to throw the severed hand back so it ends up missing in the next loop. But the world rewinds itself. A random man nearby wonders how Makoto suddenly appeared in front of him out of thin air. Makoto just walks away calmly. He can't believe the detective actually discovered that he can travel back in time, but he decides to let it be. In the end, he is the one walking into the next day, knowing exactly what happened. In the interrogation room, the detective once again celebrates the start of a new day like a madman. He also curses under his breath, wondering how the hell he is supposed to prove time travel to anyone. The Makoto arrives back at his home, wondering if the place is being watched or washed by the police. This is exactly why the detective tried to force information out of him. He does not have anything solid on him and cannot run an official investigation. But first he needs to get rid of these damn handcuffs. There are some tools at home. He steps inside and hears his dad talking to someone, wondering why he showed up in the middle of the night. The other guy says it is because he always runs away. With interest, his father has 800,000 yen in debt and is not returning it. The creditor's patience is running thin. Then Makoto can't believe his father actually borrowed money from black market creditors. The man promises to give him money, which is almost in his pocket. The creditor wonders why. Is everything going according to plan? The man just smiles. His comeback as a dad, it turns out, is waiting for his daughter to die. Makoto can't believe what he is hearing. If he decides to let the disease take its course, then he can cash in on that fat life insurance certificate he secretly got in her name. If she dies, he will get a ton of money, so he just needs to wait. Makoto listens in total disbelief. Even the creditor calls him a crappy parent. He knew everything long before she went down. He knew she was seriously ill, despite watching his daughter suffer. He forced her not to tell Makoto or anyone about her disease. After she vomited blood, he signed her up for life insurance. The creditor calls him absolute scum, and Makoto feels his heart stop because his father knew all along. That is why he didn't notice she was getting worse. She was worried about him, and their father made her stay silent. That is why he did not let her get surgery, and that is why he planned to refuse it. His plan was perfect, and it would throw him another 100,000 yen into debt on top of everything. Makoto can't believe what he is hearing while the detective is crashing out hard, staring at himself in the mirror like a lunatic. The other detectives wonder if he has gone crazy or senile. Why does he feel the urge to go after Makoto when the kid has a strong alibi? As soon as he saw the footage of Shiori suddenly appearing in the hospital, it was as if he got inspired. They wonder if he has really gone crazy this time. He just stands in front of the mirror watching himself with this obsessive need to put Makoto in jail. They hope he does not get too inspired or troublesome. Mizuno wonders what she should do, and another detective jokes that she should handcuff herself to him. Tsukumo gets a brilliant idea that he should handcuff himself to Makoto. He reaches for his handcuffs and realizes they are missing, even though the cover is still hooked up. While the detectives are teasing him about his habits, Tsukumo rushes out to his car like a man possessed. He realizes his handcuffs are gone. Maybe he is reliving today for the second time. In his previous life, he probably handcuffed himself to Makoto, got found out and managed to get away, but the handcuffs should have traveled back with him. If they are still on him, he will finally be able to prove the existence of time travel. He speeds off, ready to uncover Makoto's secret once and for all. So on the other side, the creditor tells Makoto's father that his daughter must die this time around. But Makoto opens the door and a crazy murderous look flashes in his eyes. Makoto looks at his father in horror and asks how he could do this to Shiori. His father freezes on the spot. Makoto yells that it is because of him she is lying in a coma right now. His father tries to act tough and scare him, asking how dare he talk to his own father that way. But he receives a hard slap to the face and immediately crashes into the wall. Makoto grabs a bottle and asks how dare he think he is some awesome parent. He even teases his great father to come hit him if he can. While stomping on his dad and making him cry like a baby, Makoto brings out his switchblade, promising to let him sleep forever. His father cries and apologizes over and over. He says he should not have done that. He should not have taken out the insurance and he was wrong. But a confession in front of a knife is pretty meaningless. He yells that they are family after all. The mention of family provokes Makoto even more. He pokes his eye out and asks what kind of family plots to kill their own daughter. His father says that is different from what he is about to do. The drunkard old man says that if only his mother were still with them, things would have been better. But Makoto yells not to involve his mother in this. She fled, and they know who she is. But he is worse than mom. He started drinking, quit his job, and started hitting them. Shiori has been living in hell all this time and he had to work because of such crappy parents. The man wonders why he did not just cut him out of his life. Makoto yells that he thought about doing that many times, but Shiori stopped him. She always said they are supposed to be there for each other. She did not let him cut their father out. She used to believe that mom would sometimes come back and dad would become the same again. She clings to that hope and has not lost it. It looks like she will lose her life because of this trashy man's decisions. He grabs the knife, but here comes Shiri's voice in his head telling him to stop. She tells him to remember that no matter what, they are family. One has to forgive and forget, or else they will stop being a family. Her words haunt him like a spirit. Yane, on the other hand, is sitting alone looking at a photo of her and Makoto. She realizes he is pushing her away. She wants to support him and ease his pain, but she will have to hide something from him. It turns out she already knows a secret Shiori told her. Makoto also wonders what Shiori meant when she said they will stop being a family if he forgets. He looks at his trashy father running away and grabs him, telling him to hold on. His father yells, asking if he is sure, because he is the only one Shiori has. Makoto wonders what he is talking about. He says he had a blood test to become Shiori's donor and it looked like he has B blood, but he lied. Actually, he has AB blood. Well, Shiori had confessed to Yane that before leaving, mom fought with dad a lot and she shared with her, and it became easier. It turns out Shiori and Makoto are not real siblings. Makoto is their mom's son and Shiori is his father's daughter. Their mother brought him when he was only 2 years old, and Shiori was only a year old. Makoto can't believe what he is hearing. Yane knows the truth because Shiori made her promise not to tell Makoto so that he does not leave her like everyone else does. The man says that he is not Shiori's real brother. He should get that girl out of his head and live his own life. Makoto falls silent and lets go of his father. His father apologizes. Because of the money, he could not be a good worker, and he knew that he made the family a living hell for everyone. But it is true that he wanted to be like a real father, and with everything he went through, he does not understand where he went wrong. Crushed by grief, drinking his worries away, sobering up, and remembering how he treated them. His heart bled, so to forget it, he started drinking again and the cycle continued. The man tells Makoto to forgive him and he will fix it. He will become a true family member. Makoto hugs his father and silently stabs him in the back, saying that he does not need to fix anything or become a family. It is too late for that. The past cannot be returned and his sins cannot be washed away. He grabs his knife again, saying that his real family is Shiori. The detective arrives and sees his father brutally murdered with the handcuffs lying inches away. The loop will not reset and the detective knows exactly what is going on. The police arrive soon after and discover 2 deep, extensive wounds on the victim's body. Tsukumo stands there eating ice cream as casually as if he is enjoying a movie snack, and tells the police to arrest Makoto immediately. Right then, an old officer spots Tsukumo's handcuffs on the ground and asks him how they ended up there. Outside the house, a crowd gathers and chats excitedly about the murder scene like it is the hottest neighborhood drama. Yane arrives too and becomes really worried the moment she hears about the murder. After some time, Tsukumo starts talking about time traveling to the others, but they refuse to believe him. The head officer Takanashi gets tired of his wild stories and decides to leave. The other officers feel exactly the same. No one believes him and they call his theory complete nonsense. As they are all about to walk out, Mizuno stops them and asks everyone to at least listen to his stories. However, when they still refuse to stop, Mizuno brings up the handcuffs that they found in Makoto's house. The officers point out there is no way to tell if the handcuffs were actually on Makoto or if Tsukumo broke into the house and placed them there himself. Right then, 2 inspectors arrive. One is Endo, and the other is the head of the criminalist department. Endo shares that the results of the examination of the murder are out. The finger marks found on the knife do not match those of Makoto. Shockingly, the fingerprints on the knife belong to Tsukumo. All of them stand there really shocked and start questioning him. Tsukumo just laughs and praises Makoto for being such a clever guy. Local, he thinks it most likely happened on one of the disappeared days. Makoto must have handcuffed him, and to escape he had to cut off his hand. Before closing the time loop, he left fingerprints on the knife from the severed hand. This Tsukumo guy really is a crazy genius. With no other choice, the inspector decides to take Tsukumo for interrogation. Before leaving with them, he whispers in Mizuno's ear, asking her to hang on to Shiori. Exactly at midnight. Meanwhile, Yane sits in the hospital with Makoto's sister. She keeps thinking that Makoto is a good and kind guy who cannot kill anyone. As she grabs her hand and asks her for advice, the girl suddenly opens her eyes. Yane quickly moves to call the doctors, but Shiori stops her midway and offers her a little teddy bear. While giving it away, Shiori cries. A moment later, she closes her eyes again, and the doctors enter the room to check on Shiori's condition. Yane stands far away thinking about what just happened. Looking at Shiori's eyes, she feels sure that she already knows everything. Then Yane properly looks at the bear and notices that its head has been stitched together quite visibly. She takes off the strings and finds a piece of an envelope inside. Seeing that, she remembers the time when Shiori was completely fine and happily told her that she received a letter from her mother. But Makoto did not read it and threw it in the trash. Because Shiori still wanted to see her mom, she quietly took out a piece of the letter and hid it from an angry Makoto. Now Yahello realizes that she cherishes this piece of paper because the postmark can tell her where to find her mom. She thinks that Makoto might have gone to meet his mother, so she decides to find him. At night, she packs her things and lies to her parents that she will be going for a training camp tomorrow in a nearby town. Ryui going on July 22nd at 7:55 p.m. Makoto walks around asking people for a woman named Kuzukai, but no matter who he asks, he gets no information about her. He is currently in Toyami, a small town, and only has the name of the town to find his mom. Makoto feels really angry at Sai for leaving her kids behind without any explanation. At that moment, his eyes land on a blonde girl who is with two boys. As he looks at her, he feels like Shiori is standing right in front of him. The girl and the boys notice him staring, so a boy asks what he needs. When Makoto does not say a word, the boy shows him the middle finger and tells him to go away. But Makoto refuses to listen and keeps staring. Dull. The two boys jump on him thinking he is a weak boy. However, Makoto easily scares them away with only 2 punches. Now only the girl remains behind. She looks really scared, thinking she will get beaten too. But Makoto just asks her if she knows a woman named Sanai. When the girl shakes her head, Makoto leaves and starts asking other people. Soon he looks at his watch and realizes it is getting late. At that moment, an inspector stops him and asks his name. Makoto turns nervous, thinking he is done for. Right then, the same blonde girl comes running and shouts, telling the policeman that this boy is her cousin on her mother's side. Before the officer can say anything, the girl grabs Makoto's hand and runs away with him. After running for a while, they start walking. The girl apologizes to Makoto for what happened earlier. She assumes Makoto is looking for his girlfriend. Soon he is inside the girl's house. Makoto thinks she really should not invite strangers home like this, especially when they do not even know each other's names. While talking, the girl keeps blushing. Right then, her mother enters the house, so she quickly asks him to hide. Makoto hides behind the wall and peeks at the face of the girl's mother. Thinking of talking to her mother, the girl comes back and asks Makoto if he wants to eat, but Makoto refuses. However, as he is about to walk away, his stomach lets out a loud growl. Embarrassed, Makoto just stands there, realizing his tough guy act has completely fallen apart. Finally, the girl introduces herself as Aizawa, and Makoto also tells her his name. Makoto explains he is looking for his mother, not a girlfriend. In the end, Aizawa asks Makoto to sleep in the kitchen while she returns to her room. While lying on the ground, Makoto thinks he cannot leave the city until he finds his mother, which means he also has to kill someone here so the days can progress. On the other hand, Tsukumo messes with the police during interrogation. He refuses to answer any questions and keeps fooling around just to pass time until midnight arrives. At the same time, Mizuno stands in Shiori's room in the hospital, continuously staring at her phone with her hand resting on Shiori's body. Right then, the clock hits midnight, and the next day starts with no time travel phenomenon. Makoto walks into Aizawa's room and grabs her. He just says 2 words, "I want." Hearing those words, Aizawa blushes, thinking he wants to smack those peaches. But her hopes get shattered as Makoto asks her to tell him the location of those 2 boys he beat yesterday. The next morning, Aizawa tries to wake Makoto up by calling from behind the door, but he does not stir even though it is already bright daylight outside. She apologizes to him as he finally comes out looking half dead. Outside, she tells him off for what he did to her, a girl with full righteous energy. Makoto just says yeah and moves on. In the next scene, Makoto and Aizawa walk on the road. Aizawa tells him that Yui is out of town today as he left for some family business, while Takashi is at work right now and his shift ends in the evening so they can meet him there. She also offers to help him search for his mother until then. And before Makoto can even respond, she cheerfully announces, "Let's go," dragging him along whether he likes it or not. Aizawa then gets defensive and tells Makoto not to try to offend her friends as they are very dear to her and like brothers to her. Makoto responds with a flat "not really" when she assumes he was judging them, which somehow makes it worse. She shares that she is not a local. They moved to this city when she was in elementary school, and people treated them quite coldly here. They were strangers to everyone, and kids did not talk to her at school. Her mother worked hard day and night, which in other words meant complete hopelessness. The only ones who let her be their friend were Takashi and Yuki. though they also taught her all sorts of bad things too. She says this last part with a fond smile, which really says everything about her childhood. But while walking, Makoto casually asks if she loves any of those boys. Aizawa calls him an idiot and tells him to piss off, saying they are like brothers to her. Then she turns around with a sly smile and asks if he is jealous. Makoto replies with a confused of whom, completely killing the moment and making Aizawa's hopes deflate like a popped balloon. At 10:49 p.m. they meet Takashi. Makoto tells him he is truly sorry about what happened. Takashi reacts with surprise that Makoto is actually apologizing to him, then laughs it off, saying dude relax, that he was wrong himself. Aizawa tells Takashi she said the same to him. It is actually a surprisingly wholesome moment. Then Takashi curiously asks Aizawa if Makoto lives with her and whether he really does not pay rent, calling it unbelievable. Aizawa tells him to fuck off and mind his own business. Takashi says he is leaving and starts to go, but then suddenly stops and turns around as Makoto attacks him and grabs him by the throat, strangling him. Aizawa watches in frozen horror as Makoto knocks Takashi completely unconscious. Then he turns and knocks out Aizawa too, her last conscious expression being one of complete betrayal. When she wakes up, she sees Makoto crouched over Takashi, knife already moving. She screams at him, asking what he is going to do to Takashi, reminding him he promised he would not hurt her friends. Makoto just says bad and good are subjective concepts and keeps going. Aizawa begs him to stop, crying that Takashi is not a bad guy at all. Makoto tells her such people live by their own laws of justice, and that even notorious villains have friends and relatives who love them. There are no absolute villains, he says, only disagreements about what is right. Then, with 15 seconds left on his watch showing 23:59, he tells her the only right thing for him is what will save his sister. Aizawa goes quiet at the word sister. The clock hits midnight and Takashi screams as Makoto completes what he came to do, taking out the organ and holding it in his bloody hand as the day resets. It is July 23rd again. Bites at 12:42 in the morning. Makoto returns to Aizawa's place, hides the organ carefully among his things, and stands silently in the small apartment saying nothing. When the day starts again at 4 in the morning, Aizawa gets a call. She rushes to Yugi, who is completely hysterical outside the hospital, shouting kana as she arrives. Inside, Yugi tells her through tears that he and Takashi were playing as usual, and exactly at midnight, Takashi just coughed up blood and died right there. He says he did not understand anything and did not know what it was. The doctors find no wound or poison signs, but a part of his internal organs is missing. Medical examiners across the country are baffled, and one detective somewhere is quietly crying into his case files. Hearing this, our guy thinks Takashi didn't die. However, because Makoto holds the organ in his hand the whole time, it returns to the past with him. In this way, Makoto does not have to deal with bodies. He only has to hide the organs so no one finds them. He has already killed 14 people and turned back 7 times, which equals 21 days. He is doing all of this to save Shiori. The doctor said she only has 2 months to live, which leaves her with 39 days. Her big operation is on August 10, so he needs to keep resetting time to keep her alive until then. While looking for his mother, there is nothing he can do but kill people to make the days progress. Wait is out, he goes home for a moment, talks to Aizawa, and then leaves to look for his mother. After that, Makoto goes by train to a nearby town, hoping someone there has heard of his mother. When he finds nothing, he spends the night in a family restaurant, sitting alone among cheerful, ordinary people and staring into empty space, completely unreachable by the normalcy surrounding him. The next day, he continues his search, but again gets no result. Today is July 24th, and the time is 9 p.m. He has to kill someone today to make the day progress. Sometime later, a girl walks right past him. It is Yane. She stops after seeing him and tells him how Shiori woke up for a moment and gave her a piece of paper. Makoto feels shocked but still asks her to stay away from him. At that moment, she reveals about his father's death to stop him, but Makoto ignores her and keeps walking, not even slowing down for a single step. Yane keeps trying to talk to him and even confesses her long-term love for him, but he stays completely silent, making this officially the most one-sided conversation in history. Now only 10 minutes remain till midnight. Makoto walks out to the edge of town and Yane follows him, asking him to slow down and rest. Around 11:49 p.m., Makoto finally finds what he is looking for. Right then, a car appears in his sight. The guy sitting in the car is the same guy he spotted yesterday in one of the surrounding towns. He parks in front of a supermarket. The guy makes a fuss in front of the store, so police have to come and detain him. From the conversations, Makoto learns that this guy has done it many times and sleeps in his car on the outskirts of town. Tonight, Makoto decides to kill him. Makoto stands in front of the car, so the guy stops it. As the car stops, Makoto pulls him out, cuts him brutally, and takes out part of his organ. Yane witnesses all this and freezes completely, hands over her mouth, the full reality of what Makoto actually is hitting her all at once. Suddenly, Makoto grabs Yane's arm and the clock hits midnight, repeating the same day. The car driver and the car disappear, but Makoto and Yane stay there. Yane feels really shocked and asks him what all this means. He points out that the man they just saw die is actually alive right now in a neighboring city, though he is currently injured and surrounded by police. Daichi is completely shocked and asks what is going on. Makoto drops a heavy truth on her. confessing that he has killed many people, including his own father, a nurse, and his classmates. He explains that he is cursed to keep killing just to reset the days and keep Shirori alive. Finally, Makoto warns Aizawa that he is no longer the person she used to know, telling her to get lost and threatening her never to tell the police. Makoto reveals everything to her about the curse of time traveling and how many people he has killed, including his father Katigiri-san's family, the nurse, and his classmates. Makoto stares at her with bloody eyes and tells her he will do the same to her if she keeps following him. He even curses her, calling her bitch. Hearing that Yane is about to slap him, but in the end she controls herself and just runs away. With that, Makoto says his final goodbye to her and moves on. In the morning, Makoto wakes up in Aizawa's house. Aizawa arrives in front of him and tells him she is going to the hospital to meet her mother. It turns out Aizawa's mother's health is not good and she is hospitalized. Makoto feels really shocked because he clearly saw her mother yesterday looking absolutely healthy. Aizawa reveals that the woman he saw was not her real mother but only a replacement who sometimes brings her food. Aizawa's real mother has been in the hospital for a long time. During the whole conversation, Aizawa keeps calling her mother an old hag, showing her no respect. Aizawa also asks Makoto to come with her because after what happened to Takashi, she feels sad and alone. Even in the hospital, Aizawa asks a nurse about her mother. The nurse smiles and tells her that her mother is asleep. Aizawa decides to take a quick look at her mother and then leave. Makoto decides to wait outside, but then his eyes land on the woman lying inside the room. Makoto shakes from the inside and enters the room forcefully. He feels really shocked as he realizes the woman lying on the bed is none other than his own mother. Makoto starts having a panic attack as he looks at her condition. He finally realizes that Aizawa is his sister and suddenly falls to the ground unconscious. He has a dream in which Kid Makoto, his sister, mother, and father are in a park. Makoto wants a roller coaster ride, but suddenly the mood changes. His mother starts walking away. When Makoto calls her, she looks back, but her face turns monstrous as she calls him a killer. Makoto accuses her of his condition and she starts disappearing in the dark. Just then, Shirori appears from behind and assures that she is with him. With that, Makoto wakes up in the present. Aizawa comes running from behind wearing a school costume and hugs him, calling him brother. It turns out to be another dream, and he wakes up again. Immediately, he asks Aizawa to tell him about herself. Aizawa feels shocked because of the sudden question, but decides to tell him. She shares that her mother told her she ran away from some bastard who treated her cruelly and had to send her to an orphanage. She does not remember her parents and grew up in the orphanage until one day 5 years ago this mother showed up and took her away. They began to live together, but Aizawa could not forgive her. Aizawa kept thinking for days that this mother would get rid of her again, but she behaved completely opposite. She worked day and night and in the end fell ill. Today the mother has been transferred to a solitary ward. Most likely she will not last long. She does not even get angry at her anymore because no matter what she has done, Aizawa has no one else. Hearing that Makoto realizes his mother did not only give birth to him but had one more child. Shirori is actually Makoto's stepsister and this Aizawa girl is his blood-related sister. With that, Makoto asks Aizawa to go home alone. Looking at his expressions, she agrees and leaves. Makoto comes back in his mother's hospital room. He looks at her face and thinks he came here to take life because he hated her for leaving them alone. But now he realizes that his mother could not get rid of the guilt of leaving Aizawa alone, so she came back to her. But the question is why she took only Makoto with her when she married another man. She could have taken Aizawa too. If she had a reason, Makoto wonders why she did not tell him. At that moment, he thinks if only he had read the whole letter, everything would have been fine. Dad would have stopped drinking. Shirori's illness would not have reached such a state. There is no better happy ending than that. But Makoto now thinks he ruined everything. He blames himself for everything and thinks he is getting punished now with this curse. Soon Makoto returns to Aizawa's house thinking it is useless to regret now. He cannot change anything. He thinks if he should tell Aizawa everything but quickly drops that thought because he has already decided Shirori is his only family. In the end, he again shifts all the blame to his mother and curses her. He decides that he still needs to kill her. That night, Makoto meets Aizawa again, who blushes after seeing him. Makoto walks beside her thinking about what to do about her. After the mother dies, Aizawa will be all alone, as he is about to tell her that he is her brother. A car pulls up and kidnaps both of them. The chapter opens at warehouse number 16 where Tsukumo stands before Makoto, looking extremely pleased with himself. He tells Makoto that as far as he understands the boy is related to the mysterious death that happened yesterday, and moreover the news reports that today just after midnight there was another incident with similar circumstances. Tsukumo grabs Makoto's face and asks him directly whether this is his doing, how he killed them, whether he used the time loop, why he came to this city and why he kills every day. Makoto says absolutely nothing in response. Tsukumo notes this cheerfully and says, right, why should he answer anyway? He looks at his watch showing 11:50 and says a new day is coming soon and he is sure these murders and time jumps are connected. On the 25th of July, Makoto will be here in the warehouse locked up. Tsukumo says what can he do and that Makoto will spend the next 24 hours rather pointlessly. But that is it. If time travel is just a figment of his imagination, he will open the door as soon as the 26th arrives. But if he is right, he wonders what Makoto will be like by the time he opens the door. With that, Tsukumo smiles while saying he is looking forward to it and locks the container door. Makoto shouts wait, but the door closes anyway. Inside the container, Aizawa wakes up and asks what is happening and who that man is and what is going on. Makoto looks around quickly and sizes up the situation. There are iron walls all around, a ventilation grill in the ceiling he cannot reach, metal ties on his hands and a bag. Without tools, he cannot do much. The only way out is kicking the door. He realizes with dread that in this scenario, July 25th will repeat forever, and then Shirori's life will be in danger, which is obviously a nightmare since he has been working so hard to avoid exactly this. He grits his teeth and starts smashing himself into the door with everything he has. Our boy is now stuck in a metal box playing the world's worst escape room. At noon on July 25th, Tsukumo stands outside the warehouse, calmly eating a lollipop like a man on a pleasant afternoon, and not at all like someone who locked a teenager in a metal box. He slides open the door a little, calls out to Kusakabe, and asks how many days have passed. Aizawa shouts at him, asking what the hell is going on and who he is anyway. Tsukumo introduces himself pleasantly as a detective, then adds that the boy in front of her is their prime suspect in the serial murder case, and advises her to be more careful with him, calling her young lady. Aizawa goes wide-eyed, asking if that is a lie and whether Makoto is really a murderer. Makoto just says shut up. Tsukumo smirks and says, well, until tomorrow, then corrects himself, saying it is probably better to say until today, and laughs to himself as he closes the door again. Makoto keeps smashing into the door covered in blood. Tsukumo from outside sounds completely unbothered, saying he is very energetic and noting that after 12 hours locked up, there should still be enough strength left, calling it impressive. He asks again how many days have passed. Makoto says nothing and keeps kicking. Tsukumo then says, is it really worth getting so agitated since he promised he would let him go tomorrow, or does he think tomorrow will not come until he gets out of here? He laughs and tells Makoto that with every action he takes, he reinforces his theory and directs his thoughts in the right direction. He then says that the point of his time travel is that murder is a necessary condition for the dawn of a new day and asks if he is right. Then he tells Makoto he has two ways. One is to loop the 25th of July and wait for his own death, and the other is his true face. Aizawa, completely lost, asks what loop means and who this man is and what any of this means. Makoto says nothing. Tsukumo says the other option is murder, leaving the word hanging in the air. Aizawa stammers, asking if that means murder. Makoto just grits his teeth and slams into the door again, making it give just slightly. Tsukumo outside hears the noise and says there is no other way to get out of here. There is no way and there never will be, not to even think about it. The clock hits 23:59:59. Makoto gives one final slam, actually smiling slightly through the blood and the pain, and then midnight arrives. July 25th again. Tsukumo steps outside saying shit twice while checking his watch, which shows 00112. 25th of July again. He walks back to the warehouse saying very energetic and asks Aizawa how Makoto suddenly has blood all over his shoulders when everything was fine a second ago. Aizawa is also completely confused and asks how a second ago he was over there and now he is here. Makoto just mutters damn it to himself and starts kicking all over again. Aizawa keeps asking why Makoto is trying so hard to break out when the detective already promised to let them go tomorrow. Makoto tells her he does not want to trap anyone else in these stupid loops anymore and orders her to stay in her corner. Aizawa asks what kind of loops he is talking about and says she cannot understand any of this. Makoto just replies in this nightmare he does not want to involve anyone else and keeps throwing himself at the door. Aizawa is doing her best to process the situation, which is a lot to ask of anyone sitting in a blood-soaked metal box with a boy who keeps teleporting and screaming. Once again, the day loops and July 25th kicks off for the third time right at noon. Tsukumo strolls in casually while munching away on something straight from a tube labeled Japanese mustard, which pretty much sums up everything you need to know about the kind of guy he is. He glances over at the absolute wreck Makoto has turned himself into, and remarks that he expected Makoto to show a lot more energy and figured he would be tossing and turning all over the place by now. Then he asks once more how many days have passed. Makoto stays completely silent. Aizawa, who is sitting nearby, lets out a sharp half. Tsukumo smiles and mentions that he feels surprised because Makoto has gone way too quiet for his liking. That is when Aizawa finally loses her cool and starts shouting at him while asking how long they are supposed to keep marinating in there and reminding him that he promised to release them on the 26th, so he should just open the door already. Tsukumo mutters something about yesterday and gets this thoughtful look on his face the kind a man makes when he realizes his experiment is going even better than he planned. Makoto collapses to the ground feeling completely drained because without any food or water, every single loop just leaves him weaker than before. He thinks about Shirori and forces himself to keep pushing forward, not for his own sake, but for hers. Then the midnight shaking starts up again and Aizawa jolts upright asking what on earth that is and whether it has been an earthquake, saying it feels like everything around them has been trembling. Makoto thinks of a word that definitely cannot be said here and realizes this marks her third loop as well. He figures she probably will not even notice one-time loop since the environment stays exactly the same and it is tough to keep track of how much time has actually passed. He decides right then not to tell her because he cannot drag anyone else into this mess, not anymore. July 25th starts for the fourth time at noon. Tsukumo shows up looking genuinely surprised for once and comments that Makoto has gone too quiet when he thought the guy would be desperate to get out by now. Aizawa immediately launches into screaming at him again, wanting to know how long they have to stay trapped there and insisting that he promised to free them. So today being the 26th means he should open the door right this second. Tsukumo slides something under the door, telling Makoto it is time to show himself and he should hurry up because time is running out and the moment has finally come. Both Makoto and Aizawa stare at whatever has slid under the door, wondering what it could be. Tsukumo has pushed in a piece of sharp glass. He wants Makoto to kill Aizawa in order to break the loop. A real detective would probably take a salary cut just for coming up with this level of creative problem solving. Makoto stares at the glass while his mind races through everything all at once. If he fails to break the loop, he will die, and then there will never be any tomorrow for Shirori either, as she remains chained to that hospital bed, lost in an eternal today until death finally claims her. He has to kill someone, but she is his younger sister. He calls himself a crybaby, a worthless bastard who is weak and completely useless, barely able to take care of one sister, and now his mother has dumped another one on him without even asking permission. He shouts up at the ceiling that his mother really is something else, and asks what else she plans to pile onto his shoulders, and whether she does not understand that he is just weak. So Makoto tells Aizawa everything. 15 years ago, their mother Miyako left Aizawa and headed to Miyako City, taking young Makoto with her. Then 5 years ago, she left him too and returned to Aizawa. He hates that woman and wanted to kill her, and that is exactly why he came to this city. When he finally finds her, she is lying in the hospital, on her deathbed, which honestly ranks as the least satisfying revenge setup of all time. He tells Aizawa it might be hard to believe, but he is not lying. Aizawa thinks for a moment and remembers the name Miyako. She recalls that when they first met, their mother said she came from Miyako. Then her eyes go wide and she asks if the rest is also true. She explains that she once visited their mother in the hospital where the woman lay delirious, and before losing consciousness, she told her she will not be alone even if the mother dies, since she has an older brother who will take care of her. Aizawa thought she meant Takashi or one of the neighborhood kids and did not give it much thought at the time, but now she realizes exactly who their mother meant. Makoto stares at this new information for a moment and then absolutely loses it. He shouts at the ceiling, calling his mother all kinds of unrepeatable things, asking if she is serious and whether she really expects him to take care of not only Shirori but also Aizawa, and asks if she does not understand that he is just weak, a crybaby, a worthless bastard who can barely function. Aizawa watches all of this unfold and then calls his name. Makoto goes completely still. Then he snaps and stands up with his shredded clothes covered in black goop. He declares that she will not dump anything else on him again. Then he immediately drops down and starts crawling across the floor. There is no time for pity, he needs to reach Shirori. He picks up a piece of broken glass and crawls toward Aizawa's neck with heavy determination. Inside his head, he keeps telling himself that she is a stranger. Nobody. Not his real sister, just a crappy girl he met by chance. He has nothing to do with her and does not even remember her properly. His only real family is Shirori. Blood relation does not matter. He thinks there is no difference, but his hands simply will not move no matter how hard he tries. He makes his final declaration that they are no longer a family. Both of them are complete strangers to him now, and Aizawa's life is none of his concern. Makoto's internal response comes that he does not care about the lives of some strangers. He desperately tries to convince himself, but it clearly is not working. He thinks back on his backstory of moving to this city in elementary school where everyone treated him coldly and kids would not even talk to him. There was a grandfather he barely knew. Then 5 years ago, this mother showed up out of nowhere, acting completely nonchalant about everything. And now here they are in this mess. Aizawa sits alone quietly, thinking that she feels a bit sad being alone. Makoto internally snaps at that and wonders who she is showing off for. Then he completely breaks down. He begs the gods for just one word of yes so his life can end. He wants to end this hell right now and let him die. The fifth loop of July 25th begins at noon. Tsukumo bangs on the door outside, calling out Kusakabe and asking if he is still alive. Makoto opens his eyes and notices Aizawa still has blood on her neck from yesterday. That should have reset, but it did not. Kogura boy just gets the ultimate plot twist delivery. Makoto realizes with shock that this time he did not touch her, but the neck wound still carried over. It finally clicks for him. Anyone who moves through time with him even once gets pulled into the loop forever. He never noticed before because Katigiri had held his hand both times. Aizawa touched him once and that is enough. She is now chained to his hell. Tsukumo slides the glass shard under the door again and thinks about two choices. Either they loop July 25th forever until death takes them both, or he kills Aizawa-san. Whatever Makoto chooses, Aizawa-san will die here anyway. He thinks about saving one sister while sacrificing another. His face splits into something that is not quite a smile and not quite breaking down. The expression of a person running a calculation they already know the answer to but cannot accept. He collapses to the ground and declares that he cannot do that. He lies on the floor of the container with the glass in his hand and apologizes to Shoriji in his head. He tells her he promised to help her and admits he is useless and sorry. Just then, the door creaks open and a light comes through the gap. Makoto squints at the brightness and asks who is there before wondering if it is Tsukumo. The figure in the doorway is not Tsukumo. It is Yane standing there and asking if he can walk while calling him Mako-chan in the specific voice she reserves for when she has found him in the exact condition she was afraid she would find him in. She steps inside and cuts his ropes and tells him to lean on her. Yane looks around the inside of the container and sees Aizawa on the floor as well. She does not have the strength to carry both of them out at once, and she tells Aizawa she is sorry she cannot do more. She frees her from the ropes before pulling Makoto out into the night air. She hands him water outside and tells him to drink slowly while he coughs and shakes against her shoulder. Makoto gets enough air back into him to ask why she came back. He mentions he thought it was over between them. But Yane really showed up like a final boss hound who refuses to let the story end on a bad note. She replies that she thought so too. But after they parted, the day started repeating itself, and she felt with complete certainty that it had something to do with him and what he does. She could not leave that alone. She explains she figured he must have gotten into trouble, found out that Tsukumo was keeping him in a warehouse, waited for her moment, and here she is. Makoto asks if Tsukumo is not going to hurt Aizawa. He notes Tsukumo only wants him, and the detective is not stupid enough to hurt someone who has nothing to do with the murders. They end up sitting on a riverbank somewhere in Toyami in the middle of the night, with Makoto barely upright and Yane next to him. She asks him directly whether what he said to her when they parted is true, that his real face is the face of a killer. He confirms he remembers saying that. Yane recalls she was really disappointed in him when he said it. Back then, she thought she did not want to have anything in common with him anymore. She could not forgive him for killing even for Shiori. She really believed that, and she really meant it. Then the day started repeating. Then she understood what it actually feels like to be the only exit and to be unable to walk through it. She explains she is not going to judge him anymore because she cannot tell what is right and what is wrong in his situation. She genuinely cannot, and she is not as strong as him. Makoto laughs and explains he has to do everything possible and impossible for Shiori to have a new day, and he has been doing it, but he could not kill Aizawa. He says that out loud like it is an admission of failure. He could not kill Aizawa-san. Yane asks who Aizawa is and whether that is the girl from the warehouse. He confirms yes. She asks who she is to him. He tells her that she is his blood sister, his mother's other child, the one who got left at the orphanage when mom went with Makoto to marry Shiori's father, the one who had nobody for years and then got her mother back for 5 years before losing her too. Yane absorbs this and says she is glad he could not kill her. She tells him he is not weak at all. He just cannot kill his sister, and she is very glad about that. Makoto asks if she is not angry at him for dragging her into the loop. She admits yes, she is mad at him for not telling her anything until now, and angry at herself for not noticing what was happening to him even though they have been close friends their whole lives. She says she wants to be next to him now. She wants to share everything with him. Not only the curse of the time loop, but the pain and the suffering and the sins. She looks at him directly when she says sins, and she means it. And she holds the contact until he understands that she is not being naive about what she is offering to share. Makoto looks at her and both of them kiss. Meanwhile, on the other side, Tsukumo is standing alone while Aizawa hits him from behind, throws him inside the container, and locks the door on her way out. She then runs out calling for Makoto, who told her that she is his younger sister. Takomo is sitting in the locked container laughing to himself at 3:15 in the morning, because he clearly heard Aizawa say a few days when she complained about being locked up, and a few days is the exact confirmation he needed. He is bleeding from the head, locked in a warehouse with no phone signal, and is genuinely delighted about this. He looks up at the ceiling where his hidden camera is still attached and thinks that even though Makoto escaped the loop while sitting right here, Tsukumo still has his evidence of the loop's existence recorded on that chip. He tells himself that Makoto cannot get away this time. The scene shifts outside to a hospital building with fire trucks and emergency crews gathered in front of it. The building is burning. Yane is standing in the crowd outside, staring at it. She finds Aizawa among the people outside and asks urgently about her mother, whether she got out in time. A staff member says the supervising nurse was supposed to bring her. Aizawa is standing there holding a crowbar, and when Yane looks at her properly, something clicks. Inside a smoke-damaged room, Makoto is crouched over someone unconscious on the floor. He tells Yane they only fainted. Then he looks up at her and asks if what she told him earlier came from real feeling, and not just the heat of the moment. She should walk away now and he will not hold it against her. He means it, and he is offering her a genuine way out. Mui tells her directly that once this is done, there is no returning to before. Just then, a pair of legs disappears through a window, someone dropping or being pushed out. Makoto notices this and looks up with shock. The scene opens on a woman hanging from a tree with a rope around her neck, and the specific stillness of someone who made a decision and followed through on it completely. The police identify her as the mother of Kajiwara Takumi, 17 years old, one of the boys Makoto killed back when the loop was younger, and so was he. And she died about a week ago, leaving behind a note that covers several things in order. She is not to blame for anything. Other people have decided she is a bad mother and a useless, rotten woman, and she cannot stand living inside that verdict anymore, so she is going to wherever Takumi went. She asks whoever finds the note to tell her husband she is sorry, The last line is not addressed to anyone in particular and does not apologize for anything and simply states that the bastard who killed her son deserves to die, and she means it the way people mean things when they have nothing left to lose by meaning them fully. Yun, the senior detective, reads this out loud in the forest and comments that when it rains it pours, and also that another corpse has turned up and Tsukumo is gone, both of which are true and neither of which solves the other. Mizuno gets a message from Tsukumo at exactly this moment where he apologizes but says the doctors told him he could not conduct experiments and he could not follow his own order, and he tells her to hold on to Shiori at exactly midnight. Mizuno reads this standing in a forest next to a woman who died cursing a killer whose son helped shape him into one, and she stares at her phone in the silence between those two facts and tries to calculate how much longer her faith in Tsukumo's methods is going to hold up under the accumulated weight of this investigation. The look on her face suggests longer than she expected when it started. Meanwhile, Makoto and Yane are on a train heading to the hospital where his mother is admitted. And before they go in, Makoto tells Yane that after this there is no going back and asks if she is ready. She says Makoto in the specific register that means she is not fully ready, but she is also not leaving, which is how she says most things that matter. He raises his voice and tells her to answer properly because he needs to know right now, and if she cannot say it straight, she should get off at the next stop, and she does not move, and he takes a breath and they go in together. His mother is inside and he calls out to her and she opens her eyes slightly and looks at him and then past him at Yane standing near the door, and then she notices what he already has in his hand and asks what kind of example this is supposed to set for Shiori. And what happens if Shiori starts waving a knife around too? She apologizes for looking like this and says she does not feel well and smiles at him and asks whether 6th graders still make him cry the way they used to. Yane stands near the door with her hand over her mouth and asks if the woman remembers her. "Auntie, it's Yae." The mother looks at her with eyes that are soft in a way that costs something to produce and remembers her, and says she never gave her that souvenir from Tokyo, and looks around for it with the sincere intention of someone who genuinely means to find it. She remembers the roller coaster and how many times they rode it and how Makoto would never let up no matter how hard it was for them. And she says it was hard but they had so much fun, and she wishes that day could last forever. But Makoto is shaking by this point because he came here to kill this woman, and has had the knife in his hand since before they walked through the door, and he tells her she is the cause of all their trouble, and he came here to kill her because she destroyed everything. His mother looks at him without fear and asks if this kind of game is fashionable now because boys are very rude sometimes, and then she says his name with the specific gentleness of someone who has been waiting a long time to say it, and is not sure how much time remains to say it and for it. She tells him to close his eyes, and that is when she moves toward the window. Makoto lunges and his hands reach the frame and he can see her legs already going over, and he grabs and his fingers close on air and she hits the ground outside and he shouts "Mom" with everything left in his chest, which is the loudest and most honest thing he has said across this entire story. Yane covers her mouth at the door. Aizawa arrives at the hospital at exactly the wrong moment and sees the body falling from the window above her. Her mother, the woman she could not forgive and could not leave, hitting the ground in a hospital gown in the rain. Aizawa screams her name and runs toward her, while Makoto stares down from the window above with a hand that could not reach in time still extended over the frame. Late that evening, Makoto and Yane are walking along a road near a river somewhere outside Toyami, and they have been on their feet since morning. Yane tells him to rest just a little because they have been walking since sunrise, and Makoto keeps walking because he has places to be and explains that he needs to find a victim since he lost 5 days in the time loop and tomorrow will come this time. Yane steps directly in front of him and suggests that instead of finding someone to kill, maybe they could just rewind back to before his mother was gone. And Makoto stops walking entirely. He looks up at the crescent moon and says that if they go back, he will just go to kill her again, and Yane asks what on earth he is saying because he literally ran to save her. He explains that seeing her fall caught him completely off guard, and in that one moment something shook loose inside him, and every memory he had buried under years of hatred came flooding out at once, and he admits quietly that he just did not want to let her go. He breathes the word "mom" into the dark like it costs him something and then keeps walking. He talks about the people who lost their sons and daughters and fathers and mothers because of him, about how he used these hands to take away so much happiness from so many people in the name of helping his sister for reasons that were ultimately selfish, and he says he has no right to use those same hands to save his mother and that he will have to kill her and every feeling attached to her and every memory, just to take one more step forward. The man is genuinely out here treating his own grief like an item on a to-do list. The Nyotakumani grabs him from behind and pulls him into a hold and tells him he needs to rest and asks him please, and she apologizes to him, and then quieter, like she is talking to the night rather than to him, tells him not to make himself suffer more. Makoto apologizes for not answering her when she asked if she was ready back at the hospital, and she takes his hand and tells him she will not leave him, and promises that this long journey until the 10th of August and Shiori's operation they will get through together, and even after that she will always hold his hand. He says just her name and she holds tighter. Then it starts raining, and the watch ticks toward 23:59, and Makoto notes that soon the 25th will reset, and the rain will stop, and Yane worries about catching a cold, and he tells her it is fine, and they both watch the clock as the rain pours down on them. It hits 0, and then Yane shouts at him to look because the date has changed and it is now the 26th and the rain does not stop. Makoto stares at the clock in complete disbelief because he did not kill anyone, and Yane wonders aloud if the time loop no longer exists. Makoto stands in the rain and works it out slowly and out loud, like a man assembling furniture with instructions in a language he mostly speaks, concluding that maybe just being the cause of a death is enough and maybe he does not have to kill with his own hands, that if someone dies by suicide because of him that would count as equivalent to murder and the gods counted his mother's death. Then he starts laughing, the specific kind that belongs to someone at the absolute end of their rope who just received the most backhanded divine ruling in recorded history. And he tells the gods they are cunning and that there is no way for him to avoid sin and they will not give him even one chance. Then he says it plainly. In the end, it was he who killed the old hag. Yane stands in the rain watching him laugh and does not say anything because genuinely what would you say to that? And he pulls himself together and looks at her and tells her to come on, let's go. And the caption reads, until the 10th of August, 15 people left. It is now July 26th, 10:25 in the morning, and Aizawa steps off the train, looks at the city sign and thinks to herself that this is it. This is his city. She has traveled all this way following the thread of everything Makoto told her back in the container. And she thinks about the image of her mother's body on the ground and Makoto's words about his sister in a hospital somewhere. And she figures out what she is looking for and heads straight to the city hospital. On the same morning, Makoto and Yane are also arriving back in Miyako, and Aizawa is walking slightly ahead of them on this city's timeline without any of them knowing it yet. She moves through the city, turning over Makoto's words about how their mother had no idea of their suffering, and how his sister is seriously ill and how their mother never even knew about it. And she grips her bag and thinks that if Makoto really did kill her mother, she will do something she does not finish. Mizuno had been in a car with her partner Wakasuki heading back to the hospital to attempt Tsukumo's experiment, and Wakasuki was thoroughly losing his mind about the entire situation, asking if she really contacted the hospital and requested permission to physically hold a patient before midnight to test a time travel theory and whether they actually agreed to that. He tells her she is brave for sending requests that strange without a reasonable explanation attached, and tells her not to say she genuinely believes this time travel nonsense, and declares the whole thing useless. Mizuno calmly addresses him and asks him to open his eyes, and he reads from a paper and calls it utter nonsense, reminding her that Inspector Tsukumo, whose time travel presentations the entire department was forced to sit through, is now a suspect in Kusakabe's father's murder and losing colleagues one by one, and he admits he does not know how long his own faith will hold. Mizuno holds her phone and silently asks the inspector to just let her know where he is. Aizawa finds the hospital and Shiori's room, and Makoto is not there. She looks at Shiori through the door, the girl on the bed with the oxygen mask and the tubes, completely unconscious, and registers that this is his sister, and that Shiori is in some sense her sister too. Then she decides she has no feelings for her and is wasting her time and turns to leave, and that is when Shiori stirs. Shiori opens her eyes but is not fully conscious and not fully present, reaching toward a word that keeps moving away from her and manages to say brother, landing somewhere near it without quite arriving, clearly thinking about someone who is not in the room. Aizawa tells her she is confusing her for someone else and that she is not Kusakabe, and Shiori looks at her through the oxygen mask and produces exactly 3 words: please, no more. Then her eyes close again and Aizawa stands there holding those 3 words. For Mizuno gets to the hospital and walks into Shiori's room while Aizawa is already there, and when she sees a woman in a suit asking questions, she immediately identifies this as the police, and her expression shifts into the very specific look of someone deciding in real time exactly how much of anything to give away. Shiori is in the bed with the oxygen mask on and barely present, and both women are standing on either side of her. Mizuno flashes her badge and asks if Aizawa came to visit, and notes she has never seen her here before and asks for her name, and Aizawa immediately backs up and asks why does her name even matter. Mizuno clarifies she is police, and Aizawa's face shifts in about half a second as she clocks that this is probably about Makoto, and decides she wants absolutely no part of this conversation, and tells Mizuno good luck with everything and exits the room so fast that Mizuno barely has time to react. Mizuno shouts toward the bed like a reflex, and then tells Wakasuki that a girl just ran out acting very strange, and they need to catch her, and Wakasuki asks what happened, and Mizuno is already moving. The clock outside reads 23:20, and across the city Makoto and Yane are somewhere in crowds. Neither of them knows, while Makoto lets whatever it is inside him that selects people do its work. Yane watches him scan the crowd and asks how he is even supposed to choose a victim when they are completely new here and know nothing about anyone. And he tells her his intuition will handle it, and he will kill whoever he thinks deserves it. Then immediately adds that she should not get the wrong idea because he is not some executioner dispensing justice for people's sins, and he only kills for Shiori, which makes him an ordinary murderer with no justice in what he does, and she should not go looking for any. Yane stares at him after this little speech with the expression of someone who has just been handed a philosophy she has no sentence large enough to respond to. A large man walks straight into Yane without stopping, tells her to go do something anatomically impossible to herself, and keeps moving. And Makoto turns and watches the man's back and quietly notes he is alone and tells Yane to come on. She asks if he means right now, already, just like that, and Makoto has already started following. He tells her it is okay if she does not want to come and she can wait somewhere until he is finished. But she should be careful because this time he is going to remove some organs before the victim actually dies, so the loop closes early and she should stay hidden so she does not startle anyone when she travels back. Yane looks at his face trembling slightly and tells him no, she is coming. Across the city, Aizawa has outrun Mizuno and is sitting on a curb, catching her breath and thinking she barely escaped that unhinged detective situation, and that police in general cannot be trusted. And then she looks up and finds Mizuno standing in front of her. She registers in real time that the person standing in front of her covered in evidence is the prime suspect in an active serial murder investigation, and she looks back at her with the expression of someone who is not going to be explaining anything. The large man is in the alley too, not having gotten very far, and he asks what Makoto wants and what he even did. And Makoto tells him not to waste his words and produces his knife, and the man tries to fight back, and Makoto puts him down quickly and without ceremony. Aizawa watches from the side with wide eyes while Mizuno appears behind her and grabs her arm, and Aizawa shouts that she does not trust cops and is not talking to anyone. And Mizuno asks why not, and Aizawa tells her to go ask that to her unhinged colleague who is currently lying half dead in a container in a warehouse. Mizuno freezes completely and asks very carefully whether Aizawa has seen Inspector Tsukumo. The clock reads 23:59:50, and Makoto tells the dying man not to go yet and asks Yane to get a towel and a plastic bag because in 10 seconds the loop will close, and the man will be sent back to where he was 24 hours ago with some pieces missing. Yane repeats his name in the shaking voice of someone who agreed to something and is still catching up to what agreeing actually meant, and the man grabs Makoto with everything he has left and will not release his grip, and Makoto shouts at him to get off because if he does not let go, they are traveling together. Yane runs in and shoves the man away with 3 seconds on the clock, and it hits 0, and the man disappears, and the rain starts and July 26th begins again. Makoto thanks her, and Yane is on the ground in the rain looking at her hands, and she says she killed, and then she looks up and says she killed a man with him. Makoto says her name, just that, and then nothing more because nothing more fits. The loop resets, and Mizuno is suddenly standing in the rain with Aizawa beside her and Wakasuki simply gone while the people around them are losing their minds because 2 women just materialized in the middle of a street, and someone shouts that those 2 appeared out of nowhere. Mizuno stands in the rain and her face cycles through several stages very quickly before she says out loud that the day has started again, and then says, with the full weight of someone saying something about themselves for the first time, that she traveled in time. She thinks through what Tsukumo told her, that to be transported back 24 hours all you need is to be touching someone who can travel in time. And she looks at Aizawa standing next to her, this teenager she grabbed in a hospital corridor and chased through a street, and understands that this girl just accidentally dragged her back 24 hours. She thinks quietly, is that what you meant, Inspector? Then she says out loud that she needs to hold on to Kusakabe Shiori. Aizawa is also doing math and points out that today is the 26th, which means she spent 3 days in the warehouse and got locked up on the 25th, so logically today should be the 30th, but it is the 26th, which is complete nonsense since Makoto reset 5 days in that container, and now the 26th exists again, and she is standing in it soaking wet next to a detective who just accidentally time-traveled by grabbing her arm. Mizuno grabs her and asks what she did and tells her to explain everything exactly as it happened, and demands to know where Kusakabe Makoto is right now, and essentially asks what in the world is going on. Takumi Aizawa tells her to go ask that to her unhinged colleague who is half dead in a container in a warehouse, which is the second time she has said this sentence tonight across 2 different timelines, and Mizuno looks at her and makes the professional calculation fast. She says let us get out of here, and in her head repeats that she needs to hold on to Kusakabe Shiori, because she is now on a version of July 26th that nobody else in the department even knows exists, which means she is the only person positioned to do exactly what Tsukumo asked. Natazawa looks at Mizuno standing in the rain firing time travel questions at a high school girl. Mizuno points out that whatever one wants to believe they are both currently living July 26th for the second time, and Aizawa stares at her and says she cannot believe her eyes because an investigator is literally bowing in front of a high school girl, and that it is genuinely creepier than spending 3 days in a container, which is saying a lot. She also mentions she is not 30 yet, and Mizuno should stop calling her miss. They find a restaurant and get to the part where they lay out the facts, which sounds calmer than it is given that both of them are soaking wet and looking kind of juicy. One of them just time-traveled by accident. Mizuno recaps what she has pieced together. Kusakabe Makoto is Aizawa's older brother. Inspector Tsukumo locked them both in the warehouse. On the 4th day, Makoto disappeared, and in response, Aizawa locked Tsukumo in the container and left for Miyako. Aizawa confirms this. Midzuno asks how Aizawa learned to move in time and whether she can control it, and Aizawa says honestly that she does not know and does not understand any of it herself. Midzuno lays out the situation as she sees it, that 2 weeks have passed since the first victim was found and the detectives still cannot figure out what is behind the serial murders and people keep dying, and she asks Aizawa directly whether Makoto is really a killer and whether time travel has something to do with it. Aizawa does not answer directly because she is still working out what the answer actually is. The Midzuno then explains that Tsukumo's reasoning for locking them both up was to gather evidence proving the time loop was real, and that this was Makoto's work, and that he was using the loop to commit crimes without consequence. And she adds that they need his abilities to unravel the whole thing. Then she bows and apologizes for what Tsukumo did and asks Aizawa to please help her find him. Aizawa looks at a grown detective bowing to a high school girl in a restaurant and says again that this is genuinely creepier than the container. They go to the warehouse and nobody is there and the container is empty. Aizawa spots something on the floor, a box of chocolate candy that is the exact brand Tsukumo was eating when she last saw him. And Midzuno finds a camera next to it with a note attached reading, "This confirms that the loop exists. The rest I rely on you, signed Tsukumo." This man escaped a locked container, left behind time-stamped video evidence and a handwritten note, and vanished into the city, which is possibly the most Tsukumo thing he has ever done. Later that evening, Makoto and Yane are at a love hotel somewhere in the city, the only kind of place that does not require ID registration, and Makoto is apologizing for having to spend the night somewhere like this. Yane says no, of course not. She has never been to a place like this before, with the very specific energy of someone extremely aware of exactly what kind of place they are in. They sit on the bed in the quiet and both carry varying degrees of what the evening left on them, and neither says anything for a moment. Yane is gripping her own hands and Makoto notices and tells her not to be afraid because he is not going to bang her. He tells him it is not that, it is just when she remembers her hands and what happened to that person. Makoto explains the same as with the man in the car. When the loop closed, part of his internal organs disappeared, and when he woke the next morning in the same place he was 24 hours earlier, those pieces would be missing from inside him and there he would die. The method leaves no traces but costs him another loop day to close, which is a resource he cannot afford to waste given Shiori's condition. He tells Yane this is her last chance to go back if she wants to, and she asks if he wants her there, and he says yes, and she says she wants to always be by his side, but then he tells her it would be wrong for him to hope for something like that because he has already stained himself and sacrifices other people's happiness for tomorrow, and if he dares to think about even a grain of his own happiness, it feels like everything will collapse. He says goodnight and that he will sleep on the floor and lies down. Yane looks at him on the floor and then at the window and tells the room quietly that she loves him and that is why she cannot do it. She cannot go home and leave him here, and she would stay by his side even after all of this ends. Makoto says her name quietly and she does not say anything more. Meanwhile, Midzuno is in front of a room full of colleagues showing them Tsukumo's camera footage, and she tells them he left a videotape and disappeared, and that based on the timestamp data, the 25th of July is coming again. The team watches the footage and at 23:59:59 both people in the container instantly move, and someone says it is impossible, and someone else suggests Tsukumo could have forged the record, and Midzuno asks them what they plan to do with the testimony of a girl who spent 3 days in a warehouse if they are going to call the tape fake. Wakasuki calls it nonsense, and says the girl is obviously Makoto's accomplice, and Midzuno should open her eyes, and Midzuno tells him she already sat through his sermon about the disappeared day. The senior officer Takanashi says that based only on what he saw he is inclined to believe, and the room goes quiet. Midzuno says they should run an experiment and then they will all see for themselves, and Aizawa, sitting off to the side, asks what kind of experiment. Midzuno looks at her, and Aizawa looks back and says nothing more. And across the city in the Love Hotel, the clock on the wall reads 23:59:59 and hits 0, and July 27th arrives and the rain does not start and the day does not reset. Yane stands at the window in the silence of a room that has just become tomorrow and does not say anything, which is the closest thing to relief this story currently allows her. The scene shifts to Miyako, July 27th, 0:45 in the morning, at Midzuno's apartment. She has brought Aizawa home with her because there is nowhere else to put a teenager who just accidentally time-traveled into the middle of a murder investigation, and the police department does not have a women's dormitory, and Midzuno lives alone anyway, and she opens the door and immediately starts listing everything she needs to sort out. One futon, no pajamas, but her shirt might do, bathroom first if she needs it. She's running through hospitality logistics with the focused energy of someone using practical tasks to avoid thinking about the larger situation she is in, and Aizawa stands in the doorway of the apartment of a detective who is supposed to be hunting her brother. Idzuno feeds her, and Aizawa is extremely hungry, which is the most normal thing that has happened to either of them in several days. They are getting ready to sleep, and Midzuno realizes she forgot to buy panties, which she says out loud, and her size would not fit Aizawa anyway, and she also covers the toothbrush situation. And the delivery of all of this is so matter-of-fact that Aizawa just stares at her. Mizuno tells her not to worry and says she will notify the juvenile department that Aizawa is under her protection. And Aizawa says that is not what she is worried about, and that what she is worried about is the time travel. Mizuno turns to her and says she is sorry for dragging her, basically an outsider, into all of this and sorry that she could not take them back in time. And the clock reads 0:50, and Aizawa says, Mizuno, didn't you say yourself you do not know how it works? Mizuno's face does something complicated because they were colleagues who thought she was lying, and now the 26th happened twice. And Wakasuki walked out and she is standing in her apartment at 1 in the morning apologizing to a high school girl she barely knows. Mizuno tells Aizawa she is a very kind girl, but she probably has enough of her own problems right now with her mother and with Kusakabe, and Aizawa says Muwell, which is the sound of someone who cannot dispute this. Mizuno says first they need a good night's sleep, and then tomorrow they will figure out how they should be. And then she makes a face like a ridiculous festival mask designed to startle children into laughing, and says, well, go take a shower, just be careful not to burn yourself with the hot water. Aizawa looks at her and says that's thanks and means something larger than the word covers, and goes to the shower while Mizuno stands at the window in the dark and looks at the crescent moon and says, into it, where are you? The evening of the same day, 22:05, a man with a shaved head walks out of a bar district waving off a hostess, telling him to be careful, saying Yago in the tone of someone who has been saying that all evening, and meaning it less each time. He gets to his car in the dark and gets in and starts the engine. And he is smiling, the specific smile of someone who has had too much to drink and believes this is entirely manageable. Makoto has been watching him since morning, and notes that in places like this the chances of running into someone like this are very high. And he comes through the car window fast and has the knife at the man's face before the man understands what is happening, telling him he was going to drive drunk and to get in the passenger seat. The man produces the standard response of someone who does not yet understand what kind of transaction is actually being proposed, saying spare him, he can pay, he has money, and Makoto says they do not need money, and that what they need is a new day. Yane is in the passenger seat watching, and then it is over in the way these things are over in this story, which is very fast and very completely, and they are on a dark road outside the city. And Makoto tells Yane to stand on the sidelines. Then the man is not entirely dead, and Yane realizes this first because he is still producing sound, barely the kind that belongs to someone trying to say help me with what is left of a functioning mouth. And she says that is bad, he is still alive, and she has the knife Makoto gave her for self-defense. She raises it, and Makoto shouts at her asking what she is doing, and she tells him that if he puts his knife in the man, the loop will count the kill as Makoto's, and a new day will come. But if she does it, the loop might not count it, which would mean tomorrow does not come, and the day is wasted. She has been paying attention to how the mechanics of this work and understood the rule and acted on it before Makoto could stop her, which is the most alarming sentence in this chapter and possibly the last several. But Makoto shouts at her to calm down and says the man is not going anywhere anymore and he will still die, so they should go. And Yane lowers the knife. They leave the car and another vehicle passes on the dark road and does not slow down, and they figure out between them that the driver probably did not see them, or if he did not register what he was seeing, and they need to get far away regardless. Makoto tells Yane to return the knife he gave her for self-defense, and she hands it back. And he says about tomorrow's victim, he will cut out the insides and they will spend another day in the time loop, and they need to secure an alibi for today, so they will definitely be far from the murder scene when it is found. Yane says sorry, she should not have, it is because of her that, and Makoto says one way or another they would have found the body tomorrow, and by then they need to be as far as possible. They walk into the trees, both of them covered in what the evening left on them. The crescent moon above looking exactly the same as it did the night before, and the night before that. 14 people left. They are walking through the trees, and Yane says that killing is his business and asks what the point of being together is, if that is the case, and Makoto tells her she does not have to kill people. She turns on him with the full force of someone who has been holding this in since the riverbank, and says didn't she promise to share his sins with him, and that she hates the idea of being just a burden, and if need be she will kill herself, so he and Shiori can see the new day, and she says she is ready. Makoto shouts at her not to say that, and says he does not even want to hear about it, and then stops and says quieter, okay, but remember, his mother's death counted because he cornered her, and if Yako commits suicide, there is absolutely no guarantee the gods will recognize him as the cause of her death. He is telling her the rule as a reason for her not to try it, which is the sentence he uses instead of please don't. Yako looks at him and he looks back at her and says her name quietly, and says he knows that look and that she would not hurt Shiori, ever, and that she is not like that. Yane's face in the dark does not confirm or deny this, which is its own kind of answer that Makoto files away and does not say anything more about. They keep walking and the crescent moon sits above the trees watching both of them with complete indifference. The night ends with a television report about a body found in Nanto City, J Prefecture. No external wounds and internal organs missing on autopsy, and the drunk driver from the previous night has entered the public record in the most undignified way possible. The manner of his death is now a news story being watched by people with specific reasons to watch it. Katigiri Shiharu is standing on the hospital stairwell with a knife pressed to her own throat, telling Mizuno to take one more step and she will kill herself, and Mizuno stops, She asks why Katigiri wanted to kill Shiori, and what happened between her and Kusakabe, and Katigiri's destroyed face does something that might be a laugh before she says as if anyone would believe her. Then she explains anyway. She's in the time loop and she killed a person twice, and the door to tomorrow never opened, and the key is in Kusakabe's hands because he is the one opening door after door toward August 10th, and as long as Shiori is alive, he will keep killing every day. She says she wants to save him and that eliminating the source of everything, removing the reason he kills, is the only path to a happy ending. Mizuno tells her that is not a chance she is getting and she will not let her touch Shiori, and Katigiri says she did not listen and that there is no other way to end this hell, and then she lurches forward and they go into the wall together, and there is shouting in the corridor and Takanashi comes through a far door, and Katigiri gets past Mizuno and through the exit. Mizuno is on the floor and tells her colleague she is okay and to run after Katigiri and not let her escape. And then she looks at her phone and it reads 23:59 and she says out loud that this girl can travel through time and if the loop closes today, Katigiri will go back 24 hours and leave them with nothing. And she shouts for everyone to hurry. Katigiri gets outside and the clock ticks to 0, and in the same moment her hand is reaching for someone at the hospital entrance as the loop closes around all of them at once. Katigiri reappears outside and the security officer down the way did not stop her, and she looks at the building and Mizuno is somewhere inside on a floor, and her last words before the scene cuts are, "Sorry, Inspector. It seems she cannot." Then Tsukumo appears at the bottom of the stairwell in a suit eating chocolate and says, "Ha, this time the guess was correct," and addresses the dark around both of them. "Unbelievable, right, Mizuno?" Katigiri is on the stairs having apparently fallen and below her is a trail of dark leading down the steps, and she says, "Asshole," and then quieter, she just wanted to help. The hospital from outside, dawn or something close to it. The building quiet, and the caption reading, "She just wanted to help." Mizuno wakes up in a hospital bed with Aizawa sitting beside her and Takanashi and others behind her, and a doctor explaining that fortunately the wound was not deep, but if they had not arrived in time she could have died. Aizawa had called them and lost Mizuno, and checked everywhere, and when they finally found her in a pool of blood, they were genuinely frightened. Mizuno looks at her and says her name with a voice that is trying to say something larger than the words available. When the room settles somewhat, Aizawa says quietly that what Mizuno told everyone was not entirely true, and asks what actually happened after. Mizuno explains that she was near the hospital and decided to check on Shiori and accidentally encountered Katigiri, and there was a fight between them, and that is how she got hurt, and that Katigiri had escaped from the North Miyako Hospital where she had been admitted. Aizawa says, "What, Katigiri?" Mizuno tells the colleagues what she can tell them without also telling them everything, asking them to put Katigiri on the wanted list as soon as possible, and beef up security at Shiori's ward, explaining that Katigiri had wanted to kill Shiori in order to save Kusakabe and spare him from worrying about his sick sister. Pidao. When the room empties to some degree, Aizawa asks again why Mizuno lied to them and what actually happened. Mizuno looks at her and says Katigiri confirmed that Makoto Kusakabe is the killer, and that he kills one person every day to prevent the time loop from closing, and then asks what he is going to do. She says she wants to find Inspector Tsukumo, because he was right from the start and only he can tell her what to do next, and she holds up his chocolate wrapper which she has been carrying this whole time. She looks at Aizawa and asks what she plans to do, and Aizawa looks back at her with eyes that have been doing a lot of work tonight and says her name. Someone in a knit cap and glasses is walking through the police crowd outside the hospital, slipping past them, belonging to other news. The deaths have multiplied and the news has noticed. Multiple victims across the Kanto region, no wounds, death from blood loss, organs absent on autopsy. A professor delivers the non-explanation that experts deliver when data has outrun their frameworks, saying this is a first and it may be illness or it may be some kind of accident, and further study is required, and he says this with the specific confidence of someone who does not yet have a better explanation, and is not ready to admit that. The map of incidents is drifting westward, and Yane watches the report and understands exactly what it means, because this is Makoto's work spreading across the country as they move. At July 29th, early afternoon, Mizuno and Aizawa are at the hospital together, and Mizuno is on the phone hearing about a friend of Aizawa's who died of the same inexplicable causes. Aizawa asks carefully whether any of this happened before when Kusakabe was still in Toyami, because when Takashi died, Kusakabe was at her house and he could not have done it. Mizuno stops her and asks, but if a day disappeared after the loop closed, is she still sure? This is the question that has been sitting in the room for a long time and has now been said out loud, and Aizawa has no clean answer for it. Mizuno thinks about the westward drift of the incidents, and wonders if Tsukumo also sees Kusakabe's shadow behind these. The scene shifts to west of Nanto Prefecture, a hand on a railing with blood dripping from the fingers. Makoto and Yane are in a resort town, one day into the 29th and needing a kill before midnight or the loop resets, and they lose the day entirely. Makoto divides the station exits between them, and gives Yane a prepaid phone bought from untraceable foreigners, the kind he and Katigiri used before, and tells her to throw away her regular phone. She asks why, and he says she has crossed into hell now, and should discard everything that connects her to before. She does not particularly like this and does not argue with it either. Then he says the quieter thing. He does not think he will ever see Shiori again, and from here it is just the two of them, opening doors to tomorrow together anywhere. And he does not say this with hope, but with the specific flatness of someone describing a sentence they have accepted. Yane says just his name. The scene shifts to a bar called River Hunt, a private event for a university golf club's summer sports camp, the specific kind of party where people feel entitled to do things that would not survive contact with the outside world. Yane has gotten inside and she is sitting in the booth watching a club captain named Takahara run the room with the particular entitlement of someone who has decided that other people exist to accommodate him. A first-year girl is being force-fed alcohol, past the point where she is asking them to stop, and Takahara watches this and calls it the main event of the summer sports camp. And someone carries the blacked-out girl in a direction that requires no further explanation. Yane's in the corner booth and her face is in shadow in a way that is not accidental. On the south side of town, Makoto finds nothing, and he is running out of time and his phone buzzes with a text from Yane, saying she has not found a single suspicious man, and asking what they should do. He texts back that today they will close the loop, and to meet him at the station, puts the phone away, and notices through the trees a well-lit house in the forest with the captain's car parked outside. His expression is the one that belongs to a person who has just made a decision that will not be reversible. Yane arrives at the captain's villa in the forest. Inside she finds two women, clearly drugged and scattered paraphernalia on the table with syringes and a spoon, and she registers what she is looking at and says the word drugs like someone confirming a thing they hoped they had misread. The captain is not in the room. She finds Makoto's knife in her things, goes outside and finds the captain in the dark. She beats him with a piece of wood from the golf bag he brought to his own private party. He goes down and gets back up because he has been the captain for 7 years and is not accustomed to losing, and he says so, and then he looks at her more carefully and says she is not bad looking. Yane's phone buzzes, and Makoto has texted saying he found a victim and will call later. She calls back and gets no answer and tries again, and the captain, who is now in control of the situation in his own estimation, drags Makoto's unconscious body inside and announces that tonight he will have fun with him. The scene shifts to the forest house at night. Makoto comes back to consciousness in a dark room with his wrists bound, lying on a bed covered in blood with no immediate understanding of where he is or how he arrived. The captain is there and pleased that he woke up. Makoto pulls at the restraints. The captain is in a genuinely good mood and explains he had such plans for all three of them. But Makoto ruined it, and now he is considering alternatives, including killing him and calling it self-defense, because he has, after all, been the captain for 7 years. He says he has never been denied anything since childhood, not money, or women, or any pleasure, and now he has found a toy and wants to play with it. He picks up a syringe from the paraphernalia on the table and explains that from a dose like this, Makoto will go completely mad, and he says it with genuine enthusiasm for the novelty of it. Makoto checks the clock on the wall and it reads July 29th and he is almost out of time. He shouts at the captain to stop, and the captain says it is his own knife found in his things, and announces a change of program, that instead of a strip show they will have an anatomical theater, and he raises the knife and asks where to start, maybe from the ear. Makoto thinks he cannot die in a place like this. Then the clock ticks to exactly midnight. The loop closes. The captain finds himself holding a knife over an empty bed with the restraints still there and the blood still there and Makoto simply gone. And he asks where they went and looks at his hands and finds he is no longer high. His phone rings with a club member calling to ask where he is and saying the captain vanished right in front of everyone at the party. The captain says the party should be long over and it should be the 30th by now, and the club member says it is July 28th. The captain looks at his calendar and it reads the 28th, and he turns around to find Makoto across the room, badly beaten and barely upright. Makoto tells the captain about the time loop. The captain believes him immediately because he watched time rewind with his own eyes and has no other framework for what just happened. And he says cool, genuinely delighted, and confirms that he himself saw time rewind 24 hours and has absolutely no doubt. Then he looks at the pill bottle on the shelf and thinks about what he now has in his hands, which is a person who can control time. He says this is really possible. He forces sleeping pills into Makoto's mouth and tells him to swallow or he will kill him right now and to get some sleep. And he leaves the room smiling while Makoto lies there wondering what this man actually wants from him. That same evening, a Hummer drives straight into a crowd on a public street, and people scatter and there is screaming and the vehicle crashes, and he gets out with a knife and has Yane by the throat, using her as a shield when the police arrive and draw on him. He tells the officer to be careful about accidentally shooting her, and then fires a revolver taken from a downed officer into the crowd and shouts for Yane to get in the car, and they drive with him laughing the entire way while the city goes past the windshield. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, at that same moment, Yane is standing outside a station reading her phone. Makoto's last message said he found a victim and would call later, and there has been nothing since. She has called back and left messages, and she stands on a bench in a park, thinking that the loop must have closed so he could not kill that person, and wondering if something happened to him. Around her, bystanders are relaying fragments of the chaos near the station, that someone was killed there, that a driver crashed into the crowd. She wonders if it could be Makoto. Then she hears the driver shouting something about a time loop. Yane goes completely still. Back at the villa, the captain is giddy in the way that people are giddy when they have discovered something that completely removes their remaining sense of consequence. Meanwhile, Yane pushes toward the police cordon and calls his number, and the phone rings somewhere and the call drops. The captain has Makoto suspended by his wrists and is circling him and talking, and he announces his decision that Makoto will be his and he will have fun with him as much as he wants for as long as he wants, until he gets bored, all of it courtesy of the loop, which he finds genuinely incredible. Suddenly the loop resets and Yone appears in the middle of the crowd. She calls Makoto again and gets nothing, and she asks the people around her who did this, and someone says maybe a high schooler, and she screams into the phone. The person calling from the booth is Katigiri, in her knit cap and glasses, and she stares at the phone and works out that Yone has her cell phone, and slams the booth door open. Katigiri is standing at a payphone staring at an incoming call on her own cell phone, except her cell phone is in someone else's hands. Yane has it. Katigiri stares at the screen and cannot believe what she is seeing. She slams the phone booth door open and starts putting it together. Yane and Kusakabe-kun went on a trip together. They arranged something in a cozy villa somewhere. Dirty Thief is what she calls her. She looks at the location on the screen. Karanosaka. She says out loud to nobody in particular that Kusakabe-kun is hers and nobody else's. Then she injects something into her arm, laughs to herself outside the booth with the forest villa visible behind her, and gets moving. However, in back at that same villa, the captain has already moved on from Makoto as entertainment for the moment. He is on his phone calling his club boys, telling them to forget the sports camp and come to his villa right now because he has something to show them they will not believe. 5 of them are coming tonight, and the rest tomorrow. He turns back to Makoto and tells him that until his boys arrive, he needs to do something to relieve the tension. He has decided to take a ride into the city and arrange a massacre. He says it the way someone says they are going out to grab a coffee. He is already smiling when he says it. The chapter ends on that smile and on Makoto still hanging there bound, thinking about Shiori, thinking about what this man is about to do to a city full of people, on a day that will reset and reset and reset for as long as the captain finds it fun. The loop closes, July 29th starts again. Yane is back at square one with nothing but Makoto's last text on her phone saying he found a victim and would call later. He never called. She checks the call log and sees the last incoming call came from a public booth, not from him. She thinks about what she witnessed in the previous loop. The car driving into the crowd, the shouting about time loops, the people who died near the station. That was not Makoto. Someone else did all of that. Makoto got caught by whoever it was somewhere around Karanosaka Station, and she needs to find him before it happens again. In this second version of the day, the captain and his crew are out drinking at Bar River Hunt, where the club party was always supposed to happen. He never showed up in the previous loop because he had already found Makoto by then, but the reset erased all of that and he is back to square one, just like everyone else, sitting with his boys at the bar with no idea any of it happened. Yane spots the loud group and follows the thread. She goes into the bar and quietly asks about a party. The name she gets is Takahara. His family runs a pharmaceutical company. The villa in the forest belongs to them and only the son uses it in summer, throwing parties every single night. His friends mention he never showed up tonight, which they find strange. Yane already knows where he is. If she goes to the villa, the door is open, the noise is coming from upstairs. If she finds upstairs is bad. Makoto is suspended from his wrists and the captain has already been at him for a while, completely relaxed about the whole thing because he knows perfectly well the loop erases everything by morning. Nothing he does tonight has any permanent consequences, and that knowledge has turned him into something genuinely frightening. Yane grabs something from the cabinet and hits him from behind. He crashes down. Makoto calls out to her. She tells him to stay conscious. The captain gets back up bleeding and tells her that good girls do not behave like this. Then he reaches for her, and she throws a bottle of sulfuric acid from the pharmaceutical cabinet directly onto his face. He screams. She pours more. Then she turns away from him. She cuts Makoto down. He immediately tells her the captain cannot be today's kill, because his death will not count toward opening the next day and everything will just reset with nothing gained. She pauses. Then she looks at him and says she already understood that before she made her decision. She tells him he said they were going through life together, just the two of them. She is not a burden. She can protect him. Trust her. She is his partner. She can protect him. Makoto looks at her face and the smile on it is the face of someone who has walked into somewhere completely new and found they are not frightened of it. He says her name quietly. She tells him she is so glad he is alive. Then headlights sweep through the window. The captain's club friends have arrived at the villa. Makoto says they need to leave right now. Yane says wait. She says they came to us themselves. Her eyes go very wide and very still. There are so many people here, she says, and it is not a pity to kill them. Makoto says her name like a question he is not sure he wants the answer to. The smile on her face does not move. The captain's club friends have let themselves into the villa and are calling out for him, treating the whole thing like a joke. Yane, wearing a gas mask and goggles she found in the captain's supplies, steps out to meet them. She has already mixed chemicals from the pharmaceutical cabinet, and when they get close enough, she releases the gas into the enclosed space. The friends collapse and she moves through them methodically. And when it is over, Makoto and Yane are sitting together in the quiet of the ruined villa with the captain's body nearby and the friends restrained in the basement. Yane tells Makoto what she wants to do, which is keep the group here as hostages and use one of them each day as that day's required kill, so the loop keeps advancing without them having to go out searching. Makoto is stunned and says she was never a burden, and that Shiori is not her problem, and none of this was supposed to involve her, and she says she accepts the rules and that she is his partner and he is wrong about her. She says a future with just the two of them is unlikely to last long, and he thinks about this and says he will leave his future in Shiori's hands. The hostages wake up angry and frightened, and demanding to know where the captain is, and Makoto loses control for a moment and shouts at them to stop, and then Yane tells him to calm down because he already killed Takahara today, and the hostages are people who were about to do serious harm to others at the party. That settles something in him, at least for now. Time passes through several loops, and it is now the third iteration of July 29th. Makoto is sitting in the captain's villa with his laptop watching a local summer news broadcast while counting down to August 10th and thinking 11 people left. The fridge has nothing but alcohol, and Yane tells him they need to shop properly if they plan to stay until the 10th. She takes the captain's Hummer to a shopping mall near the station, and Makoto wants to come, but she says the hostages cannot be left alone even locked in the basement, and she tells him to stay and that she had something she wanted to buy for herself anyway. At the mall, she shops for groceries and thinks about how Makoto is physically worn down and needs proper food because she has decided she is going to protect him. In a store aisle, someone grabs her from behind and tells her not to scream. It is Katigiri in her disguise of hat and glasses and mask, and Yane recognizes her, but Katigiri makes clear she already knows exactly who Yane is and where they have been staying. She says she has already killed Yane twice across previous loops and found it easy enough, and she asks what Yane is doing here with Makoto, before making clear this is not really a question. She says Kusakabe Makoto belongs to her and has from the beginning, and that she was his first and the right to be beside him is hers and no one else's, and she demands Yane take her to him immediately. Katigiri's face is very close to Yane's in the middle of a crowded shopping mall on a summer afternoon, and she is entirely convinced of everything she is saying. The confrontation in the mall ends with Katigiri pressing a knife against Yane and making clear she is not asking. Yane, cut on the arm, goes quiet and thinks about Makoto and how she brought this danger directly to him by going out alone, and she feels like a fool and apologizes to him in her head and decides she will lead Katigiri away. Back at the villa, Makoto is alone. He washes his face and looks at himself in the bathroom mirror, and it is July 29th for the third time, just past 2 in the afternoon, and he does not recognize what looks back at him. He thinks about how he has killed people and seized a villa and locked strangers in a basement and watched all of it happen around him without feeling anything at all, and he wonders when he forgot how to laugh, and he tries, and the sound that comes out does not feel like him. He is sitting alone on the sofa in a large, quiet room, and he wants Yane to come back. Outside on the street, Yane is walking with Katigiri close behind her, and Katigiri is cheerful in the way that is harder to be around than anger. She believes Makoto is waiting nearby and that he regrets everything, and she tells Yane to hurry up and take her to him. Yane leads her toward a forested area outside the populated district, and when Katigiri realizes there is nothing around them, she gets suspicious and demands to know where they are going, and Yane breaks away and runs into the trees. Katigiri is furious and charges in after her screaming, remembering that Yane was an athletics student and realizing she is fast. Inside the forest, they face each other and Katigiri starts talking, and what she says is not small. She says she has always watched Makoto since they were children, and that she is the one who knows him best, better than his parents and better than Shiori, and certainly better than Yane. She says she slept with him and that he killed her mother's partner and then held her while her body was covered in bruises, and she has loved him ever since, and that what they have is beyond anything a childhood friend could offer. Yane says she understands none of it, and that what Makoto felt in that moment was grief and shock and not love, and that Katigiri is building everything on something that was not what she thinks it was. Katigiri pulls her knife and charges, and the fight is fast and brutal, and Yane gets the knife away and cuts her badly, and Katigiri screams and ends up bleeding on the ground, still demanding to know where Makoto is, insisting only she can make him happy and that Yane should accept that. Yane, standing over her, says someone like Katigiri will not make anyone happy, and that she knows Makoto is doomed to suffer for the rest of his life for what he has done, and that she knows there is no future, and that when everything is over, he will face judgment, and his name will mean something terrible. But she says she will be there and that she already made up her mind, even though Makoto told her not to kill unnecessarily. Katigiri on the ground says it does not matter, and that for the sake of his precious sister, Makoto would sacrifice everything, and that Yane cannot help him the way she can, because only she will always love him. Yane says nothing more. Yane is still on the ground in the forest, badly cut, and she keeps talking and says she will stay by his side and be unhappy with him, and suffer whatever he suffers, and share whatever end comes, because that is all she can do. And Katigiri, bleeding out, tells her to stop. Then a man steps out of the trees, and it is a detective who tells Yane if she keeps going, she will bleed to death herself. Yutsukumo is with him along with Midzuno, and Katigiri recognizes them and her face goes blank with shock. Yutsukumo is Aizawa, she could not stay still. and left the hospital on her own, and had already suspected Makoto was connected to a series of deaths involving missing organs. And while quietly tracking Katigiri and Miyako, the loop closed twice, and she saw someone appearing out of nowhere in the middle of a street, which confirmed the loop was real. She figured out Makoto had likely gone to Nanto City because of the reports there, and so she called Aizawa and asked her to find Inspector Tsukumo. And that morning, they followed Katigiri together until Yane appeared, and they assumed she would lead them to Makoto, but she led them into the forest instead. The inspector puts handcuffs on Yane and tells her she is under arrest for killing Katigiri Shiharu in front of a police officer. The time is 15:28. Yane does not resist, and she looks at Mizuno and says quietly that she is sorry, and that she ended up being a burden to Makoto after all, and she tells Mizuno to forget about her. Towards back at the villa, Makoto is sitting alone and the clock is ticking, and Yane has been gone too long and he starts to feel that something has gone wrong. One of the hostages in the basement starts pounding on the door and shouting that another hostage, the one whose eyes Makoto blinded, is dying and needs help. Makoto opens the door and the room below is chaos with hostages screaming and one of them in very bad shape. And Makoto shouts at everyone to be quiet. He tells himself everything is fine. He tells himself Yane is just a little late, but he can feel that she is not coming back. Outside in the police car, Yane is being transported and she is thinking of Makoto the whole time, telling him in her head to stay at the villa and not come looking for her. The detective beside her is asking questions she does not answer. The inspector is on the phone confirming that Yane has been arrested for the killing and caught in the act, and arrangements are made for her to be interrogated at the Miyako police station. Someone asks about Makoto and his location is still unknown. Night comes and the clock turns from July 29th to July 30th. Makoto is sitting in the dark, still waiting, and thinking about how strange it is that he has taken so many lives and felt almost nothing, but the thought of Yane not coming back has him paralyzed with fear. He thinks about the day she pulled him out of the warehouse and saved him from Tsukumo, and every moment she has been beside him since then. He says her name out loud to the empty room and says she is the only reason he held onto his mind through all of this, and that he cannot live without her. He gets up because he has to go. Makoto searched the entire city looking for Yane and found no trace of her, and as the hours passed, hopelessness and anxiety grew inside him and he began preparing himself for the worst. And then near the station the police found him. Inspector Tsukumo was there, calm and smiling, and told him they had been looking for him. Makoto had been ready to accept whatever came and was taken to the Miyako police department. Near the station there is immediate tension because Chief Kagami is furious to see Tsukumo back in Miyako and considers the inspector himself a suspect for the murder of Makoto's father and the kidnapping of both Makoto and Aizawa. Tsukumo stays unbothered. The detective Wakasugi steps in and asks everyone to wait and says Mizuno has important information they need to hear first, adding that he does not personally believe in time jumps, but he believes in Mizuno and wants her to be given a chance to speak before any decisions are made. The inspector agrees to stay and be watched. Chief Kagami, reluctant but outnumbered, backs down after everyone bows and begs together. In her cell, Yane learns that Makoto has been detained and brought to the same police station, and she thinks, why didn't he stay at the villa? She is upset and scared for him. She also finds out she has visitors, her parents, desperate at the front desk, insisting their daughter is not capable of what she is being accused of. Yane tells the officer to send them away because she does not want to see them. The old Yane, the one her parents knew, no longer exists, and she threw that life away and chose a different road. And she looks out through the bars of her cell window and wonders what will become of their tomorrow. To the interrogation room, the same room where Tsukumo first questioned Makoto. And Tsukumo notes this. He gets down to what matters. The killing spree began with a death on July 10th, and there is still no hard evidence directly connecting Makoto to any of the killings, and thorough investigation will eventually confirm his involvement. But Tsukumo does not have time for eventually. He gives Makoto 3 days to prove that the time loop is real, and to prove that Tsukumo did not kill Makoto's father. And if Makoto cannot prove it, then Tsukumo goes to prison. Tsukumo says it is time to end the war between them. Makoto asks why he should trust any of this, and Tsukumo says that from the first moment he saw Makoto's eyes, he knew this was not an ordinary criminal, because the look in them was the look of someone who had sacrificed everything, and ordinary killers do not have that. It is July 30th, nearly midnight, 5 minutes to the end of the day. Makoto is sitting across from Tsukumo in the interrogation room, and the detective lays out what she knows, that Katigiri told them Makoto kills someone every day so the loop can keep moving forward and also his sister Shiori can survive long enough to have her operation. Makoto laughs it off and says the whole thing sounds completely insane and claims to know nothing, and says Katigiri invented everything out of obsession and that Tsukumo and the others were foolish to believe any of it. The detective presses him and says Aizawa was caught in the loop too, just like her. Makoto goes quiet. That one lands differently. Tsukumo points out that the interrogation itself is irregular, and that Makoto has every right to object, and that Tsukumo is technically the one who should be on the other side of the table given the charges against him. Makoto asks why he is even doing this, and Tsukumo says in 3 days one of them will be behind bars, and he would rather it not be him. The clock counts down toward midnight, and Tsukumo holds up a small device and says one never knows, until they try and tells Makoto to take him back in time, 24 hours, and the second hand ticks toward midnight. Midnight arrives. The clock turns to July 31st. Nothing happens, and the room stays the same, and there is no loop and no reset, and Tsukumo and the others look around confused. Makoto says that should be enough and starts to get up, and Tsukumo stops him and points out the loop did not close today because by the time they found Makoto near the station, he had already killed someone earlier that day and the day had already been fulfilled before he was brought in. Makoto lays out the new situation clearly. For the next 3 days, police will watch Makoto at all times and he will not be able to kill anyone the way he did before. On the first day under watch, the loop will not close because he cannot get away to kill, and that means the next night will demonstrate the time travel on its own because a new day will still arrive at midnight, proving that something beyond normal reality is happening, and Makoto will have to demonstrate the loop to all of them. Tsukumo has Mizuno take Makoto to a hotel for the night under guard. In her cell, Yane is on the phone with Mizuno and is shocked to hear that Makoto has been caught and asks why he did not stay at the villa, and is frightened for him, but tells Mizuno not to let him try to save her. Mizuno stands outside the hotel in the night and thinks about what will happen to both of them when the loop finally closes. Mizuno, July 31st, Monday. It is the second day of the interrogation and Makoto agrees to sit in the room again, but says nothing about his crimes and shows no anxiety and just waits. The clock reads 23:56 when Tsukumo and the others gather around Makoto and physically hold his arms, waiting for midnight together. The clock ticks to August 1st. The date changes. Everyone stares in silence and then in confusion because a new day came and Makoto killed no one. Tsukumo turns to Makoto and demands to know why the day moved forward if no one was killed, and someone tells Makoto it is time to come to his senses, and Makoto says one word, timer. He explains that before he left the villa knowing he might get caught, he set things up in Karinosaka. The hostages were kept sedated and tied to chairs with IV drips connected to their arms, and he set phone alarms timed to go off at specific times each day, and when the alarm vibrates, the phone falls, which pulls a clamp off the IV tube and releases poison into the drip. One person died on the 29th, and he killed another on the morning of the 30th before going looking for Yane, and for the remaining 3 he set timers. This way he could keep killing one person a day from inside the interrogation room without anyone knowing. He says the 3 days Tsukumo gave him was exactly how long he needed, and he has 2 days left before the interrogation ends, and the loop will keep advancing, and the war is over and Tsukumo is the one going to prison. Tsukumo immediately orders someone to contact the Karinosaka police and check the location Makoto came from before he was picked up near the station. August 2nd, Wednesday, 23:45. It is the last night of the 3-day deadline, and Mizuno has been working this whole time trying to find the timer device and save any remaining hostages, and she begs for more time. Wakasugi tells her they only have minutes left. The inspector himself is calm and says it is over. Then the older officer Takanashi comes in holding a document and apologizes to Tsukumo because the arrest warrant has come through. Tsukumo says he has no choice then, and Mizuno shouts for everyone to hold on and wait. The scene shifts to August 2nd, 23:46. The arrest warrant for Inspector Tsukumo has just been presented. Mizuno shouts for everyone to wait and begs for just a few more minutes until midnight, and Tsukumo says he has given them enough time and that these are all just ridiculous ideas, and tells the detectives to wake up and starts walking out. Everyone scrambles after him demanding he stop, and he pushes through them and runs out of the building into the night, and the others chase him down the street, shouting at him to freeze. He gets to a car and tries to get in, but Mizuno catches up to him and he grabs her and holds something to her and warns everyone not to come closer. Chief Kagami shouts that Tsukumo has finally shown his real face, and Tsukumo holds Mizuno and tells her quietly to listen to him, and she says if he does this he will ruin himself, and he says he knows, and then tells her something directly, just to her, something the story does not give the reader yet. Then a car crashes nearby, and in the chaos, Tsukumo gets away, taking Mizuno with him. August 3rd, just past midnight. Makoto is still being held, and the detective with glasses informs him that Tsukumo escaped and also took Mizuno as a hostage. Makoto is stunned and asks how long they plan to keep holding him. Takanashi comes in and they decide to release Makoto for now, but keep surveillance on him. Makoto asks about the promise Tsukumo made about letting him see Yane, and they honor it, and he is taken to the visiting room. Yane is already there when Makoto walks in, and she leaps up when she sees him, and he reaches for her through the barrier, and they are separated by the glass, but both of them are saying each other's names at once, and the guard tells them to sit down. Makoto asks if they hurt her, and she says she is fine and asks the same about him. Noticing he is injured, and he tells her he has been cleared of suspicion for now. He has so much he wants to say and cannot say any of it here with the guard watching, and she looks at him and tells him quietly that this looks like their last meeting, and says she loves him no matter what and that she will always be with him and that her life belongs to him. The guard steps in and ends the visit, and Makoto is pulled away, saying her name as the door closes and says it one more time as the building falls behind him. August 3rd, Thursday 15:15, Miyako City Hospital, Ward 208. A young man named Seto is sitting in the hospital corridor checking his phone, and a police officer is posted outside Shiori's room. Seto says he goes to the same school as Makoto and has come to visit Shiori, and the officer checks his bag and lets him through. Inside, Shiori is in the bed unconscious with a breathing mask, and he sits beside her and says her name softly. The story shifts to a memory. A kendo practice hall where Seto is sparring against a girl and losing badly, and she scores the point, and her instructor notes that Seto's counter always reads the same way. Afterward, the girl introduces herself and they fall into easy conversation, and her name is Shiori, and she tells him she can always read him because she is good at reading people, especially him because he reminds her of her brother in his openness. He complains that she always wins and asks how, and she says maybe telepathy and laughs. Then she notices something and tells him he has been slower lately and that his body is weakening, and he goes quiet and she catches it before he can brush it off. Shortly after that, she was hospitalized and rumors went around about her family and what her brother was doing, but Seto did not pay attention to them and just kept visiting. Back in the present, he tells her the surgery is in a week and she should not give up on any of it. When he finally stands to leave and gets as far as the door, Shiori stirs. She is barely there, barely conscious, but she manages to find his name and pull him back around. Her words come out fragmented and broken, but the shape of what she is trying to say is unmistakable. She wants him to save her brother. Seto is confused and asks what her brother has to do with any of this. Shiori has tears moving down her face without the strength to form a proper explanation. Just Makoto's name repeated between labored breaths and a please that carries more weight than that single word was built to hold. Seto sits back down beside her. That same evening on the other side of the city, Tsukumo and Mizuno are sitting together in his car in the woods. He apologizes to her and calls her his partner and tells her their roads separate here. He gets out of the car with her and then makes the division clear by staying behind himself. He needs a new day, which has become the shorthand he uses for the thing he is about to go and do alone, so that none of what follows lands on her. He says he is the only one left who can manage it at this point anyway. That same evening, Makoto is running through the same problem from the opposite end. He knows the last hostage arrangement from the day before is gone, which means the loop will not close on its own at midnight the way it has been. He needs one more death within the week to keep things moving towards Shiori's surgery. His plan is the cleanest one available to him. He will stay inside the house, let the loop close at midnight around him, reset the last 24 hours, and walk free of the surveillance parked outside his front door in the process. He stands in his room and looks at a photo of Shiori smiling and thinks about how far he has managed to carry all of this. He thinks about Yane too and holds on to her words from the visit earlier and says her name into the silence before he lies down. Closer to midnight, the shift change happens outside. Two officers exchanging the kind of board briefing that belongs to people who have spent a full day watching a teenager sit in his room doing nothing of note. Makoto muttered occasionally, nothing unusual, everything quiet. Then a radio alert pushes through to every Miyako station simultaneously, and whatever remained routine about that moment disappears in under a second. Inside the house, Makoto jolts awake from a crash downstairs and goes to check and finds one of the officers already on the ground outside, knocked out cold. Before the confusion has any room to settle into something he can act on, he turns around and Tsukumo is already standing in his room in a suit with something in his hand, composed in that particular way of his that has always managed to be more unsettling than any amount of open panic would be. Makoto cuts straight to it and asks if Tsukumo came here to kill him. Tsukumo says he has the wrong idea entirely. He just came to deliver some information. What he then lays out is that he sent a false bomb threat to the entire police department, claiming he had planted explosives at the hospital where Shiori is currently being treated. Back at the station, Takanashi and Wakasugi are running through full panic because when they searched Tsukumo's apartment, they found detailed floor plans and hospital schematics laid out carefully. And a man who has already done a string of deeply alarming things is now apparently threatening a building full of patients, so the entire department has accepted it as real and is scrambling to act. Their immediate response is to move Shiori out of that hospital as fast as possible. She's already in an ambulance and on the road. While Makoto asks if there is actually a bomb, Tsukumo tells him to relax, there is no bomb, the whole thing was fabricated, but the police have no reason to doubt it and the ambulance is already moving. Makoto looks at him carefully and points out that the expression sitting on Tsukumo's face belongs to a cold and calculating person, not someone who has cracked and lost their mind. He has already worked out what Tsukumo has engineered here. Tsukumo acknowledges it without any visible reaction to being read so accurately. The trap is this. Makoto had been planning to let the loop close at midnight from inside the house, roll back the last 24 hours and walk free of the surveillance outside in the reset. But if the loop closes at midnight now, the ambulance carrying Shiori disappears along with everything from the last 24 hours. Shiori is mid-transfer and completely dependent on her equipment in that vehicle, and she will die somewhere inside that rollback. The clock on the wall reads 23:57, 3 minutes left. Tsukumo lays out the only remaining option without any sentiment attached to its delivery. Makoto has to kill someone right now, break the loop before midnight arrives, and keep Shiori alive in the ambulance on the other side of midnight. Tsukumo already knows the loop exists. already knows how Makoto has been keeping it from closing, and this moment will confirm all of it in front of a living witness. Makoto has been holding a knife at his side throughout this entire conversation. Tsukumo says the price he is putting forward is his own life, right here and right now. Both of them stand facing each other in the room with the clock ticking, and the chapter stops before either of them moves. 23:58. Tsukumo uses the remaining minutes the way he uses all available time, without wasting any of it on hesitation or anything that is not the immediate point. He lays it out one final time. If nothing happens, the loop closes at midnight. Time rolls back 24 hours, and Shiori, who is in an ambulance right now, simply ceases to exist in that moment. She dies in the reset. He tells Makoto to kill him the same way he has killed everyone else, to keep the loop from closing, and points out that this is probably not even the first time they have stood here like this. Only every previous version of this exact confrontation dissolved back into the loop and left absolutely nothing behind. He is a detective, and if Makoto lets him leave here tonight, he will chase him without stopping for as long as he is alive. So he is standing here and offering himself, and he turns briefly to address the conscious officer still on the floor and tells him to sit perfectly still and burn every detail of what he is about to see into his memory. Makoto looks at Tsukumo and says it is useless and that there is no other exit from this, and that it is time for both of them to show each other exactly who they are. He lunges across the room. The knife goes in. Tsukumo laughs through the blood coming up and says he finally saw it, and he is satisfied with that. Genuinely satisfied, and he thanks Makoto and tells him he will be waiting in hell, and breathes Mizuno's name quietly as he goes down to the floor. The clock flips to August 4th, 0000, a new day. The loop breaks. The officer on the floor stares up at Makoto standing there covered in blood and cannot find words for what he just witnessed. Makoto says out loud that there is no point in denying any part of it anymore. Then he looks down at Tsukumo and something does not make sense. Tsukumo is still breathing, barely and horribly, and with a sound that does not match what just happened, but breathing nonetheless. The clock reads 0001. The loop closed. A new day came. But Tsukumo did not die, and that means something else caused the loop to close before midnight, because Tsukumo still being alive means Makoto's knife was not what broke it. Makoto stands up blood-soaked and says out loud that he is a murderer, and that the victim does not matter and anyone will do, and turns toward the injured officer who screams at him to stay back. Then a radio crackles somewhere in the house. At 23:58, Yahe, currently held at Miyako Police Department, committed suicide. Makoto hears that name and everything inside him shuts down at once. In the cells, Yane is on the floor, barely conscious, with officers rushing in around her in complete chaos. She is heard through all the noise asking someone to make sure tomorrow actually comes, calling Makoto's name over and over, telling him she is sorry. She had understood what Tsukumo was constructing. She understood that the loop needed to close before midnight, and that if Makoto could not bring himself to be the cause of a death before the clock turned, she could become that cause herself from inside her cell. So she did, for him. For Shiori lying in that ambulance moving through the city in the rain, so that tomorrow would be real and not another reset pulling everything back into nothing. Makoto hears the radio repeat the message and drops straight to his knees on the floor. The words "not true" and "cannot be true" come out of him in broken fragments that scatter across the whole page, breaking apart in exactly the way he is breaking apart right now, sitting in someone else's blood, while the news of what Yane did to herself fills the air around him and has no intention of stopping. But we do not start in a news studio. We start with Makoto himself, standing in the rain, completely covered in blood, screaming that none of it is true. The words come out of him in pieces. He is thinking about Yane, about how he swore he would get her out of her situation no matter what it cost him, about how they were supposed to carry whatever time they had left together, side by side until the very end. He had promised her that, and now the promise is ash and she is the one who paid for it. He can barely form a sentence. The scene shifts to the chaos still surrounding his house. An officer who was caught up in everything is on the ground barely conscious, and a younger officer steps forward saying he will attend to Inspector Tsukumo. The injured man asks to have the handcuffs removed. The younger officer hesitates, asking why anyone would want to pile another wrong on top of everything already done. Outside, Makoto launches himself at one of the remaining officers in a brutal and bloody exchange, and the officer goes down. Makoto collapses into the wreckage and debris around him, kneeling in the ruins of the scene, barely keeping himself upright. He says into the ground that he will never forgive this, not any of it. Beyond, he pulls himself to his feet, covered in blood and soaked by rain, and starts moving again. His face has gone somewhere hollow and unreachable. An officer nearby spots him and freezes completely. Wakasugi, somewhere further along the street, recognizes him and reacts with shock. Wakasugi moves through all of it without stopping, muttering that he will not stop, that he will not forgive. The police report filtering back to headquarters confirms that Tsukumo survived and has been taken to hospital, though he has not yet regained consciousness. Makoto was seen fleeing the scene completely covered in blood and is now believed to have stolen a firearm from one of the officers during the struggle. The prefectural police chief has arrived from headquarters and the entire department is now operating in emergency mode. The superior shuts down any mention of time loops without discussion and directs everything toward finding and apprehending Makoto. Detective Kagami is asked quietly what he intends to do with the main investigation going forward. This separately footage from a security camera at a parking lot near a shopping mall has surfaced, showing that Shinzo Yae appeared there before her arrest. The car she arrived in was traced to an owner whose villa was subsequently searched by officers, who found multiple bodies inside. This thread is still being pulled. Tsukumo's car has also been located, abandoned in a grove somewhere inside the city. Evidence inside the vehicle suggests Mizuno managed to free herself from her restraints and ran. Wakasugi receives this information over the phone in the rain and wonders aloud where she went after that. Then the scene cuts to Mizuno, who is already at the hospital. She heard what happened to Makoto and simply cannot make herself go back to Toyami and sit still while everything unfolds without her. She decides she is going to look for Mizuno-san on her own while she is there, and she walks into the hospital lobby alone, the doors closing behind her. The news coverage is still running. A reporter is outside the scene announcing that the head of the prefectural police will be holding a press conference regarding the incident from the previous night in Miyako City, where a patrol officer was killed and an inspector was left seriously injured. Makoto's photo has been on the screen since the early broadcasts. By now, the whole city knows his face. Enwazuno is watching from somewhere inside the hospital. She understands intellectually that Makoto is a murderer, and she cannot get the rational side of her to stop running that conclusion. But there is something underneath it that keeps hoping there is a piece of this she is still missing that will make it sit differently. She goes to the nurses and asks where Shiori was transferred, but they will not tell her anything. Then she runs into a young man in the corridor who is also there looking for Shiori, and who is clearly carrying something he has not known what to do with since he picked it up. The two of them end up outside together. Then, his name is Seto Takuma. He explains that Shiori said something to him during one of his visits that he did not understand when she said it, but watching the morning news rearranged it into something that makes a horrible kind of sense now. He says Shiori asked him to save her brother, then stops and corrects himself. What Shiori actually asked him to do first was kill her. He refused without any hesitation, and then she told him to help her brother instead. Mizuno stares at him. Seto also has something with him, a small fortune-telling omikuji slip, the kind found at shrines that he picked up from under Shiori's hospital bed during the brief window when she regained consciousness and the whole ward descended into motion. It has blood on it, and he intended to hand it to a nurse, but things moved too fast, and then he was outside and the news was already on. He holds it out now and they read the phrase on it together, something about taking a life and the door to tomorrow opening. And the words land in Mizuno somewhere deep and immediate because she has been living inside the logic of that exact phrase for weeks now without knowing its source. Thus, separately, Mizuno has already been working through the full shape of the situation alone, in the hours since she got free from Tsukumo's car and found somewhere to stop and think clearly. She has turned every piece of it over until the conclusion she keeps arriving at is always the same one. With Tsukumo unconscious and nobody left inside the police department who takes the time loop seriously enough to do anything with it, if Makoto gets arrested before anything is actually resolved, they are all going to be locked inside the same 24 hours indefinitely. She is not going back to the police, she is not going to Toyami to wait. She is going to find Makoto before the department does, and she is going to do it herself. Though that decision moves toward her faster than she was ready for. Later that night, Makoto comes out of the dark behind her, presses the stolen gun into her, and forces her toward a car in complete silence, cold and utterly controlled in every movement. A man named Kenya is nearby and watches it happen without being able to do a single thing to stop it. Inside the car, the press conference plays through the radio, and then the news screen built into the dashboard happens to show Makoto's photo at the exact moment he is sitting right there in the back seat with the gun still in his hand. The prefectural police are announcing his name on the national wanted list. 17 years old, believed to be connected to as many as 14 separate incidents, considered extremely dangerous. The car goes silent. Makoto says to keep driving. He says he is going to end all of this, and the way he says it leaves no room in the car for anyone to ask what he means. The evening of August 4th settles over a fast food place, somewhere in the city where Mizuno and Sito are sitting across from each other with the blood-stained omikuji on the table between them. Sito has been carrying the weight of what Shiori whispered to him from her hospital bed since the day she said it, and he works through it carefully now, laying each piece out with the focus of someone who has had too many hours alone with a thought and finally has someone to say it to. He walks Mizuno through his reading of it. When Shiori asked him to kill her, she had probably already understood the full shape of the loop and what it was costing her brother every single day. She was lying in that bed knowing Makoto was killing someone for her sake over and over, and she had decided the most useful thing she could do was remove herself entirely, so he would have nothing left to keep going for. When Seto refused without hesitation, she redirected immediately and told him to help her brother instead, which in hindsight sounds like someone who had already thought several moves past the one directly in front of her, though Muzutsuin keeps pulling their attention back to it. The phrase about taking a life and opening the door to tomorrow is the same logic that has been running underneath every repeated day of the loop without anyone on the outside being able to see it clearly. Whether Shiori found the slip somewhere, or someone brought it to her, or she was the one who wrote on it is something neither of them can determine, but it was hidden under her hospital bed with blood already on it, and that means she had been holding onto it deliberately. Mizuno tells Seto plainly that she wants to find Makoto before the police do. She wants to know the truth of what is actually happening, not the version the department has assembled from the evidence it is willing to believe. Seto points out that with the national wanted list now active and the whole force looking for him, it is only a matter of time before Makoto gets caught regardless. Mizuno already knows this and has already made her decision. That night under a full moon, she asks Seto to promise he will believe her before she tells him everything. He agrees. The next morning on August 5th, the manhunt is still running on every broadcast, and Makoto's location remains unknown. Mizuno drives alone through the early morning, thinking through the shape of the problem. The police will struggle to find Makoto because they do not believe in the loop and they are hunting someone they do not understand. If she is going to reach him first, she needs to work out where he would go when completely cornered. And the answer she keeps arriving at is that he would go after the source of the curse itself, the place where all of this started. That is where she needs to begin. Hanfu drives to the shrine where Makoto killed his first victim. The grounds are overgrown and clearly untended, and a detective at the scene mentions that the abbot of the temple disappeared roughly 10 years ago, and nobody has maintained the place since. Another officer nearby reflects quietly that Tsukumo always had a way of seeing things before anyone else did, and that he probably understood from very early on how strange this case was going to become. Mizuno steps inside and finds the interior completely torn apart. Everything has been pulled open and overturned and vandalized. Someone got there before her, before she can take in the full scope of it. She comes face to face with Seto and a young woman named Kana standing in the middle of the wreckage, all three of them startling each other. Seto had followed his own line of thinking to the same location and found something there connected to Shiori's hospital ward that he is now holding up in his hand. Outside the temple, the three of them regroup and share what they know. Mizuno explains what she has pieced together about the time loop and how it connects to the murders going back to the beginning. Seto says he cannot fully accept it, but something about the whole situation has been feeling wrong to him in a way he cannot dismiss, and the omikuji is a concrete piece of that wrongness. He points out that the slip does not look like any fortune paper distributed by a functioning temple, and that modern temples stopped issuing the kind that predict outright great misfortune a long time ago. On top of that, the place has been abandoned for nearly a decade, so the question of where the slip came from in the first place has no comfortable answer. What they land on together is that Makoto was already here before them and was searching for something specific. They head to the library and dig through whatever records exist on the temple. Almost nothing comes up. The only entry they find is a brief mention in Miyako City's local history, noting that the temple was established around the year 1500 as a branch site founded by order of a main temple, whose location is not specified. Mizuno works through newspaper archives looking for any coverage of the abbot's disappearance while Seto goes through the historical documents, and Kana, unable to help herself, starts laughing at an old newspaper comic strip she found in the stack, which earns her a sharp look from Seto. The small moment briefly lets some air into the room before the weight settles back down. Then Mizuno finds something. She does not say what it is. Her expression simply changes, and she goes very still for a moment, and then she quietly tears the relevant page from the document she is holding, tells Seto she does not want to pull him any deeper into this than he already is, and slips away. By the time Seto realizes she is gone, she is already in her car and moving. He is furious when he discovers she took the most important page with her and left them behind. Kana urges him to go after her. Seto says he had already anticipated this possibility and hid his phone under her car seat before any of this happened. They can track exactly where she is going. Mizuno drives alone with the torn page on the seat beside her, thinking that what comes next is something she has to handle without anyone else getting pulled further in. The final panels cut between Seto walking forward with complete determination, saying out loud that he is going to save Shiori from whatever curse has fallen on her family, and Makoto sitting somewhere in a dark car with the stolen gun resting in his hand and an expression that has gone somewhere far away and unreadable. Both of them moving toward the same point from completely different directions with completely different things in their hands. August 5th, still Saturday. A road sign points toward Hiramaki Village office 3 kilometers ahead. Makoto is in a car with the gun pressed against the driver, ordering them to stop at a point along the route where the trees grow dense enough to disappear into. When they pull over, he apologizes quietly for frightening them, thanks them for getting him this far, says goodbye in the calm, distant way he says everything now, and walks off alone into the forest. The driver sits there shaking and alive. The following morning on August 6th, the setting shifts to Hiramaki Village in Lee Prefecture, a small rural place tucked between mountains and old farmland, where the mornings are quiet enough to hear individual birds. Inside a traditional house, an elderly man is eating breakfast and complaining to his family for what his daughter says is the 3rd time this week that all the young people have left the area, that he is 70 years old and still working, and that nobody is left to carry anything forward. His daughter brushes him off and someone makes a joke about whether she might move back. She is not interested. Outside the house, a girl named Rio is sitting alone by the road with her phone, bored and restless in the way that only someone stuck somewhere they do not want to be during the part of summer that is supposed to be free can be bored and restless. Her family calls her in for marshmallows, and she ignores them and wanders off down the empty country roads instead. crying quietly while looking at photos from her friends back in the city and arguing with herself about how many more days she can stand being here. While walking, she notices a figure moving ahead of her into the trees, clearly not someone from the village. She follows without thinking much about it, and then gets attacked by a nest of bees and curses loudly enough to make him turn around. The two of them end up face to face, Ryo embarrassed and stinging, Makoto completely unbothered and looking for something. He asks if she lives in the village. She explains she is visiting relatives. When he turns to go, she asks out of lingering curiosity whether he knows anything about old ruins in the area, since he seems like the kind of person who looks for that sort of thing. He says it is a hobby, and that he heard there was a ruined temple somewhere nearby. Ryo decides on impulse to help and takes him to an elderly local man tending his garden at the edge of the village. The old man thinks about it for a moment and says there was once a temple near the village council office, but it has been gone for years. Then he adds something more useful. When he was a child, he remembers persistent rumors about another temple somewhere up in the mountains to the west of the village. Nobody he knew had ever actually been there, and children were always warned away from that direction because it was easy to get completely lost in the terrain. Makoto takes this in quietly and thanks him. Ryo hands Makoto her backpack and offers to guide him, since she has time before dinner, and he clearly does not know the mountain. He pauses and then tells her there is something she should know first. She will not be making it home for dinner tonight. The words land on her with a weight she cannot fully identify yet. While back at the family house, Ryo's mother realizes too late that her daughter has been gone far too long and cannot reach her by phone. She begins to panic. On the road nearby at almost the same moment, Mizuno spots a police patrol car rushing past with its siren running and steps directly in front of it to stop it. The officers are furious until she shows her identification as a detective and demands to know where they are going. They tell her about a car that went over a guardrail near a parking lot on the edge of the village and fell off a cliff. When she gets to the scene and sees the wreckage at the bottom and what remains of the people inside, she understands immediately that the crash was not an accident. They were shot first and then the vehicle went over. The village begins to understand that there is an armed fugitive somewhere nearby. Word moves fast. Ryo's mother puts it together with a cold horror, realizing her daughter walked off toward those same mountains not long before any of this started. The officer at the scene calls for immediate reinforcements. At Polajao, deep in the trees, Makoto is moving quickly with binoculars raised and scanning the mountainside for something that may not even exist in any form he can reach. Ryo is beside him now, clearly a hostage, scared and holding herself together through effort. He tells her he is sorry, but she is not going home for dinner. His eyes do not leave the slope above them. Police headlights begin cutting through the dark between the trees as the net begins to tighten around them and the chapter ends in the middle of it. Or, a full riot squad has assembled at the village. The commanding officer lays out the situation cleanly for everyone present. Makoto is armed. He has taken a 17-year-old named Morisaki Ryo as a hostage. He is believed to be somewhere in the mountains to the west. The order goes out and the operation moves up the mountain, under a full moon with the whole slope lit up by searchlights and officers moving through the dark in formation. The search runs for several hours without any trace of Makoto. The terrain turns out to be far larger and more complicated than the map suggested. Mizuno tries to attach herself to the search team and is pushed firmly back by the officers who tell her it is too dangerous and that she should leave this to them. She keeps her mouth shut about how she feels about that instruction. Deeper in the trees, Makoto and Ryo are pushing through the dark together, both of them exhausted and breathing hard. Makoto apologizes quietly for dragging her into this. Ryo catches her breath and asks him directly if he is actually the murderer the police are hunting. She says he does not look like one. Makoto goes quiet. What follows is one of the more haunting moments the story has offered, because he actually thinks about the question honestly rather than dismissing it. He reflects that when his life was still normal, he would not have been able to imagine himself doing any of what he has done. He thinks about the way his normal life shattered completely, and about the fact that whatever force or design set this curse in motion apparently saw in him exactly the kind of person who would make the choices he has made when pushed far enough. The path a person walks when they are pushed to the absolute edge reveals who they actually are at the bottom of themselves. Then they find a torii gate standing completely alone in the deep forest with nothing behind it. No building, no structure, no sign of anything that was ever there to be built toward. Just the gate is an entrance to something that either no longer exists or has not made itself visible yet. Makoto stares at it and starts looking for any passage or way deeper in. The police above them hear movement in the underbrush and close in fast. Makoto spots them and pulls Ryo with him, and they run. The officers find footprints and follow. At this critical moment, Seto and Kana arrive at the edge of the same area, having tracked Mizuno's location through the phone Seto planted in her car. He tells Kana there is only one early bus from the station to Hiramaki, and they cannot miss it, so she needs to keep moving regardless of how tired she is. Kana checks her phone just before midnight and pulls up the news. Makoto is still at large near Hiramaki village, suspected in the shooting deaths of 2 people in the parking lot. A teenage girl who came to the village for the summer has disappeared. Seto sees her looking at the screen and tells her sharply not to let her mind go where it is going. Then he turns to her and says something that changes the entire weight of the scene. He tells her he knows what she is thinking. that the police have probably cornered Makoto by now, and that if he is completely trapped he will use the time loop to escape back through the previous day. Seiji says plainly that he will not let her go back through time without him. Kana is stunned. She tries to argue that she cannot in good conscience put a curse on a complete stranger that forces them to kill people in order to survive it, that it is not something she is willing to do. Seiji grabs her wrist. He tells her that the person he loves is Kusakabe Shiori, that Shiori asked him specifically to save her brother, and asked him in particular and not anyone else. That is why it does not matter what Kana says about it. He is coming. The clock turns to midnight. Makoto and Ryo are pressed against something in the dark with police lights sweeping around them from every direction. Ryo says quietly that she wants to help him. Makoto looks at her and says no. He is not pulling anyone else into this. Then he uses the loop. They disappear. Mizuno is standing close enough in the dark to watch them vanish directly in front of her eyes. She grips the gun she has been carrying and breathes out. She admits to herself that some part of her felt something close to relief when she watched them go, because since the news of Yane's death, she had been genuinely afraid that Makoto had broken completely past the point of return. The fact that he is still composed enough to use the loop deliberately means some part of him is still intact and still making decisions rather than just reacting. But she refocuses immediately. She knows what happens next. The morning will bring the parking lot discovery again and the search teams will return to the mountain again. She has a narrow window and she tells herself she is going to find him and end the loop before anyone else reaches him. The second time through August 6th night, the police briefing repeats itself with the same information, the same orders, the same urgency that accomplished nothing the first time. Makoto is somewhere out in the dark again, exhausted and running and knowing exactly what is coming, because he has already lived through every step of it. Mizuno is running too, pushing through the same mountain trails in the dark, trying to reach the gate before anyone else gets there first. She finds it. The torii gate standing alone in the trees exactly as it was. A figure is already there ahead of her, crouched at the base of what appears to be a staircase. A staircase that was not there the first time she came to this spot. She stares at it with wide eyes. This is what Makoto has been looking for the whole time. The chapter ends with her standing there and both of them converging on the same point from different directions, with the whole mountain still closing in around them. After the loop resets and Makoto pushes back through the forest again with Ryo, they find themselves disoriented after having wandered the entire perimeter of the mountain, without realizing it and ending up right back at the gate they started from. Ryo is shaken but on her feet. Then they both see what was not there before. A staircase rising up behind the torii gate into the dark above. On the first pass through this spot before Makoto used the loop, there was nothing behind the gate at all. Now the stairs are there. He stares at them and a thought strikes him. He pieces it together. The passage was closed to him the first time through because he had not yet used the loop. After going through the reset, something shifted and the way opened. Perhaps only someone carrying the loop power can see and climb these stairs. This is the place. He tells Ryo they are going to the top and starts climbing without waiting. They ascend into the dark, and at the top of the long staircase all three of them meet at once. Makoto and Ryo coming up from below and Mizuno having found the gate on her own and climbed ahead. They recognize each other in the dark and say each other's names quietly. Ryo stands behind Makoto, not understanding what is happening between the two adults facing each other on these steps. Mizuno asks Makoto directly what he came here for and what he intends to do. He answers without any hesitation at all. He came to kill the gods. He says it with the flat, complete seriousness he uses for everything now. Then he grabs Ryo and raises the gun at Mizuno, telling her to get out of his way or he will use the girl. Ryo screams. Mizuno raises her own gun. What happens next is very fast. Makoto fires. Mizuno goes down on the stairs, badly wounded, sprawling across the steps. Ryo collapses in the chaos of the moment. The stone is covered in blood. Ryo stares up from the ground in shock and screams at Makoto, asking why he did it. Makoto checks his watch. 23:55. 5 minutes left before midnight. He says quietly that he cannot allow any more delay, that he lost a full day in the previous loop when the passage was still closed, and that he had planned from the beginning to remove Mizuno if she got in his way. Mizuno, barely conscious and bleeding on the stairs, tells him through gritted teeth that there is no forgiveness at the end of any road he walks down. Makoto laughs at the word forgiveness as though hearing it from somewhere very far away, as though it belongs to a language he used to speak fluently and can no longer find in himself. He says he stopped thinking about forgiveness so long ago he can barely remember what it meant to hold that thought. He calls himself a robot, something that forfeited the right to feel anything a long time ago. Then, without any warning or performance, tears start falling down his face. He is not doing it deliberately. They simply come. He panics and turns on himself furiously, demanding internally that he stop, telling himself he has no right to cry, no right to feel sadness or anything else, that he has destroyed other people's happiness and other people's families for the sake of his own, and that makes him something below human. But the tears keep coming and he cannot make them stop, and he cannot understand why they are still there when he has told himself so many times that they should not be. He wipes at them and pulls himself together just barely and raises the gun again and tells Mizuno to move. Mizuno looks at him steadily and tells him that killing her will not end the loop. Even if she dies right now on these stairs, the loop continues. Makoto stops, Seto and Kana are somewhere on the mountain below and they hear a gunshot ring out and both freeze. Seto checks his watch. August 7th, 00000. The date changed. The loop did not reset. That means Makoto killed someone and the loop is still open. He tells Kana they need to move toward the shot right now. Both back on the stairs, Mizuno tells Makoto something that makes him go pale. She tells him that killing her is actually the entire mechanism of the curse. That is precisely how it functions. She is not lying. She has already been to the sanctuary at the top of these stairs. She found what was inside. It was not gods. There were 2 paper purification figures and an old family chronicle. On the back of one figure was writing, the same text as the prophecy on the slip connected to Shiori. Makoto stares at her. He asks if that is really true. Mizuno holds up the piece of paper she tore from the library document and kept from everyone else. Makoto looks at it and his face opens completely. He asks her quietly if she has it too. The chapter ends there with both of them on the blood-soaked stairs, the gun still between them and the truth about the curse sitting in Mizuno's hand waiting to be said out loud. The Makoto absorbs what Mizuno has just told him, and the frustration of it is visible on his face before the fear catches up. If killing her will not end the loop, then he has no way to break the curse on his own. And everything he has done to get here accomplished, nothing toward the only goal that matters. He says it out loud. Mizuno, bleeding and barely keeping herself upright on the stairs, tosses her gun aside and tells him to stop. She says his crimes will have to be answered for eventually, that there is no path through this that does not end with him facing the law. But she also says that if she were the one who had been living inside his situation, she thinks it would be an almost unbearable kind of pain to carry, and she is not pretending otherwise. She tells him she is caught in the loop now too and that she is not his enemy. She asks him to stop killing people. She says it for Shiori's sake, please. Makoto stares at her. Something in his face shifts very slightly, something that was completely locked loosening by a degree. He says her name quietly. The word detective comes out differently than it has before, softer and without the coldness that has been behind everything he has said for weeks. Moments, Seto and Kana crash through the brush toward the sound of the shot and find the gate and rush up the stairs, and both of them stop completely when they see Mizuno collapsed in a pool of blood on the steps. Kana screams, Seto catches himself and shouts to her to hold on and rushes to her side. Makoto is already gone, disappeared further into the temple grounds above. Seto makes it to the top of the stairs and finds the inner sanctuary where documents have been left scattered across the altar. He reads through them and the realization of what he is holding hits him hard. This is the written record of the curse itself, the family chronicle that contains the origin of the loop and what it requires. He and Kana do what they can for Mizuno and try desperately to keep her conscious while she whispers to them to please break the curse before her eyes close. Alone at the train moving through the night on August 7th, Seto and Kana sit in silence. He finds it strange that despite Mizuno being shot and left near the temple, there has been no news coverage of it at all, even though the entire surrounding area has been full of police for days. The temple apparently sits somewhere harder to access than anyone realized. He notes it quietly and lets it sit. Lindy thinks about Shiori. He thinks about how for as long as he has known her, she has talked about her brother every single day, how she called Makoto the best brother in the world and meant it completely. But she was also always quietly afraid underneath that. She knew how sensitive and fragile Makoto actually was beneath everything he carried, and she was afraid that one day either herself or their father would break something in him that could not be put back. She had been holding that fear for a long time and doing everything in her power to keep the family together around it. Even now, lying in a hospital bed unable to speak, she is still thinking about him. Her surgery is in 3 days. The train moves through the night, and the chapter ends on Seto's face, watching the dark outside the window and holding all of this without anywhere yet to put it. The train pulls into Miyako on August 8th, and Seto looks at Mizuno's ID card in his hand and says quietly to her face in the photo that he will fight in her place. Kana sits across from him holding the card too, her expression still and decided. The date moves to August 8th at 14:21 and the scene cuts to the entrance of Miyako Prefectural Hospital, where an elderly man with a long white beard arrives on foot with worn-out shoes and walks up to the information desk and asks which floor Kusakabe Shiori is on. The staff tells him there is no patient by that name. He refuses to accept this, getting agitated, while a security guard steps in. The old man shuffles away muttering and makes his way back to a rough shelter under a bridge nearby where another old man is waiting for him. He reports what he was told. The other man says he must have gone to the wrong hospital. Makoto is somewhere else entirely, hiding somewhere dim and ruined and crouched low. A figure approaches him carefully. There was apparently a deal between them, and Makoto has finished building something, a handrail, as his side of the arrangement. The figure thanks him and tells him to come along as agreed. Just as they move, Makoto strikes. The old bearded man reacts with shock and blood follows. Makoto stands there covered in it. Through a police walkie-talkie he overheard, he now knows Shiori is being transferred to the prefectural hospital. He pieces together that the hospital was hiding her location from strangers asking after her. Now he knows exactly where she is. He says out loud that he knows what he has to do. He needs to end everything once and for all, and for that he needs one person in particular. The clock outside reads 8:08 at 23:59. Permanent flips to August 9th at midnight. Tsukumo is sitting up in his hospital bed watching the clock tick over. He notes the calendar. Shiori's surgery is on the 10th, which is tomorrow. He thinks to himself that Makoto has killed again because the loop did not reset. Then his phone buzzes. The name on the screen is Mizuno. He grabs it. A voice on the line asks where he is. Tsukumo is thrown and recognizes who he is actually hearing. He demands to know where Mizuno is and how this person got her phone. The voice says it wants to meet. It's 3:05 in the morning on August 9th on the rooftop of the hospital where Tsukumo is staying. Makoto is already there alone in the dark when Tsukumo steps out. Tsukumo says he was surprised Makoto actually came. Makoto asks immediately where Shiori is. Tsukumo starts to answer, and then stops himself and tells Makoto to answer his question first. How did he get Mizuno's phone? Then Makoto says simply that he killed her. Tsukumo loses all composure at once, lunging and grabbing his collar and screaming at him. Makoto takes the hit and goes down, and Tsukumo pins him, and Makoto tells him through gritted teeth not to push this further. Then he breaks loose and walks toward the edge of the roof, putting distance between them. He says there is no point in killing Tsukumo now. He needs to see Shiori and get this finished. Tsukumo, catching his breath on the ground, asks what he means by finished. Daikato looks out at the building across from the rooftop. He says he was at the temple. He found the source of the curse. Tsukumo goes very still, and then the word comes out of Makoto, quiet and completely final. Kill. Tsukumo says Shiori's name out loud in a voice that breaks open. The chapter ends with both of them on the rooftop in the dead of night, and what Makoto intends to do now fully in the air between them. Makoto explains the origin of the curse to Tsukumo. Long ago, a girl was condemned to death for a crime she never committed. Her father, living far away, heard she was in danger, and prayed desperately for any help the gods would give him. The gods answered and gave him the power to turn back time. He used it over and over, crossing the enormous distance between them, and he saved her. But the loop did not lift after that. The day kept resetting. The father eventually understood that moving forward into the next day required a life taken as the price, so he began killing, day after day, to keep stepping forward. Tsukumo listens to all of it without moving. The time is 4:50. Both of them are now outside a small rural train station. Seto and Kana are also at the same station, having spent the entire previous day checking every hospital in the region capable of performing Shiori's surgery. None of them had a police presence. That means Shiori must be at the one place they have not looked yet. Seto works through the logic and concludes that Makoto, now knowing the truth of the curse, can only be heading in one direction, towards Shiori. Kana suddenly stands and walks off. Seto calls after her, asking where she is going. She says the bathroom. He panics and reminds her the first bus to the medical center leaves soon and they absolutely cannot miss it. She tells him she heard him and keeps walking. Her face has its own determination on it. That has nothing to do with the bus schedule. She has already worked something out. At 4:55, a car pulls up and Tsukumo walks toward the hospital building alongside Makoto, who has a mask on. Tsukumo explains on the way that what the police call the prefectural hospital is actually the Miyako Medical Center, and that it has specialized wards for patients connected to active investigations. Shiori is there. Makoto asks why Tsukumo is helping a murderer get to his target. Tsukumo says he already explained that. He does not care about moral frameworks or what is right or wrong in an abstract sense. He wants to see how this ends. And then he adds that Mizuno would have wanted to see how it ends too. Tsukumo holds up the temple documents and reads out what the curse actually says. There are two separate prophecies. The first is for the person who holds the loop power. By cutting off a life, the door to tomorrow opens. The second is for a family member. If she cuts off the life of someone she loves, the door opens permanently, and the curse is lifted forever. The old story ended exactly this way. The daughter killed her beloved father and the loop broke. Tsukumo says it might just be an old story, but if there is no other method, then the only remaining path is for Shiori to kill the person she loves most in the world, which is Makoto. Makoto turns and looks at the full moon with complete calm. He says it plainly. He will have to force Shiori to kill him. The bus to the medical center is about to leave and Seto sprints after it, screaming, and barely makes it on. He calls Kana's phone over and over and gets nothing. He realizes with a sinking certainty that he will be going to the hospital alone. Kana is already moving through the dark toward the hospital from a different direction, going off on her own the way she has clearly been planning to do since she walked away from the bus stop. She says sorry to Seto quietly under her breath and keeps going. The 5:15 in the morning on August 9th at the Miyako Medical Center. Tsukumo and Makoto arrive at the entrance together. Tsukumo hands Makoto something to help him get through security and tells him to go. Inside the corridor, a guard is at his post. Tsukumo walks up casually and falls into easy conversation with him, asking about night duty, acting like someone who belongs here, while Makoto slips past in the distraction. Then Tsukumo grabs the guard from behind and shoves him aside hard, clearing the path completely. While Makoto is already moving down the hallway, Tsukumo shouts after him to wait and reminds him of the core fact. When Shiori kills him, the time loop disappears. So why has he been killing others to get to this point? Makoto pauses for just a moment, says he will go first, and keeps walking. Seto gets off the bus at the medical center stop and stands there thinking hard. Shiori's brother is probably already inside the building. He tells himself out loud that he is on his way, and that he is not going to let Shiori become a murderer, no matter what. Tsukumo and Makoto move deeper into the hospital together, and Tsukumo identifies the ward they are looking for, explaining that police posts are stationed right outside it, and all signs point to Shiori being inside. Makoto stares at the door ahead of him and says her name under his breath. Tsukumo produces something that would wake her and suggests they do this together. Makoto stops him. He says he will do it himself. They approach the door. He tells her he thought he would never see her again. Then he turns to Tsukumo and asks quietly if she has seen the news yet, and how much she already knows about what he has done. Tsukumo says it directly. Her brother killed her father, and not only him, their mother, and Yane-chan too. All of them are dead because of Makoto. Then Makoto asks with a strange quietness that is almost worse than anger, whether knowing all of that she would still hesitate to kill him. Before anything happens, an alarm fires through the building. The police posts outside the ward are not responding to radio contact. Seto bursts through another entrance screaming that Makoto is probably already inside and telling officers to check the ward immediately. The whole hospital erupts. Tsukumo tells Makoto things are about to collapse and the police will be there in minutes. Makoto looks at Shiori's door and says her name one more time. He goes in alone. Tsukumo grabs him in the doorway and tells him Shiori must be the one to send him to the next world and that he wants to see this family drama reach its conclusion with his own eyes. Makoto pushes into the room. Inside, Shiori is lying still. Makoto enters covered in blood and breathing hard. Tsukumo calls her name with urgency and she opens her eyes wide, suddenly awake. Tsukumo shouts that it is time. Makoto stands over her. She stares up at him. Time. Then there is a crash and blood. Tsukumo goes down hard, hit by Makoto, slamming into the floor. Tsukumo looks up at him from the ground and says, barely breathing, that he chose this path, calls him a coward exactly as he expected, and Makoto hits him again and sends him rolling. Then Makoto stands alone in the middle of the room, gasping, covered in blood, breathing. Tsukumo Shiori is awake with her eyes wide and shocked. Makoto turns to her and tells her directly in a voice that has gone completely raw that this is the real face of her brother, that she has seen what he is now, that she has seen everything. Then he runs. Seto arrives just in time to see him fleeing through the corridor and out into the dark trees. Seto sprints after him and catches up in the dark among the trees and plants himself in his path. He tells Makoto he knows who he is. He says his name. He says they shared a club with Shiori. He asks Makoto directly if he really wanted Shiori to be the one to kill him. He looks at the blood covering him and asks whose it is and where he is going. The Makoto does not answer and tries to move past him. Seto grabs him and screams at him, asking if he is really still going to keep killing people, saying that is not right, and something in Makoto finally breaks open all the way. He turns on Seto with everything pouring out at once. He throws every directive back at him in fragments. Do not kill people. Do not abandon Shiori. Do not rewind time. Do not make Shiori a murderer. Then what exactly is he supposed to do with all of that? He dares Seto to stand there looking clear-eyed and correct and explain the answer. He shouts that Seto just stands to the side with wise words and an arrogant face. There is no perfect solution, he tells him, and for Seto it is easy to say because Seto is not the one living inside it. For Makoto, his entire life has become the curse itself, and there is no one standing beside him in any of it. Bebegas. He is crying. He says he knows what he is doing is wrong. He has always known, but he cannot stop. For him there are only two options that exist. Abandon Shiori and let the loop close forever, or keep killing people to reach the next day. If there is another way, he does not know what shape it takes. He holds up the bloodied rock in his hand and says out loud what this represents for him. Real hell. He collapses to the ground and asks the dark around him if there is truly no other way at all. Nothing left. Then a voice surfaces through his thoughts. Kana's face behind her glasses, short dark hair, looking straight at him and saying it is not too late, telling him to go back and let her do it instead, telling him there is still a way. Minakoto lies on the ground under the moon, looking up at it. Seto is nearby, also badly beaten, not moving. Minakoto says sorry to him. He says his name softly. He picks up his phone. A small stuffed bear has fallen onto the ground beside him. He thinks to himself that he could not get Shiori to kill him, and so there is only one way left. Then a message fills the screen in large text. We need to talk. Makoto's eye goes wide. The scene shifts to a strange space that does not feel entirely like a real location. A figure in white is walking forward holding a knife. It is Shiori, moving toward Makoto with the knife raised. Seto runs after her, screaming at her to stop, not to do it, not to kill him, shouting that he swore to protect her. So then Seto jolts awake in a hospital bed and crashes into his IV stand. It was a dream. He realizes he lost consciousness when Makoto hit him and has woken up in a hospital room. He looks at the time and the date, and the recognition hits him like a physical blow. It is August 10th. He has been unconscious for the entire day. He starts screaming Shiori's name. August 10th is the day of her surgery. Police officers from Miyako are already at his bedside. They tell him he was the one who alerted building security about Makoto and that they need to know more. They ask if he knows where Makoto is now and how he sustained his injuries and why Inspector Tsukumo was with Makoto during the incident. Seto's mind is running fast. He says Makoto probably has not gone far because the police cordoned off a 10-kilometer radius around the hospital after finding him. The officers ask what Makoto is actually after, what his goal is, what he is trying to accomplish. Seto says nothing for a moment. Then he tells them that what he needs to know right now more urgently than any of their questions is how Shiori is doing. He asks how the surgery went. They bring him to the hallway outside the operating room. The light above the door is still illuminated. Surgery in progress. Seto stares at it. Someone tells him it is not over yet. He erupts, demanding to know what is happening, why it is not finished. The officers keep pressing him about Makoto. They step out of the hallway together and one of them starts to tell him something and Seto's face changes completely. He says it cannot be. Whatever the officer just told him, the blood drains out of his expression entirely. Meanwhile, Makoto is standing on top of an old abandoned concrete observation tower somewhere in the night of August 10th, leaning on the railing with his watch in his hand. It reads 23:40 on the 10th. He thinks about this place. This is where it started, where he pushed Kajiwara off the edge and understood in the seconds afterward what he had chosen to become. Only 1 month has passed since that night. It feels like the span of a completely different lifetime. He wonders who will be the one to grant his last wish. He says into the dark that he hopes this ends soon. The footsteps on the stairs and Kana appears at the top. Mikoto says her name. She holds up a phone and says she knew this was why he texted her. She says she knew he could not make Shiori do it. She knows the rule. The loop breaks permanently when the person holding the power is killed by a blood relative. If Shiori could not be that person, then only his actual blood sister, which is her, can break it. She produces a knife. Miyako asks her quietly if Mizuno told her this was her last assignment. He asks if she came to understand on her own that there was no other path, and then he asks her plainly whether she will kill him. Kana raises the knife. She tells him she hates him. She screams it. She calls him by a name that is not Makoto, the name Takashi, her voice cracking apart, and she says he killed everyone she loved. Then her voice changes. It goes quieter and slower, and something underneath the anger comes up through it. She says, but she also knows that is not really who he is, that the two of them had too little time together. She lowers her head. She says she was happy when she found out she had an older brother, that she had a family. She says she is sorry. Her voice breaks into pieces. She says his name, Aizawa-san, one last time. Makoto stands under the enormous moon with tears already on his face and something cracking open behind his eyes that has not moved in a very long time. And the chapter ends there with everything that has never been said still between them and the knife still in her hand and the moon watching over all of it without any intention of looking away. The scene shifts to the immediate aftermath of everything that came before it. Kana is breaking apart on the platform, and what comes out of her is not just grief but something older and more corrosive than grief. She says it is her fault. All of it. She says their family could have been happy and she is the reason it was not, because she hated their father and mother, because of something rotten she has always believed was sitting at the center of herself. Then Makoto's voice cuts through it. He tells her she is not guilty. He says it is not her fault. He says she could not have done otherwise than what she did, that nobody could have. Kana stares at him with tears moving silently down her face and says his name again the way she has been saying it, like something she found and is afraid to put down. Then a phone buzzes somewhere nearby on the ground. Mizuno's phone, which has been there this whole time. A message has arrived on the screen. Kana's expression shifts when she sees it. In the operating room, the surgeons work under bright lights with the focused urgency of people who cannot afford a single moment of hesitation. Someone in the hallway says Shiori's surgery has been extended. Seto stands outside the operating room with his face gone somewhere unreadable and cold, thinking through what it means if the surgery is still running when midnight arrives. The clock reads 23:57. Kana stares at it. She says out loud that the surgery has not ended yet. Another day. Her expression shifts into something that is trying very hard to stay controlled and is not entirely succeeding. Then Makoto takes the knife from her hand. He turns it toward himself and tells her to hurry up. He says if the curse is not removed before midnight, the loop will close during Shiori's surgery. The clock reads 23:58. Shiori will die on the table in the middle of the procedure, the same way she would have died in the ambulance. Kana recoils and says no. She says she will not do it. Makoto looks at her with that hollowed-out expression and asks softly whether she is really not going to kill him. And then something shifts in his face into something worse than hollow. He says she has left him no choice. He will have to begin a new day himself. He will have to kill her instead. He launches himself at her. They struggle on the platform with two knives between them, and blood on both of them, and Kana screaming at him to stop. Then her face changes. She grabs him and tells him through gritted teeth that she can actually kill him if this keeps going. She says he chose the path of a murderer. He chose it for himself. Makoto goes completely still. He straightens up and steps back toward the railing. His face is calm now in a way that is more final than anything that came before it. He tells her it is okay. He tells her not to be scared. He asks her to fulfill his last request. He pleads. The clock shows 23:59. Kana screams at him to wait. She tells him that if he pushes her, it would be considered self-defense, that she is trying to give him a legal framing, a way through this that does not end the way it is ending. Makoto looks at her over his shoulder. He tells her to come on, to get it over with. He steps off the railing. He falls with his arms open and his face turned up toward the full moon, saying thank you, thank you. Aizawa-san, the words coming out of him like something he has been holding since before any of this started. Kana screams his name and reaches for him over the rail. He is already gone. A montage fills the spread. Every face and every moment and every loop collapsing together into fragments of everything that was repeated and lost and chosen and endured. And in the center of it all, one word. Mikoto's thoughts are directed at Shiori as he falls through the dark toward the ground. He thinks that he is pathetic, that he had no other way to protect her. He thinks about how many joyful moments she gave him over the course of a life that was so much harder than it should have been, and he cannot even count them all. He tells her to keep going forward, to live a long life, to forget everything about him, to rejoice and laugh, and live not for anyone else but for her own happiness. And he tells her he will be looking after her from wherever he ends up, until her life comes to a happy end. He falls past the platform into the moonlight below with one bloody hand reaching out towards something that is no longer there. The hands of everyone he knew rise up beneath him like a tide coming in. Every face from every loop, every life that was taken, and every person who was lost, crowding around him in the dark as he falls, hands reaching and mouths open. He falls through all of them still with something on his face that is not quite a smile but is close to one, saying he will always look after her from here, from hell. Then it is over. Kana collapses against the railing above and stares down at what she has done. Below on the ground, Makoto lies in an enormous stillness. The clocks on the wall tick to 23:59:58, then 23:59:59. Then the ticking stops. August 11th, 00000. The observatory stands alone under the full moon. The loop did not close. The same moon, Makoto's ruined face staring up at the sky from the ground below the tower. Kana on the platform above, silent. Tomorrow has come. The time loop did not close. Inside the hospital, the surgeons are still working with their hands steady under the lights, and Seto is at the door of the operating room with his head bowed saying thank you, and Shiori's name into the quiet of the hallway. Then the moon again, filling a whole page. The curse of the time loop they all got caught in is gone. It is now 17:56 on August 11th. Breaking news is running on every screen in the city. The Miyako City Police Department has confirmed the death of Kusakabe Makoto, the suspect on the national wanted list. Reporters swarm outside the building shouting questions about cause of death and whether it was homicide or suicide, and when the press conference will be held and officers push them back steadily. Inside a room somewhere, a gray-haired man stands watching. Seto sits nearby with his phone and looks up and says Mizuno's name quietly, meaning Kana. He tells her plainly that she killed Kusakabe Makoto to break the curse because it was written in a document found inside a temple. Kana says nothing for a moment and then asks whether the curse has lifted, and whether that means they can now go to wherever Mizuno is lying injured. The door opens and Wakasugi comes through pale and wide-eyed, demanding to know what is going on. Kana turns to the older man beside her and asks him directly whether this means he now believes her. He says yes, but it is too late to change what has already happened. She asks what will be done about everything else, whether anyone will tell the full truth about the loop. He says he does not know. He says that regardless, no one will ever be able to prove the loop existed. An officer interrupts to say the hotel arrangement has been sorted. The older man nods and tells Kana to stay away from the reporters for now, to remain under police protection a little while longer, and that they will do everything they can to establish that what she did was self-defense. She says okay. To herself as Seto appears in a hallway and leans in the doorway and asks simply whether it is finished. Kana looks up and says his name. Cut to Shiori in the hospital bed, unconscious, tubes running from her throat, her face still and pale as it has been for weeks. Seto and Kana stand outside the window looking in at her. Seto tells Kana that the surgery was successful and the doctors expect her to recover. Kana says yeah, quietly, to herself more than to him. Then she asks what Seto thinks, whether what Makoto did was really wrong, whether if he had chosen differently, if he had never started killing and had simply accepted the loop repeating forever and let Shiori go, you could call that the right decision instead. Seto says he does not know the right answer to that. Kana asks whether he will tell Shiori about the time loop. He says he would rather keep it from her as long as possible. Then he pauses and says she probably already knows. A memory surfaces in the space between them, Shiori's voice barely audible even in sleep, saying, "Save my brother." Then the question that hangs over everything without a clean answer. Shiori will live, but could she accept that every new day she was given through all those repeated weeks, someone had to die to open it? Kana says she thinks she herself could carry that knowledge, but for Shiori, that would be too cruel to ask. Seto clenches his fist. He says whatever it takes he will protect Shiori. He tells Kana he has to go because the detective is waiting downstairs. She tells him not to worry. He walks out under the moon alone. Shiori is still sleeping, the loop finally broken, and everything that comes next still waiting to begin. Kana walks away down the hospital corridor alone, brushing off any offer of company. She says Seto's name quietly as she goes. Then she turns back just for a moment and thanks him for everything. She says she is glad he was with her. She keeps walking. Seto stands watching her go, and thinks to himself that compared to Makoto, he is nothing. He wonders aloud to the empty air how he is supposed to live from here. But then Kana stops, her eyes went wide. She sees something at the end of the corridor, a figure standing there completely still, drenched in blood. It looks exactly like Makoto. She screams. She says it cannot be. He is dead. She was there. She watched him fall. She thinks for a moment she is seeing something that cannot exist. She cannot understand any of it. Seto comes running. The figure does not move or speak. Kana collapses to the floor and Seto drops to his knees beside her and calls for help. Then it goes dark. The clock reads 23:55 on August 11th. Kana is outside on a balcony under the full moon, seated on the ground, and someone tells her quietly that she should sleep. She ignores it. Seto is sitting beside her on the railing. She says she is sorry that it is her fault he had to spend the night here. He says he is fine. Then he says they should go back inside. She stops him. She pulls out the old piece of paper from the temple, the one that started all of this. Kill a loved one and you will forever open the door to tomorrow. She stares at it and asks whether it is really over. After Makoto's death, a new day came, but she cannot be certain she actually broke the curse. She wonders whether it simply transferred from him to her, whether it still works the same way, whether she now carries what he carried. And if that is the case, the only way to know is to test it. And the only way to test it is a thing she does not want to reach toward but cannot stop thinking about. She picks up something small and sharp. Seto grabs her hand. He holds it and does not let go. He says they have no other choice but to move forward. He says let them step into a new day together. He takes her hand and keeps it. The clock behind them counts down. 23:59:50. They stand together at the railing with their backs to everything they have been through, facing the enormous moon. The seconds fall away around them, 53, 52, 51. Their faces side by side watching it all without looking away. 59, 58, 57. The display reaches 00000. The screen fills with black. A single cursor blinks in the corner. Then silence and a new day has begun. And this time neither of them knows yet whether they are free.